Toru Iban, yeah. That Toru is in an S-rank crew led by the hero Siphon, and when the monster comes crashing in, he slams it back, then turns to Lisa, asking if she's okay. She meets his eyes and smiles, thanking him like she's totally fine. The guy yells at his friends not to stop because they're right there, and Toru blurts back that he gets it. They're childhood buddies who've always had each other's backs, so when Toru's friends push him to talk, they all stay locked together. They're telling him he has to quit the band. Then the main character freezes in shock and realizes, with a jolt, that they've been backing each other the whole way. The guy blurts out in shock. Seklin cuts in and tells him it's better he learns the truth right now. Later, the main character realizes he's been nothing but a roadblock to them, so Toru snaps, asking if they're messing with him because he can't wrap his head around why they hit him with it so suddenly. Cyan leans in and begs Toru to finally understand him, insisting he can't bear the thought of his best friend dying. Toru just goes stone cold silent, and then Lisa cuts in, saying Sane's right. She warns that if this keeps going, he'll be dead one day sooner than he thinks. The main character refuses to believe her, staring instead at the girl's hands at the care team. And then it hits him that isn't the ring he gave her. He keeps his eyes on the rest of his friends, and Neely and Suara stare back at him in deadly silence. He cracked a smile, and then it hit him. All this time, he wasn't being understood, he was just putting on a show for them. His best friend stabbed him in the back, then went and hooked up with his fiancée while he was left reeling. Toru can't even wrap his head around it. He keeps asking how long they've been playing him for. Seklin leans in and asks if he got it all, then bluntly warns him it'd be best to stay as far away from them as he possibly can. The main character snaps and yells at his former friend to shut up. Then he swings and lands a hit. He screams that Sason already knew he and Lisa were meant to marry, but he decided to steal her anyway, and Sason just keeps laughing in his face. Then the guy swings at him again. But one of the girls slams him off the ceiling and yells at him to stop. Neely shoots Samara a look and asks what the hell he thinks he's doing. Then Samara rips into him, calling him pathetic. Out of nowhere, a tiny something zips straight into the main character. Turns out it's the ring he'd given her, and he blurts out, completely stunned. Lisa screams that she never wanted him anywhere near her, then begs him to stay away from them. They bid Toru goodbye as the main character strides through the pounding rain, drenched and determined. He stares at the rings on his palm, and then, boom, Lisa's smiling face flashes right in front of him. Rage blazing, he slams the ring into the ground and can't even breathe. Toru erupts, screaming as he drops to his knees. He slams his fist into the ground because that girl's image won't leave his head, and the second he pictures himself and second spending time together, rage ignites. He drives them off, screaming through the cries. The main character sprawls on his back, staring at the ceiling like it owes him an answer, and starts asking himself what he's supposed to do next. He drops his real status in a single reveal, and he tells himself, my skills are trash, all this stuff is useless, but then he realizes something huge. He's taking less damage, his physical level is climbing, and his skills are suddenly hitting way harder. Toru hears that the accumulation system's mysterious skills are basically worthless, and he has no clue how to use them, but somehow they're still crazy high level. He realizes that if he had skills like the others in seconds, maybe none of this would have spiraled. Then he remembers he's sitting at the very bottom of the whole team and figures he's probably the one dragging everyone down. Out of nowhere, the main character spots something lurking nearby, and it's a black, demonic dog staring right back. He barrels toward the Tora then. In a quiet panic, the main character whispers an apology to the monster and swears he'll unload all his rage on him, and the Tora slices him clean in half. The moment he slides the blade back into its sheath, boom, those mysterious system skills that were locked tight finally snap open. And the main character gets hit with the news. His cumulative experience is about to skyrocket 100 times. He's sitting at level 300. This race doesn't fit the upgrade, and his body is going to get completely rebuilt. The main character's brain can't even process what's happening, and he's absolutely stunned. Then the system blurts out that the body reconstruction is finally done, and now his time is controlled by something way harsher than a normal sentence, a draconian decree. When the transformation finally cuts out, the area around the main character looks like a battlefield that got burned to the ground, and the last thing to hit is a notification warning that the stacked up experience got messed up. Now recovery is going to take a while. But the main character can't figure out what that notification even is, and when it hits, they're blown away right at level 300. He can't shake the feeling that something's gone horribly wrong, and then he realizes the damage isn't just to what happened, it's to the very experience he's collected. Toru realizes that this experience skill doesn't work until every last bit he's gathered hits its breaking point. Then the whole thing collapses, multiplies that stored experience, and dumps it right into the skill. Now it finally clicks, everything lines up because he always gave it his all in the group, even if his power crept up at a snail's pace, and then the main character bursts into a loud, unstoppable laugh. With a grin lighting up his face, he realizes he doesn't just want to travel anymore, he wants to race across the world. Level 300 means nothing scares him anymore. He can do whatever he wants now, and he's betting it's finally time to heal the wounds they left behind. The main character plops down, looks you in the eye, and insists he should kick things off by heading to a neighboring country, Armand Livio's border town. The main character strides through busy Armand and right away, he realizes this place is packed, even denser than the country's heartland. Toru spots a sign advertising the sale of servants, and the memory of his former friend's betrayal hits him like a punch. Now he knows he has to find someone loyal, no matter what. From the moment they're bought, these servants stay chained to their master. By contract, betrayal is never an option, not even until death. And now, he doesn't care what his conscience claws at. Later, he just wants peace and quiet. The man in the hat strides up to him, then flashes a smile and asks how he can help the main character. Toru says he needs a servant he can ride into battle with. Then the man asks if he has a favorite race. Toru just shrugs and says he doesn't care. He tells the main character, "I can hook you up with a lizard man for battles." And then the main character immediately asks, "What's it cost?" And the guy drops the bomb, 30 million, before the main character presses, "Do you have anything else?" He points at the elf and says she's got zero combat experience, but she'll light up his evenings perfectly, then adds that if someone teaches her combat magic, she'll become a powerful support for him. The main character asks, "So how much?" And the answer hits like a punch, 25 million, then he goes deadly silent. Then the guy fires back, asking what kind of budget he's got, so the main character doesn't hold back and says, "I've got 15 million. The man leans in, demands he come with him, and the second he does, he yanks the curtain back. The man spits that the servants here aren't worth 1,000,000 weak bones, ugly faces, sickly bodies, and zero training. But this guy assumes he'll get to pick his own choice, and then boom, the main character spots a girl nearby, and at first she just stares at him with pure indifference. Then he blasts out a huge scream, jolted by his own level 300, and Toru freezes. Shocked, she just saw it. He blurts, "So what's she worth?" The man answers, 110,000. And Toru can't wrap his head around why it's so cheap. He shoots back that the bargain is only because she's desperately ill, and then the guy leans in and asks what her name is. She freezes in silence for a beat, then finally whispers, "Kaid." He keeps saying her name like it's music, calling it beautiful, and then the guy blurts out that he wants to buy this kid. The man slaps a seal on the document and tells him the deal is finally closed. Then the guy grabs her attention and urges her to follow, and she obediently nods and falls into step, but he quickly realizes she can't walk right. Toru hoists her onto their back, and Kayetet starts coughing. The guy tells her not to panic, asking if she's okay. The girl nods back with a relieved, "I'm fine." The doctor admits she's got a rare disease only beastmen get, and the hero's stunned she isn't human at all. The doctor struggles to put it into words since she doesn't even show the usual signs like ears or a tail. But one thing is clear, she's still a beastman. Her pupils are wide and blown out, and that strange bump in the back looks just like a tail. He realizes, if I'm telling the truth, then her basic physical skills must be way too strong, and he blurts, "So how do we cure it?" The man declares the medicine is forged from the dragon's heart and there's no way to replace it. Right there on the street, the girl starts to speak, but the main character cuts in, "Don't worry, you'll bounce back soon." And even so, she can't help feeling totally awkward. Toru tells her it's best to stay home, shut everything out, and rest until she's fully recovered. Then he fires the question at her, does she really think he's a bad master who neglects his servants? Karid shakes her head hard. No. The doctor dismisses them with a flick of the hand and tells him to return once he's got everything he needs for the medicine, so the main character bows, thanks him, and even calls him old man, only for the guy to blow up and snap back that he's just 30. He's been lost in this forest for 3 full hours, just roaming with no end in sight. Suddenly, he spots the monsters, tenses up on instinct, but they flinch like he's a nightmare and scatter, and he can't help wondering why. Chalking it up to one thing, they're sensing danger before he even has to. Suddenly, the Tora spots something strange. He realizes it's a dragon, and that usually means a whole army comes to cut him down, so he bolts straight toward it. The hero starts to doubt, can he really slay that dragon all by himself? Then, out of nowhere, a cruel image of his own death flashes before his eyes and fear slams into him. Toru realizes he's towering over 10 meters tall. Then the main character snaps back to his mind and remembers a brand new girlfriend. Rage blazes in his eyes as he finally realizes she's waiting for him alive, and he snaps, shouting at the dragon to go fight him. The monster lunges at him and he dodges like a blur, then his foot jams into the ground and he can't pull it free. A roaring dragon barrels toward him, and suddenly the faces of his old friends slam into his mind. Toru despises them, but he vows he'll never turn into someone like them. He charges the dragon with his sword and slashes it down in a single strike, toppling the mountain behind it. The dragon's body crashes down beside him, and the rock tumbles right after. Then the main character just stares, stunned, realizing this is exactly what the 300th level's power looks like. After a while, inside the house, the main character hands the girl medicine and snaps, "Drink it, this will make you feel better." Carrie leans in and asks, "You made this medicine for me." The guy nods and tells her he already had everything he needed. Then begged the old man to brew it. He can't help but wonder if she'll manage to take it on her own. She grins and says yes, then drinks it in one go, and her cheeks instantly turn bright red. Then he finally crawls into bed, and the main character clocks that she's feeling a bit better. So he's convinced the medicine is doing its job. He stares down at his hands, and it hits him he's way stronger than he ever dreamed. And now he has to fight smart, because the guy looks shocked and says he never expected he'd even start caring about stuff like that. Next morning, he jolts awake yawning like he hasn't moved in days, then spots a girl beside him and blurts, "Why are you sleeping here?" Toru dashes downstairs, slaps the meat onto the cook's table, and demands he cook it for pay, only for the cook to stare in shock, thinking it looks like pork, yet still not trusting his eyes, so he asks Toru what it really is. The guy tells him this is the real meat from a red dragon, and the man's jaw drops. Then he doesn't even hesitate, cooks up a feast, and hands him a sizzling dragon steak and cutlets made from it. Toru takes a bite and his eyes go wide. This is seriously delicious. The guy never even dreamed he'd get the chance to taste dragon meat. The girl leans in and asks what it is, and Toru grins and tells her, "This is your breakfast. Dragon cutlets." Kai takes one taste, her eyes light up, and she devours it fast because it's that good, while the main character watches her closely and then blurts out that they've got to do something about her. They sprint into the shops and pick out a whole outfit stack for the girl. The hero leans in and asks if she's really sure she doesn't want to use the staff, but the girl fires back that he should just buy her what she wants. Toru's hesitating hard. "Hey, read." Meanwhile, Karin desperately wants to use the other two fans as weapons, but they're way too huge for her small hands. But he remembers she's a beastman, and if she can learn how to use them fast, it wouldn't shock him one bit. They're weaving through the market, and right as they pass, Kamid's eyes lock onto a cake like it's calling him, while the main character gets hit with a flashback to his past with Lisa. The guy asks the girl if she wants something, and she shakes her head. Then he tells her, "Don't be shy." She finally admits she wants it, and his face lights up with pure relief. Kade takes a bite of cake while Toru shoves a package into her hands and orders her to hold it, and yeah, he listens too when she says what she needs. She thanks him and calls him master, but at first he doesn't say a word until he finally snaps, telling her to stop calling him that. The girl fights back, insisting he's her master, then whips her face toward him, and the main character realizes, with a punch to the heart, that she's crying. Kyrid panics that he just can't stand annoying servants, then convinces himself he wants to shove her out. He pats her head and asks what she thinks he's talking about, and Toru tells her straight up he's never getting rid of her, because he wants her by his side for the rest of his life. He claims he may not make a great master, but he needs her. Then he grins and says he's counting on her, and the girl yanks his hand like she's ready to go. She gushes that he's the finest gentleman around and swears she'd do anything for him then. Karid begs him to let her stay by his side forever. He blurts out that hearing it made him feel mortified. Then when she apologizes, he suddenly tells her to just shorten her bangs. She shoots back that if she had scissors, she'd do it herself. Suddenly, the main character feels it like something snaps awake inside him. The guy freezes in shock, blurting out in pure confusion, and then the lock on a hidden skill shatters, flooding him with raw power. The main character can't even process what's happening, and the girl is just as shocked. A storm of menace burst off him, and it made Kai's courage crumble. Right in front of Toru, multiple system windows blasted onto his screen at once. His magic accumulation, skill boosting, and even his magic and experience stacking had all been crippled, and getting them back was going to take forever. But somehow, the whole experience was about to skyrocket 100-fold. The next second, his skill cap got shattered and a brand new, higher max got stamped in its place. On top of that, he scored the power to double every bit of experience and even borrow magic itself. He can't figure out why his skill kicked back in and loaded him with experience. And now he can't even wrap his head around how terrifyingly strong he's become, because the aura roaring off him instantly made Kairi back up in fear. He blurts it out and rips it off right then. Then he yanks her back to her feet, apologizes for startling her, and tells her his hard-won skills have powered his strength back up, so the hero blurts out, "Are you okay?" She nods with a thrilled grin and screams that her master is absolutely incredible. He stumbles in confusion and blurts, "You really think that?" And she grins, hitting back with a solid, "Yes." He stares at the status screen and his skills, and that sweet mystery of the 50th level hits him like, so this is how far I've come. He's completely stunned. He can't wrap his head around why the level jumped so hard, since it's always hovered near 10, and now he thinks his own limit must have risen too. Toru spots 2 more unused accumulation series skills, and his mind instantly races, picturing exactly how everything will explode the moment they finally activate. The girl asks if he's really okay, and he nods, smiling like he's hit with shock. Then he turns the question back on her, "So what do you want?" Carrie looks mortified and snaps that it's nothing, but the guy won't let it go. He tells her to stop being so shy, and she almost smirks and says she wouldn't mind some soap still. The guy presses again, and then surprise. Right at the house, Kayed leans in and fires off. "Toru, are you really sure swimming together is a good idea?" He leans in and asks if she really wants to admit that he won't be able to restrain himself after seeing her. Then the girl blesses it. She slips into a towel and he insists, I have to wash your hair. Cade blushes hard and squirms out. I don't want the master doing that. Rage flares in his eyes as he barks at her to sit down because it's an order, then he lights up like he's thrilled and can't stop staring at her back. He forces himself to snap back into control and starts washing her hair. Right then, Toru spots a tail peeking from the bottom and blurts out who she is, and the girl just smiles and says, "I'm a fox." Toru can't help thinking he's never actually seen her in the flesh, and then the rumors hit him golden fur. That's what they say. She's got. Before he can finish that thought, his hands jolt and they both shriek in shock and surprise. He storms off with an apology on his lips, but she hangs back, blushing with shyness. She insists, "I'm fine," and tells her master she'll do whatever he wants. Then the guy leans in and stares at her. Then he slaps a click into her life and she's left staring, baffled because he's already vanished. He walks off smiling and tells her, "When you're a bit older, we'll talk about it." And the girl's face blooms red as she stammers, "Master." The girl snips off her hair and the main character watches like it's magic. Then he blurts out that it suits her way better. She just shrugs and admits it used to feel too clumsy. Toru spots she's missing something small and she quickly laughs it off. Those aren't parts of a costume, they're literally her ears, and Toru's stunned when he realizes the girl's got a full set of human ears too. She says that in the old stories, the god who made beastmen adored their ears, but he also loved human ears, so he stood there, stuck, thinking, which one do I pick? And then it hit him, why not smash them together? But the main character blurts out that God has the weirdest taste, and the girl nods like she's thinking the same thing. Then they start cleaning up her cropped hair. Kayad whirled toward Thor with a grin, flashed him a bigger smile, and basically declared, "Today was absolutely amazing." He tells her, "Since you loved it, tomorrow's about to get even better." She nods right away and blurts out, "I've always wanted to be with you." The very next morning, the main character's nerves are on fire. He can't stop worrying. Kaiseed snaps, "What's wrong?" And he blurts that the old man from the gun shop is furious and now he's making him cough up the cash to pay for every weapon's repair. The girl can't stop wondering what he did. Toru pulls the shattered sword from its scabbard, then tells her he'd cleaned it yesterday right before it slipped and cracked by accident. He sprinted to the gun shop to grab a brand new weapon, and the blacksmith handed him the deadliest sword in his whole arsenal. The main character shrugs and says it's not bad, then tells you to try it until he swings his sword and suddenly windows burst across the whole building, and yep, the blade snaps again. The blacksmith blurts out, totally confused, because every single weapon in his shop is wrecked. Then the main character wraps up his tail and Ked goes silent, at least for a moment. Then she grins and tells him she knows the perfect weapon spot for him, so they dash to the ruined side. The girl claims there is a temple stuffed with sacred weapons here, and the guy figures she's just messing around. Even heroes don't automatically get sacred weapons. Only a rare few are chosen to receive them. And he's certain there's no way he can land even one, but Kaid swears her master will pull it off, and the guy keeps saying, "It's so spacious in here." The girl leans in and tells him, straight up, that the temple was raised back when people lived for the age of the god's glory. To grab the weapon, you've got to clear 2 tests first, shove that door open, and second, rip the gun off the pedestal. The guy blurts, "So how do you know all this?" And she smirks, "Because I heard it from someone who told me they're here." And right on cue, the first test kicks off. She peers at the giant door and freezes no handle. No clue how it should open. Then she finally presses her hand to it and the gate swings wide. The girl grins and congratulates him for clearing the first part. Then they push forward without wasting a second. He's stunned, so this is the sacred weapon. He blurts out that it's just a one-handed sword here, and then the girl fires back, asking if he really needs a two-handed weapon. Because the sacred weapon can stretch, shrink, and even shift its shape however the owner demands. He straight up tells him, "Alright then, I can try this." The hero strains with everything he's got, fighting tooth and nail to wrench that sword free. He rips his sword free, twisting as he topples backward. The girl beams and congratulates him, and then she tells Toru it's all her fault, because if she hadn't pointed him to the temple, he'd never have gotten his weapon in the first place. She tells him he would have come here no matter what he was picked for, the sacred weapon. Then the guy snaps back, "And you're praising him like he's some kind of legend." He remembers how the heroes group never handed him a single compliment, and even Lisa never got one either. The girl beams and says they can finally go on adventures together, and the guy nods right away, agreeing with her. And they're coming straight out of the temple. Toru tells the girl, "Once we hit the city, register us as a proper adventuring party and make sure this moment is officially marked." The girl nods and agrees. He's down there yelling at Lisa like they're having the time of their lives, but the girl snaps and begs him to stop. She's had enough, so he's totally stunned that she can't take it anymore and ends up, he locks in Toru's face in his mind and swears it's priceless. She blindsided him, betrayed by the woman he loved, the very one who had already proposed, and then second snapped, calling him an idiot. Meanwhile, Lisa felt like she belonged to him before she even showed up, and he still couldn't make sense of any of it. Neely and Samara were head over heels for him, then he snapped that Samara was poor because she betrayed her beloved like that without even telling him a single thing. Lisa, Neely, and Suwara didn't feel a thing for him at all, but he had that freaky, one-of-a-kind demon eye of temptation. He uses his girls to slip people into hypnosis, then wields the power to force anyone of the opposite sex to obey. Everything about him is flawless until Neely, Lisa, and Samara choose Tora for reasons only they know. Sei-sen seethed with jealousy toward him, but then boom, he unlocked an ability that let him fix that mistake, and Lisa, who once shut him down, is now right there with him. After that, he reveled in the days when they betrayed the Torah right in front of him, and he still remembers it as a strangely pleasant stretch after Thor disappeared, because once he was settled, he started gearing up to crush the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord, basically a walking apocalypse, gets reborn every 100 years, slipping back into the world from the demons, but there's a small, terrifying chance he'll return wearing a human body. Satan's dead set on tracking down a sacred weapon to finally kill the Demon Lord. And yeah, there's a mountain of work ahead, but if it all clicks, he'll rake in fame and fortune and maybe, just maybe, score a harem of princesses. And trust me, this is the start of a way better life. After a moment, the guy blurts out in shock, like his brain can't accept it. The dragon is dead. The man slams out an apology for making him travel all that way, but the guy shuts him down fast. He's just shocked to see him here. Selikin can't stop thinking about who killed the dragon. Then the guy swears he has no clue, and they only discover his already decapitated body sitting there. Outside, one of the girls spots Senin with pure rage in his eyes. Then the guy quickly snaps back and denies it. Don't dodge the dragon and go chase fun at the hotel. Sion snaps at her to shut up, and when Lisa asks who on earth could have killed it, the truth hits her hard. It wasn't some average adventurer. Second grins at them and makes it crystal clear the city is safe, so they're free to hit the road and keep going. After a bit, the guy blurts it out again, stunned that not a single sacred weapon shows up. He can't wrap his head around where it vanished, and then the girl steps in, telling him to finally calm down. He shoves the girl back and roars that if she touches him again, he'll kill her. Then she blurts out an apology. Ever since Toru disappeared, this guy realizes the group situation has spiraled downhill, and right away, he starts blaming it all on himself. Suddenly, he takes the blame like it's all his doing, but then he can't believe a second of it. And the only conclusion that hits is this: someone far stronger than him is behind it. He doesn't have a single soul in mind who could possibly fell a red dragon, and he's betting the killer and the thief who grabbed the sacred weapon are one and the same. Second, he's already imagining tearing into whoever's behind this because the moment he figures out who it is, he'll kill him on sight. Then the guy drops the bomb, the plans have changed. They charge into the Loontots dungeon, and he just assumes they'll steamroll it. Then the guy they question tells them, "You're late, it was here a month ago. Say it." And everyone else snaps in surprise. The guy leans in and says, "I'm just asking for your location." But the man scoffs, there's no such thing, and tells him to stop talking and go see it for himself. The guy stares, completely lost. Second drops to his knees. Totally stunned desperation hits him hard as he can't even figure out what's going on. A month back in Luntada, Kay hit Myers with the news she'd gotten an adventurer's card. She grabs the girl and begs, "Don't you dare lose that card, now it's your identity." The girl nods and agrees. Toru can't help but think his old crew was S rank, but the second he leaves, reality hits. Now he's dropped to B rank. The guy sniffs the air and says this place reeks of booze. The girl shrugs and admits, yeah, they serve alcohol, and Toru chimes in that it's all set up for recreation. Carrie shoots him a shocked look and says she's got her, he doesn't need to go there, not at all. The guy doesn't get a thing and keeps marching forward anyway. The girl says she's heard there's a dungeon right here, and the main character nods like, yeah, that's the place. He swears it was already here before the city even showed up, then tells her, go tomorrow. As the sky turns pitch black, the girl leans in and asks if he's found anything about them. He snaps back that he knows nothing at all, and this will be his very first taste of it. Toru says there are 2 reasons adventurers risk going there first. They're hunting materials dropped by slain monsters and digging for treasure. Katie says the second step is to push straight into the dungeon's deepest core, and he tells the girl that this priceless, rare resource can spit out tons of treasures, special items, and even new skills. Then she nods like, got it. He tells her, sure, you're still green, but we'll just stroll around the first floor. The girl doesn't argue, she listens. And right then, they're standing at the dungeon entrance. The main character yells for them to come inside, and the girl nods right away. Already inside the dungeon, Kaid flicks an air knife and drops the monsters one by one. Toru watches from the sidelines and thinks, I knew she could use magic, I just didn't expect it to be this damn strong. The girl grins and says she's raised the power to level 15. Then the guy blurts out in shock. He says they've only started an hour ago and he's still stunned. She pulled it off Kareed. Don't overthink it. It's probably because you're her master. At first, the main character doesn't buy it at all. The hero assumes that every bit of experience is doubling for her too. Then the girl bursts out, laughing with pure joy, shouting that she's stronger thanks to her master, while the guy can only chuckle nervously. On the third floor, a girl is battling not one, but two giants, teeth bared as she fights for every inch. She summons a blinding storm of flowers and slams it into them. A nasty spell pins the monster solid, and the girl whips her fans, shattering them into brutal chunks. She tells him she wiped every last enemy on this floor, and she's convinced the 30th level still isn't enough to live up to his expectations. She's determined to get stronger, and Toru snaps in, asking if she's exhausted, telling her they've already gathered enough materials and items, then urging her to head back home right now. The girl nods and tells him that's really enough for today, but the moment the words leave her mouth, she spots something on the floor and freezes. Then the guy leans in and says, "It looks like garbage." Suddenly, it hits him. This place is packed with rare treasures, and it holds exactly 100 items. Kaid leans in and asks whether it can swallow objects of any shape or size. And the guy nods like, yeah, then reveals he's already seen those magic circles. The girl urges him to keep going, but he shoots her down. Then she studies the warning and realizes they'll starve to death if they don't return, and she blurts out an apology. Toru tells her, "No need to rush, we'll still have plenty of time to level you up." And the girl grins like everything's finally going her way. The bag with the item vanishes like smoke, dropping straight into the storage, and she gasps in shock. The guy tells her, "All right, you need to rest now." After a while on the street, the girl leans in and says the meat is on a whole different level. He tells her to chow down as much as she wants, and she thanks him. Then Toru snaps back with a grin that it's not like everyone goes around thanking him. He reels to himself that they've racked up 120,000 coins today, and she's finally gone all in for the first time. Then the girl suddenly blurts, "Hey, why aren't you eating?" Kahid snaps, "No way, that's not happening," and tells her he picked this meal with the dungeon loot, not charity. Then the girl serves him a plate and shoves it right into his hands. She swears food hits different when you share it, then urges you to grab a meal together. Thor grins and thanks her, and then he tells her it's time to head back. They head home, and the main character can't stop replaying it before Kaid. Life was brutal and painfully hard, but ever since meeting him, things finally started to ease up if this keeps going. He's sure that crushing emptiness won't last much longer. By morning, Katie's cry tears through Toru's name, louder than anything, so he freezes, clueless, staring at the girl in total shock. Right in front of him stands an adult Kaid, and she admits, trembling, that when she woke up and found herself like this, she had no clue what she was supposed to do. Suddenly, she snaps into her true form as a girl. Then Toru asks if she's really Kaide, and she answers with a confident yes. The main character blurts out, "What happened to my body?" And Kaid tells him she'd already woken up like this. He stares, trying to piece it together, because just yesterday she was a little girl, and the very next day she was suddenly a beautiful girl. He can't stop replaying what went down in his head, and the girl figures it's because the level's climbing way too fast. He's totally lost, like he can't even follow what she's saying, so Kaid steps in and explains that once the kids hit level 20, they grow up, their bodies surge stronger, and their traits shoot up too. He's convinced bulking up his body and strength isn't some crazy dream, especially since even his race has already changed once he hits that point. He can't believe his eyes. How could he ever picture her growing into such a stunning adult? And now the main character is stuck because he can't even bring himself to see her as a kid anymore. The guy blurts, "Why are you still half naked? Cover yourself." And Kate snaps into place, showing off the torn clothes. Toru shoves his clothes into her hands, but she snaps back and refuses because they swear, "These are Toru's." Then he leans in and asks what's wrong, and she answers straight up, "It's the fact they stink like you." Toru tells her, "If you don't want it, we'll find something else." And before he can finish, she slips on a shirt and admits it's just a little too big for her. She shrugs and says, "It fits me perfectly," then pushes her to throw her pants on too, and the girl agrees right away. Right there on the street, they snatch up new clothes for her. Kaid stops the main character and asks what she thinks she looks like. He grins and says it's perfect, and the girl lets out a happy laugh. He tells himself she's fully grown in body, but her heart still screams kid, and Toru pushes her to try out her weapon and see if it fits her just right. The girl flicks her fan and insists she's totally fine, but the main character snaps back that she could get hurt if she keeps shaking her name like that. Then he tells her she can finally fire off 2 magic attacks at once. As they hit the street, every head snaps toward Kaid like the whole city can't believe their eyes. People whisper, confused, where did a beauty like her even come from? And then it turns into pure chaos. Someone praises her kindness, and someone else is already begging for the same kind of servant. The main character clocks all those compliments about Kayade's beauty and feels sick at the envy behind them. Then Kayade smiles and says, today she'll rake in even more money. And the guy shuts her down, telling her to forget money for today. He says they've still got money left from slaying the dragon, and now is the perfect time to level up, so he went and stocked them with supplies. The girl beams with pure joy and urges him to quit overthinking and go make today unforgettable. Inside the dungeon already, a swarm of skeletons is charging and ripping into the crowd. A fearless girl blasts an airwave and wipes out a whole crowd of skeletons in one ruthless hit. Skeletons smash apart and rain down around the girl as she snaps magic into a glowing circle around herself. She grins because she finally pulled it off, and Toru jumps in, like, yeah, I see it too. She's already level 50, while the 4th floor only demands level 15, so she wipes everyone out with 0 effort, and Toru's literally drifting off to sleep. The girl fires the question, "Are you tired?" And he shakes his head, saying he just didn't get enough sleep. Then Kaid grins and flicks his fan at her like a spark catching. She yanked the trash out, then stretched out the carpet, dropped to her knees, and started slapping her own legs like she was hyping herself up. The main character flushes bright red and insists that nothing bad will happen if he finally gets some rest. Then the girl nods right along with him. He starts slipping towards sleep, lost in the moment, thinking, man, she smells amazing. I'm done for. I'm falling asleep. Toru jolts awake and tells the girl thanks for letting him take the app, and she beams like he just made her day. Then Toru looks over and spots a whole bunch of skeletons nearby. He demands to know what happened here, and Carried fires back that they tried to ambush them while he was asleep and she just cut them all down. She's stunned that she wiped them out without taking a single step. Then she snaps, "Don't move," because she's about to shake him off. He thanks her, and for a second, he realizes just how genuinely kind she is. The warmth hits him out of nowhere, and he's convinced he just flipped on some sage or god mode, so he blurts out to the girl, "So what can you do? What's your skill set?" The hero blurts out that he honestly knows nothing about her yet, but then she shrugs it off if she doesn't want to reveal anything. That's completely her choice. And just like that, the girl declares, "You're my property," smiling as she can't wait to prove it. He checks her status and skills, eyes narrowing. She must have a power every magician would crave, and from everything he sees, her biggest one is power amplification. Toru locks eyes with her and thinks she's got every shot at becoming a true expert in this, and then the guy says they're finished here and offers to keep going. Then he shoots back, asking if she's really sure she wants to go even lower. She nods immediately and says she's in as long as he's okay with it. On the 10th floor, Kaid whips out a wind slash and wipes out the enemies before they even get a breath. The main character laughs and says she's good at magic, and the girl beams because her level just shot up, so her magic power is exploding faster than she can even wrap her head around how strong it's becoming. Taru leaned in and told her, "If you need help, just say the word and I'll be there." Kaid agrees. She's launching an air bullet straight at her target. He's convinced goblin riders are no joke, strong opponents cold as ice, no compassion for them at all, but somehow he can't help feeling sorry for them. On the 20th floor, they slam the brakes and build a roaring bonfire. Then the guy shoves a bowl of food into her hands and she turns and thanks me. She bows and apologizes like it's her job as a servant, but he reassures her, "Don't worry, everything's fine." Toru leans in and asks Cade what level she's on. She grins and says 150, and Toru can't believe it, because she literally dragged herself up by a mind-blowing 100 levels. Kaisid swears the food is insanely tasty and that the gentleman cooks like a pro, so I asked Thor if it's really true, and he immediately shuts it down like, "Nah, I can't say that myself." The guy blurts out, "How do I use magic?" And she stares blankly at him for a second, then snaps into it and explains. The real trick is getting the idea out there, because magic is built from 3 things: state, spell, and imagination, and if he's got the spell down, he can mix and match it in a dozen ways. But even if you don't know, he totally gets her. Like, he can feel what she means, so the image hits him hard, the fire raging in his own hand, and that blazing feeling spreads until it's practically alive. He's grinning because he pulled it off, but he admits it's insanely hard. Kareed just shrugs and says he only needs to practice more. He's desperate to learn magic too, and he wants it now, so he agrees. She's right and vows to train even harder. On the 29th floor, the monsters don't come in ones, they swarm in every shape and size. The main character blurts out that he's never battled orc wars, cursed skeletons, or minotaurs, and then tells Kay to take care of himself. The girl is twisting out of the way, barely dodging every hit, and slams them into an ice cage to stop them cold. Every single monster is locked solid in ice. They snapped their heads toward the Torah and demanded to know what he'd said, then he told her to forget it. In his own mind, he smirked like, she already hit level 200, and still, he couldn't figure out why he was stressing over her in the first place. On the 30th floor, he's suddenly alone, no enemies in sight, and that emptiness feels like a trap. He leans in and tells her to be careful. They push ahead, and there it is, the core waiting right in front of them. They finally spot the finish line, grin like they just won the lottery, and they're proud they cleared the dungeon. Then Cade tells him, touch the court. Toru insists he didn't do anything, tells her to push harder, and the girl snaps back that it was only because of him that she managed to get this far. So she turns to him and demands it, and the main character nods, jumps in, and immediately thanks her. Ever since he was a kid, he's been obsessed with one thing, diving into a dungeon at least once, and now he can barely wait to see what insane reward is waiting for him. The main character jolts awake and there's Cade right in front of him, calling his name. He's completely lost, like, what just happened? She insists he look it up. Then it hits him, this dungeon is gone, and they're now trapped at the absolute bottom of that giant hole. The main character's left staring at it, wondering if it somehow vanished after the cleanup, and he can't wrap his head around how that's even possible. The girl pounces with the question, when did he manage to slip on that ring? And he stares at his own hand, stunned that it's suddenly there. But it assumes this is a reward for cleaning. Then Kairi spots a ring on her hand too, and the system's windows suddenly burst onto the screen out of nowhere. Windows cheers as they finish the Luntada dungeon and demands they grab their reward because this is their first run, and it's a two-piece disguise ring that leaves the main character completely stunned. She presses the assessment skill onto the ring, and the thing lights up like it knows. This shows the traits of its owner. Then she points out his levels too. Level 1 erases everything, copies someone else's traits, and even masks part of what's underneath. Toru can't stop thinking how insanely useful this high-level item is going to be. The guy's panicking, wondering how they're getting out of this mess, and the girl blurts that they should just jump over, so Toru lunges, scoops her up, orders her to hang on tight, and she goes beet red, gasping in shock. The main character lunges forward and the girl shrieks, "You can't jump that," but the tourist gets shoved right off the walls. He calmly hauls himself up to the surface, then asks her how she's doing. Kaid just shrugs and says she's fine. Toru blurts that, "Thank goodness it's already midnight, but you've got to get out of here fast like right now," and the girl instantly nods, fully on board. It's dead of night outside. 2 days have passed since they left Lintanta behind. Their path pulled them straight toward the city of Einark. Even though they had no plan yet, Kaid spots something up ahead and slams his finger toward it. They're heading straight for the ruins. Cade and Toru are going to tear them apart, piece by piece, to see what's inside. They were built by a more advanced civilization, and the people who created them came from a higher race. Why they vanished is still a mystery, but somehow the ruins stay standing, perfectly intact, like they're daring anyone to find the truth. They pull in crowds like a magnet. Seriously, Ankaid couldn't even push through them on his journey. Still, he broke past the chaos long enough to taste the local food, and it turned the whole trip into pure fun. By the river, a guy and a girl sit close together. Kade leans in and asks what their group is called, and Toru pauses like he's thinking the name through. Then he blurts out a name that sticks: Group of Travelers. The girl says she doesn't feel like this is just meant for the two of them, and the guy nods, saying it fits them way better because who knows, more people might join later. Kiwi doesn't even protest, he just smiles and agrees. The main character tells everyone, "I'm not rushing a single step, I want to savor the ride and see every inch of the world." Suddenly, he fires off a question to the girl: how did she end up as a servant? She's about to speak, then a sharp sound cuts her off. Her eyes snap forward as she points and asks what's up ahead, and out in the distance, a carriage comes barreling in, only to get swarmed and attacked by robbers. The main character pushes to save them, the girl snaps into obedience, and they sprint, no time to waste, to get there and help. One robber yells from outside, ordering the carriage to stop, then throws out the rule like a threat: "Stay alive." He smirks and says they just want a little fun with them. Right out of nowhere, Toru shows up beside the robber and hurls him right off his horse. One robber barks for everyone to freeze, and the other snaps, "Who the heck are you?" They're hunting him down to kill him, but the main character rips a spell from his lungs with one sharp exhale. Bandits collapse to the ground and can't rise again. Toru figures he went too far. Behind him, archers line up on the main character, totally clueless about who he is, and one of them looses an arrow. But K-Head reflects it back, like it's bouncing straight off his will. She lunges in hard, smashes them down cold, and then glares like, "Don't you ever forget me." He tells them their levels are only around 10, then sneers that they're weaklings. And the girl shoots back, asking if he's actually okay. A girl hops out of the carriage, tells them she doesn't even know who they are, but insists on thanking them from the bottom of her heart. Kid is left completely stunned, and the guy's cheeks instantly turn red. That stranger steps forward, ready to introduce herself. She's Marianta, the daughter of Count Roath, and when they saved her, she lets out a heartfelt thank you. Toru points at himself and blurts, "I'm Toru, an adventurer." Then he swings his hand toward Keita, saying, "This is my mate." The girl lights up, smiling wide, and asks, "So your name is Toru?" She grabs his hands and asks if they'll drive with her to the estate, because she's dying to thank them. Then Moriante shoves their carriage forward, even as Thor fights back. Already settled in this carriage, she blurts out, "So where are we headed?" The guy tells her, "For now, we're going to Enark." Mariana lights up, grinning like she just won, and says the state is there. Plus, if they want, they can even stay the night. The main character shoots it down and blurts that it's too much. Then the girl backs off, No arguments. The guy glances over and spots another girl beside him and she just stays quiet. Toru snaps his head to Kaeda and asks what she's got to say, and she grins. I'll follow you. They both stare out the window. Mariana's beaming because the city of Enark is finally in sight. So that's what Enark is, like no joke, it's wild. They roll up to her girl's estate and she greets them like family, warm and welcoming. The butler beams, saying he's thrilled to have the lady back then. Mariette whips around and demands to know if her father is here. A maid slides up to the heroes and blurts that she was there when it all went down. Then the girl introduces herself as Ulara, Mrs. Marianta's personal maid. She grabs their attention and tells them to follow her so she can show them their rooms. She hauls Thor to his room and tells him to just relax, but the moment he hears her, he's totally thrown off and spots the soft bed, then rushes over to plop down on it. Marietta, who's been hanging around this whole time, lets out a giggle and says it's hilarious to watch him, and the main character's face instantly burns red with embarrassment. The girl insists, "Let me show you the city," but notices he just wants to shut off and relax, so Toru grins and says he planted anyway. Mariente and Kaede stalk the city streets, then scramble into the statue like they own the place, while Toru and Ulara watch from the sidelines, eyes locked on them. The main character demands, "So you're the local count's daughter, Marianti," and then he's stunned to see her alone, fighting to protect herself. Ulara tells him straight up that Mrs. Marianta is idolized by everyone in town and that she'll be more than enough, so the guy's baffled at how proud she sounds, and then a girl chimes in, "You mean you don't know? She used to be an S-ranked adventurer?" Mariafa whips around to her new friend and says that the best sweets are sold right in that shop. Kayet gasps in shock, then looks at the main character and asks if it's okay, and he instantly nods without even thinking. The hero slips her the money and a grin flickers through his thoughts. Maybe they're real friends now. The girl turns and thanks the main character, like it hits her right in the heart. Toru thinks, "I wasn't just helping, I was saving up for her, and if she wants it, I'll let her go." But even so, he can't stop chasing the emptiness that swallowed his heart, and the moment he relives what happened, the pain hits like a knife. But eventually, he'll wipe it all from his mind and finally live in peace so he won't need a servant ever again. They're totally stunned by the giant statue, and Marietta blurts out that it shows her dad when he was still young. The whole town pitched in with her, and when it's finished, the father can't help but get wildly embarrassed. Yet the guy still grins and calls it beautiful. Suddenly, the statue starts to tremble hard. The girl's frozen, clueless, because this doesn't look like any earthquake. The statue shatters without warning, and tentacles burst out like something evil just snapped free. They snatch people left and right, then Marianta's the one they grab, and Toru erupts, screaming her name. The main character bursts out in shock, and rage takes over as she plunges into the abyss. Toru whips his head toward the crowd. One woman is sobbing and screaming about her grandfather. A kid beside him is shouting for his mom, and a man farther out is pleading about his daughter. And then Toru finally realizes more townspeople have been snatched too. Ulara declares she's going to fetch her mistress, and the guy blurts, "Kamid." But the second he says it, she instantly gets exactly what he means. He yells at Ulara to hold up, because they're coming with her only for her to snap back that they're guests and shouldn't meddle in the city's business. He tells her she can't handle the search solo, especially since he insists they're not some pathetic weaklings. She nods, and the three of them dive in together. KED summons instant fall protection, then whips up a blazing ball of light. Inside, they spot catacombs, and the guy's like, "Wait, what is this?" Ulara tells him the whole city's planted on buried ruins, and the guy immediately snaps back, "It's a maze, and that's bad." Kai spots it instantly. Slime is everywhere, splattered across the whole place. Ulara is sure this has to be the monsters doing, the one who snatched the lady, and they decide, right then, that if they stick to this trail, they'll finally track it down and find... The main character declares, "I'll sing from the front." Kaid takes center stage and the Ular covers the rear, and the girls immediately nod along, agreeing with him. But the guy slams the message in their heads, "Move on, now." They're battling monsters, and the guy's stunned by how massive this place really is. Ulara tells him she's been here before, but she's only ever made it to the 4th floor. She won't go deeper, so she can't answer his question. The main character tells Kae to sniff Marianta, and she points ahead, saying it looks like he's coming from right there. Suddenly, a monster lunges in from behind, ready to tear into him, then a weapon drives straight through its head and ends it. Lara asks him if he's okay. He nods, tells her thanks, and then he praises her training and demands to know her job. The girl grins and says, "I'm a murderer." Toru's eyes widen, because he realizes she could have wiped out those robbers all by herself. K-Head shrieks that the stink is creeping in fast and that they're right on the edge of getting there. All three of them crowd up by the gate, staring like something's about to go down. A crowd surges out to greet them, and people shout in disbelief like, "We never thought anyone could push this far." Then one guy snaps, calling people stupid. One of them spots the women and blurts out, "Let me love you," while the other man yells, "Forget everything, just have fun," The main character spots two wicked horns and instantly knows it's demons. And then Kai-Feed steps in, promising he'll clear the way for him. She slams up an ice wall. The demons snap to attention. She split them apart. Now brace yourself, because Tora is about to sing Kaid's praises. The girl demands he leave the demons to themselves, then Ulara begs him to save her mistress. He gets it, digs in, and powers forward, then the demons lunge to kill him. But he roars, "Get out of my way," and drives them back. The hero lunges forward and wipes them out. Then he slams into the gate, breaking it down for good. Then he spots the monster and realizes all the hostages are right there in front of him. The demon claims the food basically showed up on its own, and he was only there because his stomach wouldn't stop screaming. The guy leans in and demands, "So it's all on me, right?" He gives a straight up positive answer, and the main character snaps. "So what are you really trying to accomplish, and why did you attack the city?" The band brushes off his question like it's useless, but he's too kind to drop it. He's begging to share a quick story, and then the demon snaps his fingers. And the tentacles lunge in, clamping around the main character. The demon smirks and reveals the truth. This city is stitched to other places through this very dungeon. And from there, you could wipe out this country in no time. Before they could start a war, they had to grab the one thing they shouldn't. Stealing something precious from their beloved lord. Now Toru finally gets it. That's why he kidnapped Mary Empe, and the man just confirms Toru's suspicions. He swears that if he still has the girl, he can keep everything under control while Toru's rage boils over. The demon bursts into a laugh and claims that his own face is pure malice. Like a promise to kill, he can't even pin down how he knows. But one thing's clear, he's coming for him and he's going to do it. The city's defender, then the main character, breaks free from the tentacles in a heartbeat, while the demon just stares, utterly clueless about what's happening. The guy rushes right up to him, and the man panics, then lunges to strike back. It's not going his way. He snaps that if anyone comes any closer, he'll grind him to dust. The main character urges him to go for it, and the demon laughs, calls him hilarious, then coldly orders him to die. He blasts the battlefield with a deadly chain explosion, and he keeps laughing until he spots the absolutely whole main character right in front of him. He leans in and asks, "So are you actually happy with how it turned out?" And he fires back that nobody can ever hurt him. Then the demon snaps, calling him a monster. And once again, he goes for it. He tries to blow the whole place up with a chain explosion. But the main character just keeps charging forward, unscathed, while the men lose their minds and panic because they can't figure out what's happening. He stares at the impossible and decides, "Guess I'm the hero." Toru swings his sword and lands a crushing strike. He slashes him clean in two and tears the monster from behind in the same strike. Then the main character snaps back with a bitter shake of his head. He's no hero, just an ordinary warrior. Mariantha starts to stir awake, but Ulara immediately warns her she can't move a muscle too suddenly right now. The girl blurts, "What's happening?" But the memories don't rush back yet. She stares at the hole in the ground and suddenly remembers it. Something grabbed her and dragged her under. Everyone around is bursting with relief. Mary Anthus has finally woken up, and people are shouting praise to the gods. The girls snap around and spot Toru with Kaid, and the main girl grins because waking her up worked, while Kid lights up just as hard to see her again. The girl demands answers, and the guy snaps back that the demons chose the underground ruins beneath the city to launch their attack. The main character says, "Yeah, we got through it. At least it ended well, but some people still paid the price." Mariah blurts out what she just realized. Who saved everyone? And immediately pins it on her father, but Ulara shoots back that she, Mr. Toru, and Kade were the ones who saved them all. The girl gasps at all of this. Ulara steps in and tells her that without them, she never could have saved the lady. Then she offers her thanks. The guy blushes hard and promises he'd never abandon anyone who risked helping him when he was in trouble. Someone blurts out, "Did you save our mistress?" And someone else fires back, "You beat the demons." The whole crowd explodes and starts offering them thanks right there. Many people throw their thanks at them, but the main character just freezes awkwardness crawling all over him. Out of nowhere, Marietta lunges in and hugs him, totally blindsiding him and sending embarrassment through his whole body. Then she turns around and thanks him for saving everyone. The main character agrees, but a furious Kaid snaps at Mariette, demanding to know what she thinks she's allowed to do. She squirms and blurts out a shy apology, and the main character just sits there thinking, they're still hiding more than we can see. At the council state, Dad and his daughter cling to each other in a tight embrace, while Kade and Toru watch from the sidelines, eyes locked on the moment. The girl gushes over him, saying he already took down one of the Demon Lord's generals. Then he snaps back and asks again, confused as if he still can't quite wrap his head around it. Kate points out that even if he's the weakest, he's still the Demon Lord's general. Then the main character starts spiraling, thinking about just how terrifying the Demon Lord himself really is. The Lord and his daughter stare straight at Kehed and Tora, eyes locked tight. The man claims he saved her daughter the very same way as last time and demands she thank him. She's blushing like crazy and she snaps, "As long as you're safe, I'm good, everything's fine." The girl warns that Thor better be properly thanked or her wrath will flare, but the Lord refuses to settle for just one and snaps back, "Who do you think I am?" He can't even guess what Thor would want or need, and he flat out admits it. Then Ulara leans in and asks, "Can I say my piece?" as she whispers something straight into his ear. The Lord is stunned, and the Torah gets sold off the back of one shocking question. "I killed the demon general." Even then, the main character can't quite bring himself to believe it. The man fires off a wild claim that everything just got flipped upside down, then asks if Toru was headed for the capital before he showed up here, and the other guy answers, "Yeah." Lord says it's awesome, swears he'll send the letter for sure, while the guy still has no clue what he's even talking about. And Solara leans in to whisper something into Mariantes' ear. Then her smile creeps in and the Lord tells him he can stay with them as long as he wants, even offering to have his daughter give them another tour. The guy nods, but you can tell he's still unsure. In the evening, they dig into dinner and Kaid can't stop smiling as he declares that every single dish tastes absolutely incredible. She catches herself looking filthy again, then quickly helps herself dry off. She blushes hard and thanks him, and as he stares, he realizes she looks all grown up on the outside, yet inside, she's still a kid. "So you want to make her happy?" The girl across from him leans in and asks what he's doing tomorrow, and he grins. "I'm going to explore that dungeon." Marianta presses him for the reason, and he grins. He's an adventurer, and he just loves it. At least that's what he thought, because as far as he knew, nobody else had ever gone there. So yeah, there could be untold riches hidden there, and the more he thinks about it, the more he's desperate to go, but the girl warns him, "Don't even ask about it." And then he drops the words he'll go with them. Ulara opens her mouth to speak, but she swings into protection mode. Karid snaps that she's not buying it and demands to know what happens if she goes through it again. Then the guy leans in and tells her, "I know all about it." But she can't shake the thought. This dungeon isn't her father's? Not really. Mariette tells Kaida she doesn't want to mess with her at all. She just wants to be her friend. Kaida blushes hard, stunned by the kindness. She's telling you, straight up, if that's the plan, then you're taking her with you. She swears that this time Ulara will guard her while he moves on ahead, and if danger hits, they'll bolt out immediately. The girls nod and agree, no questions asked. Kayad and Toru are posted at the exit, waiting for the rest to show up, and when the girl finally speaks, she immediately blurts out an apology for keeping them waiting. And he says, "They're ready, Mariana. Get up there and put on your armor." The main character asks, "Why are you dressed like that?" And she shoots back, "I told my father about it yesterday and he gave it to me." Toru shoots her a quick apology and warns that they'll drain her and she'll end up needing to be carried, so the girl nods and says she'll go change into a fresh outfit right away. After a bit, Marianta steps out dressed to steal the spotlight, and she asks if this look is better. Then he nods and says yes. Already inside the dungeon, the girl declares that the first 2 floors are done and they're going deeper, but then she drops a warning. They need to know something first. She leans in and listens like her life depends on it. Marianta warns that this one spot is packed with brutally strong monsters, so she outright tells her, "Don't go exploring there." The main character catches himself thinking, "If I really want to finish this thing, I'm still going to have to go there." He says he'll check it out on his own, but for Mary Anthus' safety, they're staying right here. The girl insists she can be just as deadly in battle, but the main character shuts her down with his father's words. Mar Iant, the agrees. They stride forward, and the girl fires a question, what do they call their group? The guy says they're calling their group the Traveling Group, and the girl giggles, saying it totally fits him. Then he presses, "So it's true, right?" Creed warns him, "Monsters are up ahead," and he fires back, "Can you rate them?" So she taps her assessment skill and sizes them up. He blurts out that monsters look like mushrooms and there are tons of them, and he totally gets what she's saying, then pushes her to keep moving. They spot the overgrown passage and it all clicks into place. Toru feels a mouse scuttle under his feet. He watches her grab those mushrooms and then everything goes deadly. So Kaid snaps to it. They're poisonous too. Marianne begs him to stop and not go any farther, but the guy snaps at them to wait and swears he'll handle it alone. Kaid's terrified for him. Yet Toru just pats her head and says his level is higher than theirs, and the medicine's in his hands too. But the girl grabs his attention and begs him to come back fast. Mary grabs his hand and pleads, "Promise you'll be careful." The guy tells her, "I'll be right back," and she blurts out, "Good luck." Then he disappears inside. The mushrooms are swarming him, and they don't plan to let him breathe. He flashes back to Koyad and Mariante, then gratefully tells them, "Thank you," and instantly kicks off a brawl by picking on the mushrooms. Ulara leaned in and asked what kind of desperate screams those were, and Karid snapped, "I don't know." Marianta then stepped in, backing the Torah. He realizes everything's fine because their poison can't touch him, and that's when he figures the Draconians aren't just dangerous, they're seriously strong. Toru strides right into the room, but as soon as he's inside, he stops cold because none of it makes sense. He kicks off his investigation of the room, and the guy laughs, calling it funny. He turns back, and Cade fires off, "Did you find anything?" He breaks into a laugh, claiming he spotted a potion that looks exactly like a healing one, and even a chest nearby, so Marianta lights up, thrilled by all he's found, and asks if Thor likes it. Carried's fury flares, he snaps that the girl is too close to Thor, so she yanks her back and insists the master is only hers, and then the main character shoots back with a quick, sincere apology. Behind him, Ulara warns him, no mistakes, no shortcuts, and yeah, he's scared of her. On the second floor, they cut off your chance to explore because every corner up there is still unexplored. He asks what used to stand here, and she tells him that an underground fortress once sat in this very spot, only nobody knows who they were battling. He's like, if this underground fortress already looks like a dungeon, then what the heck is a real one? And then his mind snaps back to his sudden disappearance. Out of nowhere, he tells Marianti to teach her how to fight, then snaps that it's not what they agreed on, while Marianti insists she understands, but she can only trust Ulara. Ended bothers her. She's terrified of her own weakness, so Toru tries to shut her down, but she won't back off. Katie tells her that sure, he's the master, but she's the one who'll teach her how to properly treat wounds. Marianta beams, and Ulara rushes in to stop her until Marianta tells her, I get it, I'm just not backing down, because I want to be useful in the future. And Ulara can't help but see the fire in her eyes and understand her fully. She agrees to help her, and Marianta practically beams as she thanks her. Then the main character jumps in, says this is awesome, and pushes for more. And right then, another secret skill snaps awake. Toru's face lights up as system windows slam into view and the screen declares that he finally landed a profession. Then the message hits hard. The skill for stacking professions has maxed out and a brand new higher limit has just been raised. In the middle of the city, everyone spins around, totally baffled by what they just witnessed. Then one random passerby finally blurts, wait, what happened? The man blurts out, I just saw a lightning bolt. And she goes, you really thought the sky was perfectly clear, huh? The main character surges with unstoppable power. He can't even wrap his head around why this is happening right now. Toru scans the system's skills and sees they've leveled up, then realizes new professions just unlocked for him. When the chaos finally fades, he leans in and demands, so it's over, right? Mariant stared at it and demanded to know what it even was. Then Ulara leaned in and asked if it was really his power or something totally different. The hero steps up and throws out an apology. He asks if, since everything's changed now, he can watch them. She nods and tells him they've still got plenty of time. He taps open his status and boom, new professions slam onto the screen. Warrior, Dragon Knight, Master Tamer, Master Imitator, and even Great Thief. He says it looks like he's picked up a whole new job, but the guy's still completely lost, so the girl makes him look, and the moment he does, she jolts in shock. She gushes that it's an incredible profession, swearing every one of them is strong and top ranked. Then he blurts, wait, are you kidding? Khalid snaps that she's dead serious, and if you compare it to his old job, the gap is massive. A warrior's strength jumps by E, their endurance jumps by E. 2. Honestly, that's not a bad career at all. But once his rank finally climbs, he realizes his profession isn't stuck in the old version. He levels up into the real deal, the Dragon Knight on a mount, the Legendary Thief, and the Master Tamer, all stacked with far better skills. The guy presses her about the copycat and she snaps back. I don't know, he's the only one who ever shows up like a shadow, and I can't even tell how he's supposed to help me. The main character instantly clocks that the copycat's vibe is dangerous as hell. Then, boom, he spots something new. A third-level dungeon domain has appeared below, and he's sure he never saw that line before. Marianta rushes up and asks if he's okay. He nods back, smiling, like, I'm fine, and either way, I already got what you were trying to say. The main character snaps, don't you go past this if I tell you to leave. You leave. The girls nod and say they understand. Marianta also lets them in. She says they can join the group. She demands the answer again, and the girl lights up saying yes, she wants them to join their group at least while they're in the city. He shrugs it off, saying none of this is really necessary, and Cade locks in his guess. He figures they're here to thank him and prove they trust him. Toru nods and declares that Marianta and Ulara are officially in the band today. No turning back now. They're moving on. A monstrous hall barrels past, and the whole scene feels like it's about to explode. One of them lunges at Mary Anthe. She shrieks at the top of her lungs. She steps in front of the danger, slicing the monsters clean in half, and he yells at her to keep her eyes open during the fight. She nods and says she gets it. Koyate snaps ice spikes into existence, skewering his enemies on the spot. Then Ulara rockets upward. Then he snaps his arm around one of the monsters and wrings its neck. Marianta snaps that there are way too many of them, and she has no clue what they're planning next because the girl is freaking out. Still, the main character shot his hand onto her shoulder, urged her to breathe and stay calm, and told her right now she had nothing to fear from these monsters. But then he clocks the insane number of them, and if she stays calm, she'll size up the situation and pick them off one by one. One of the monsters lunges at him, and he snaps into action, grabbing the strike right out of the air with his hand. He clamps it tight, then hurls it straight through the deflection. The guy leans in and asks if she can do the same, and the girl nods with a confident yes. Those curried urges reassure her not to panic. We've got you. Trust us. Ulara snaps back, refusing to let anyone relax. The girls nod, saying they got it. Then the guy pushes them forward, like the only direction that matters is straight ahead. One of the monsters lunges at Mariana, but she slips past it and carves him up with a flurry of brutal strikes. Now he's crashing down fast. The girl erupts in happy screams that she pulled it off and slaughtered that huge monster all on her own, and Ulara hammers praise into the moment. Then the guy chips in too, calling out how insanely well she did. The girl realizes she leveled up, now she's at 36, and Lara clocks the change too. At the start, she was already on her 50th level, and somehow she's jumped into the 70s. That's weird, she thinks, totally thrown off. Mariante shouts that they need to move on. Ulara fires back that she's just as energetic as ever, and Toru tells you, take your time. He leans in and asks Kaid what's wrong, and she snaps back that she just suddenly remembered something about herself earlier. The guy snaps that she was way worse than them, then the girl's face floods with blushes as tears well up in her eyes. She says it's time to hit the surface no matter what, and Toru can't argue she's right. The main character whips around to Marianti and blurts that they're thinking about leaving, but Marianti shuts that down fast, insisting they stay a bit longer so they can hit the unexplored areas. He frets to himself, at this pace, we're gonna leave way too late. The guy nods and pushes them to move on, and Mary Anthe lights up with relief. They push forward, then slam into a dead end. He blurts out that this feels like the end. Then the girl snaps, furious. The main character watches it all and thinks, this doesn't look right. Next thing you know, he slams his fist into the wall. Carrie whips around, totally lost, staring at him like, what are you doing? The knocking suddenly morphs into something else. He spots a weak seam in the wall and, with a single finger, punches a hole straight through it. The girls gasp and bombard him with, how did you do that? Then the main character sketches a circle and shoves it straight through to make it enter. There's a secret room tucked away inside the walls. He spots a sword lying on the floor and it looks brand new, like it doesn't belong in a place this old. Then he can't help but wonder what kind of metal it's made from. The guy raves that this tech is pure genius. Then out of nowhere, someone spots Cade and yells for him to come over to her. They spot 2 eggs and the guy blurts, what the heck are these? Kaisi spots them and jumps to the conclusion they're eggs, while the main character figures this place is totally abandoned, no way he can picture anyone living here. Kairi begs him to hand it over, convinced it's a summonable being. Meanwhile, he has zero clue what she's talking about. So she leans in and tells him the truth. These aren't real beasts at all, but artificial creations forged by some ancient race, built for everyday work and support, and yes, they could jump into combat too. Because they're artificial, she's convinced there's still life waiting inside them, just pour in mana, and the creature will show up. The main character blurts that it sounds insanely fun and that he's got to try it. Then Karid chimes in that she's curious too. He pours in mana, but at first nothing happens, then he insists, I'm pouring it right now, I know it. The girl tells him to hold on for a second and points out what he's missing. He needs more mana. In this case, the Torah insists we have to grow the number of people. The entire room is packed with his power. Ulara blurts, where does all this mana come from? And her confusion crashes down hard because Kafred stays stone calm and tells her, there's barely any left. The main character is stunned. Everything's already set and he believes the contract demands a blood seal. He slashes his finger and the egg drinks in the blood. Something is finally hatching out of him and Kaid and Toru are absolutely stunned. The main character asks, wait, is this a summoned creature? And there it is right in front of them, a flying eye. They stare, completely lost, like, so what kind of soft, fluffy creature is that? This summoned entity is about to show up right in front of you. The main character admits he has no clue who that is, and the girl instantly giggles, calling him cute. She offers to wash him herself, then snaps off spells to make it happen right. As a magic circle blossoms overhead and dumps a stream of water on the creature, Toro nods and admits he's cute, but he can't help wondering what this thing is actually good for. The summoned monster snaps at him, then grabs Ka like, see, I'm useful, and the girl blurts in shock. He swears he talked him into it and the girl just grins, thinking he's soft in the cutest way. The main character pitches it as a ride, and right on cue, Cade blurts out, give him a name. Toru blurts out, call me a panda, and the girl immediately claps back. Perfect. What an awesome name. Marianta snaps, I'm done, and demands to know who's there. Then Kairid grins, Panta, I'm your comrade now, and Ulara can't stop laughing at the name. That panda squeaks out something adorably cute. Marianta can't help but gush over him, and from way off, our main character watches them and instantly assumes they're just having the time of their lives. He grabs the second egg, stares at it like it's a clue, and starts wondering what he should watch next while the rest is still out there. Night has already fallen, and they stare at what they hauled out of the dungeon, so the hero grins and announces they scored the best recovery potions. Every kind of medicine to boost the body, and more. Then he turns to the girl, hands her a small vial and asks what she thinks as they begin to estimate the haul. She claims it's an elixir and the Count and Toru can't believe it. The man insists it's an ultra rare potion, something he's never even seen, and says it costs a fortune. The Count swears that if they're in the capital, someone will buy it for sure, but they're told, plain and simple, to throw it into an auction first. He remembers this back in the royal capital. The nobles and rich folks show up for the auction and you can practically find anything under the sun there. He tells himself he'll swing by there later and the Count cuts in, saying that this money is for the fines he's racked up. Toru's jaw drops at the sheer number and he blurts, "Wait, how many are there?" The man smirks and answers, 500 million right here. This is the first time the Tora has ever seen money like this. So much of it, he fires off a call to Pantu, and Pantu comes rushing in. Suddenly, Marianti barges into the room, half naked and covered in foam, shrieking that they're not done washing. Then she spots the main character and instantly whips herself out of view. Kairi whips Tora's gaze away so he won't even look in that direction. She shoots a quiet "thank you" straight from the heart, and the Lord can't help but look embarrassed. The girl lets out a piercing scream and her father just assumes she's only trying to get some sleep tonight. The next morning, the main character cracked their knuckles and stretched like it was brand new, saying, "Another day. It's only been a few days since they showed up here." They tore through that dungeon for hours, hunting every monster they could find and wiping them out one by one. Marianta's hit level 100 and Ulara's sitting at level 80. Now they're dead, even with the heroes in raw power, and just like that, he kept his word. The guy strolls right out of the room. Kaid slides up to him and says, "Good morning," and he shoots back a warm greeting as they step forward together. They spot girls going all out in street training, throwing themselves at every move. Marianta lights up with a bright "good morning," then congratulates Uglar as his awakening finally comes online. The main character realizes he's no longer just an extension of Marianti's body, and when he says it, Marianti nods, surprised that she never knew how to make it happen before. The girl snaps, asking if he's about to ditch them. He insists he can stay longer, but then he can't even finish the sentence. Toru can't shake the feeling that part of his heart is still missing, so he knows he has no choice but to leave. That guy claims he got a letter from the Count, so he's heading straight for the auction. Marianta cheers and even envies Kaeda, says it's a win. She doesn't get what he's saying at all. Then the girl insists she can travel with him, and if she ever gets the chance, she's dying to see the world too. Marianta grins like she's having the time of her life, and the main character can't help staring at the cheerful girl. He assumes she's some noble daughter destined for marriage sooner or later, like her heart doesn't even get a say, and he treats her like a bird trapped in a cage. Then the main character steps in and thanks them for everything. The Count tells him, "You'd better thank him, he's the one who saved your daughter." Mariana goes silent. Toru whips around to her and tells her, "We'll meet up soon." Then the guy pushes back, urging her to quit sinking into sadness. The girl says that the moment she pictures him leaving, tears fight to break free. Then boom, Kanid suddenly wraps his arms around Mariante. She swears that the master and she will never ever forget her. Mary Anthe leans in and demands, "Will you really come back to me again?" And Kyreed fires back, promising he will. Then the girl breaks down, tears streaming as she admits she's honestly jealous of Mary Anthe. The guys start heading out and he grabs the girl's shoulders, urging her to move on, so she listens and follows right behind. Lontata City Second has no clue what just happened or where that dungeon even is, and now they're standing right beside the hole. One of the adventurers blurts out, "Are you new?" and says, "The dungeon's been missing for ages." The heroes snap back with, "Wait, didn't you say it vanished about a month ago? So that means someone had slipped through it right before him." He's freaking out because he was supposed to debut as a hero in this dungeon and now he feels like he wasted his shot. So Mira asks if he's okay and the guy shoots her a look that says he can't stand how she looks. He lunges at her, yelling at her to back off as he freaks out. Then the girls shout at him to stop. They demand how she dares to lay hands on him. Then she gasps, "I'm hurting. I'm in pain." The other girls rush in to stop him, begging him to halt because if he doesn't, Swara will die. He leaves her standing there, and Lisa rushes up to ask the girl if she's okay. She insists she's fine, then Neely snaps at him, telling him, "You don't get to hurt your friends." People nearby are whispering that this guy terrifies them, and someone from the crowd blurts, "Call the guards." Saken can't shake the feeling this is bad news. Their actions are only making everything worse for their reputation, and the girls have finally lost the brainwashing's hold. He gets it. He needs to watch them way closer because that guy is pulling the demonic eye out again, and the girls get sucked deep into a hypnotic trance. He barks out orders to follow, and all four obey. Then, after a while, they finally drop down and sit. Lisa tells him the kingdom of our man would be perfect for his plans, then pushes him to go right back to where it all began and try everything from scratch. The guy presses for answers and she snaps back that their entire scheme is one thing, getting the holy sword. But he blew it. And she's dead set on this. She won't risk it. Not until they've got a real plan. Rage boils in his veins because she's right. But he knows if they go along with this, he'll have to bow to the kingdom until the real reason for the failure is uncovered. and he refuses to drop that low. Sicken remembers there are still holy swords out there, and if they hit our minds, they'll zero in and find another one. But Nay swears there's a city up ahead and hidden dungeons nobody's cracked yet, and she urges you to make your debut there. The guy nods and goes, "If we pull this off, we'll finally grab everyone's attention." The girls grin and say, "Got it, we understand." The guy's eyes go wide when the Count drops his bombshell. He tells them the ruins are already completely mapped out, so there's nothing left to do here. Second demands to know who did it, and he snaps back that it was a band of travelers, and they didn't just pull it off, they even wiped out the demon army's general. Suddenly, Mariette bursts into the room and her eyes widen when she realizes he's got guests. Second stares at the girl in awe, then blurts out that she's absolutely incredible. He's got one mission: turn her into his own. He whips around to her and unleashes the demonic eye of seduction. Then his eyes start burning like crazy, he yanks at them in panic, and he's left totally baffled, not knowing what just happened. But the system snaps the truth into his face. The effect won't work on anyone whose level is higher than the skill users. He's stunned, there's no way, right? He can't even accept that her level is higher than the hero's. Mary grabs his sword and presses it to his throat, demanding to know what he was planning to do with it. Seekin's shocked she even managed to close the distance that fast, and the Count swears he's chosen by God, then admits God also rewards the people who grind and refuse to quit. Second argues that the gods actually dote on everyday adventurers more than legendary heroes, and the Count nods along, saying the gods can even twist your mind into believing it, right down to making your heart race. He tells him the conversation's over, throws him out of there, and warns that if he doesn't leave, he'll order them to be killed. Sane's furious, he can't wrap his head around it. Everything he's trying keeps falling apart, and yet he's still a hero. The girls tell him to let them go back to their country, but the guy goes off on them screaming about the holy sword like it's the end of everything. He tells them to grab the S sword, his call, and just like that, Cell barks in order to follow him, and the girls obey without a second thought. He'd claim the holy sword first, then transform into the perfect version of himself, steering everything with total control because he can't, under any circumstances, lose. A girl and a young man stood on a narrow path, staring up like they already knew what was coming. Then she summoned those monsters, and icy rain smashed down on them, forcing them to scramble and dodge the assault. The young man thrusts his hand forward, and then he summons a mysterious force Roscoe. A razor-sharp tip shoots out from the young man's hand and rockets straight ahead. Roscoe rockets forward and slashes at the flying monsters. Each one gets skewered by a razor-sharp tip, and their screams of pain rip through the air. The creature snaps open midair and swerves its flight, then shoots right back to the young man, who breaks into praise like he just witnessed something legendary. Massive, forgotten castle ruins loom high in the mountains, surrounded by a tangle of twisting trees, while the sky above churns with heavy clouds. The young man and the girl finally set up their little camp, drop their guards, and rest. Then the girl blurts out, "I didn't think there would be another summoned beast in the second egg." The young man says Rosuke looks like he could fight, and the girl fires back that Rosuke can fly high, so he's basically a super useful animal. The girl inches closer to the creature, eyes locked on it as she asks straight up if it's ready to show her what it's capable of. The young man stared at the girl, and the guy nearly lost it. She could actually understand what that creature was saying, but the ear-wearing girl just shook her head and said she didn't even know how to explain it. A guy and a girl stare at their creatures, totally hooked because they can actually talk to each other, and the guy leans in, saying, "Yeah, they understand each other." Suddenly, both creatures launch straight up and vanish into the sky, and the guy and the girl are left staring, shocked, with zero clue what just happened. The girl's creature is back, and the guy jumps in with what he thinks like both creatures must have teamed up to race for her, while she pulls out the truth. The antler can soar up to 10 meters high. The young man snaps his head up, slams his hand to his face, and then the guy barks at Rosuke to come back. Right now. The guy grips his own fate in his hands while the young man has no idea how far Rosuke can fly. He's still the kind of ace you can use as a guide. A sharp clank rings out from the guy's heavy armor, and the young man whips his head toward the girl. "I'm starving." Then he grins and offers to cook her something. He stays planted, one arm stretched out like a dare, and orders Rosuke to come back. The girl calls the young man master, and when the guy answers, the girl with the ears begs for his permission to cook tonight. The young man stares at her in shock and blurts out, "Can you..." She reaches one hand out, shakes her head, "No, but Ulara taught me something." After a beat, the girl bursts back out in a brand new apron, grinning, and tells the owner she just bought it, then asks what they think. That girl skips straight to the cauldron, grinning and telling everyone, "I got this when me and Marianne went shopping." A young man narrowed his eyes, then stared hard at a table packed with weird, unfamiliar products, because if the girl's cooking didn't turn out edible, the main character was about to be seriously shocked. A pot swings over the fire, and the liquid inside is already bubbling hard when the girl with the ear tufts steps up, knife in one hand, a frog in the other. The main character's leaning in from the side, watching the cooking like it's a mystery he can't crack. He has zero idea what the girl is doing. With big ears, she looms over a steaming pot, gripping a mandrake in her hands like it holds the key. The young man stares ahead, sweat pouring down his face, while the main character mutters that the girl talks to herself way too much, his hands clenching her creature like a lifeline. The main character stares at the pot's almost ready purple liquid and can't wrap his head around how anyone could actually eat something that looks that wrong. The girl with the ears shoves a steaming plate into the guy's hands, calling him the owner, and the main character gives her an awkward smile, then still manages to thank her. The main character thanks him, then snaps the spoon into his mouth and shuts his eyes only for the young man's eyes to fly wide open. The main character froze, staring as the pianist's hands offered him the treat, and when he tasted it, he blurted that it was insanely delicious. The ear girl grinned, lunged in, and wrapped her arms around the young man's waist while he warned her to be gentle, because he couldn't help it. He was hungry. The main character keeps shoveling food while the girl stays planted, clinging to the guy like nothing else matters. Then she can't stop thinking about the owner's smell. The main character locks onto the wagging tail like it's saying everything. He keeps glancing down like he's expecting the girl to be thrilled. And then the main character sets the leftover food and a spoon on a bench before sliding his hand right onto the girl's tail. That girl with the ears snaps her head up, shock hits, and she screams, utterly baffled by what that guy just did, and the young man just says, "The tail is soft." The girl jerks back just a little, but she keeps her seat and stares at the young man with a bashful, flustered face. And the main character lights up, grinning at her as he calls out, "Kai." The main character locks eyes with Kade, and when she rises just a little, she closes the distance toward him. Toru stares ahead, completely stunned. Lisa snarls that Thor is poor, and it's all because she betrayed him, so Thor storms out of Sion and finds comfort with a servant, while the young man just freezes in place, utterly stunned. The girl keeps whispering right into Thor's ear that Kahid can do whatever that guy wants. Just ask her. Toru yanks away from Keed and stammers that he wants more, and Keed just keeps a hand resting on the guy's lap, then shoots back. "So you really mean it?" K8 races up by the pot and the campfire and says, "I can cook more, just tell me how." Thorn only has to explain it, and Toru stays put, throwing out a simple thanks. Toru exhales in relief, realizing he was seconds from giving in to his instincts because he knows the girl's already an adult, so she'll be okay. Kade beams with joy, but Toru has zero plans to treat Kade like the next shoulder to lean on. Ked's ears twitched like a signal. The girl perked up too. Ked jolted to his feet, stared straight ahead, and snapped, "Toru," calling him master. Toru shot up as well, and both of them locked eyes on whatever was coming, scanning the horizon with total focus. Kaed and Toru stare up at the sky. Monsters swarm through the clouds. Flapping straight toward them, Toru leans in and says they're coming because Kade's cooking just filled the air with food's mouth-watering smell. Kaiseed claims these monsters dwarf the wyverns we saw before, and Toru snaps back that he can't wait to test what Rosuke is truly capable of. Toru thrusts his finger forward, grins at Rosuke, and dares him to take their lives. Rosuke darts in and drives right through every single wyvern. Each one drops to the ground, lifeless. In an instant, Toru watches Rosuke streak past and can only say it, he's insanely strong. Kade says it might be Toru's blood or the fact that the Tamers started a whole new job. Then Toru snaps back that he completely forgot about that new profession. After a while, Toru and Kaya set off on their journey, two young souls walking right through a loud, bustling settlement. The girl tucks one hand behind her head and asks, "So this is the big capital, huh?" Then the main character leans in and says, "Armin's kingdom is huge. There's a ton to discover right here." Toru even says the shops are stocked to the brim, and the young man can't ignore it. Some of the most famous adventurers are hanging around here too. Karid grins and says she wants to hit as many places as she can, and the young man nods, but before they run off, they have to meet up and hand the letter to the Count. The girl fires. "So who are we going after anyway?" Thor smirks and says the Count's name, Jonathan Rockbell. The young man grins at Kai Reed and blurts that Count Jonathan Rockbell is all about the shipping trade and he's a legend in the capital. Then a scream tears through the distance and an explosion rips the air open. Someone yells for them to stop the cart, and a furious beast with the cart charges ahead. Then the nearby crowd yanks out of the way. Toru and Kei stare forward, hooked by what they're seeing. Then a heated argument erupts, and someone insists this animal must be some kind of dragon subspecies, but nobody can guess what pushed him into that kind of rage. Everyone bolts in terror from the enraged monster. Then one guy grabs the boy and girl and screams, "Run!" Toru whips around, thanks him, and promises they'll give it up, while Kade leans in and asks, "Toru, do you want me to stop it?" Toru pushes to his feet and stares forward. Then, out of nowhere, a man bursts in from behind and yells for everyone to get out of the way. Two men loom in front of Toru and Kayaede. One with long hair promises he'll stop the animal, while the second, rocking a receding hairline, barks that Toru and Kayaede better not get in the way. A bunch of people have already halted, craning their necks toward what's next because right there, they spot the two say-all brothers, the dragon hunters. The guy with the thinning hair snaps that he's never seen someone hide behind a woman, let alone a servant, and the second one spits back that he threw away his life out of shame, then spent the rest of it living like this. K8 watches ahead, grinning as she holds the fans, then she flashes the idea of freezing them. Toru just smirks and tells her it's not time for that, not yet, or... Sale sees the brothers standing there and an animal comes charging straight at them. One of the long-haired brothers snaps into action, grabs the animal by its horns, and breathes like he's fighting for every second. On the second day of the sale, Brothers somehow comes to rescue. The men grab the animal by its horns and wrench it to a stop. Suddenly, the animal thrashes its head side to side, and the Sale brothers bolt out of there, screaming as they fly away. Everyone's staring up, trying to figure out where one of the brothers slammed into a tree because nobody has any clue what's happening. Two people watching from the side spot the animal, and the little boy erupts into loud cries while the girl stares ahead, terrified. Gripping his shoulders, the enraged creature charges straight for them, and the boy throws himself down on the ground, hugging her as they cling to each other. Toru stares at Kayade and snaps that the animal's got him. She grins like she totally gets it. Next thing he knows, the main character is right in the animal's path, so Toru thrusts one hand forward and locks his eyes on what's coming. Dust blasted up behind Toru, and the beast halted right beside him like it chose him. The guy froze there with his arms stretched out, and then everyone around him gaped and stared, completely stunned. A middle-aged man sat in the carriage when it lurched to a sudden stop, and he sprang up like he'd been yanked by a wire. Then he stumbled back down, rubbing his head, and demanded, "What just happened?" Toru stands face to face with the animal, and once it stops threatening him, the guy calmly strokes its horns, praising it like, "Good boy." Then the man who tumbled off the carriage steps in and thanks Toru for the rescue, only for Toru to shrug it off and say he has nothing to be thanked for. Toru whips around, asks the man if he knows Jonathan Rockbell, and the guy stares back in pure shock. A middle-aged man sits like a king on the couch and, with zero hesitation, introduces himself as Jonathan Rockbell, the head of this company, claiming that Toru and Cade just delivered a letter from the Count. Toru thrusts his open hand forward, revealing a letter from the Count, and Jonathan tears into it, reading every word like it might explode. Jonathan whips around and spots a guy raising a mug of tea, then shoots, "Are you Toru?" And before the moment even settles, Jonathan lays it out. Thor came through big time. Toru still raises the mug to his lips and takes a sip, acting calm as he says he only did what had to be done. Jonathan snaps his eyes shut and rubs his face, then admits he's got interest in Tora. Jonathan promises the council he'll comply, but he has no clue what kind of demand is lurking in that letter. Jonathan flashes a grin and stares straight ahead, but he can't say a word yet about what the Count demanded. Jonathan leaps up from the couch and tells Toru and Kei to meet him tomorrow night, because even a man needs time to think. No jokes. Toru stares straight ahead and asks if he'll finally understand the real meaning of that request once he's there tomorrow. Jonathan spins around and swears the man will uncover every last detail, no secrets left behind. Then he adds, straight up, that all the guy has to do is find some normal clothes and pray he doesn't stumble into trouble. Thor looks at himself and feels weird in these clothes. Then Kaetet slips in beside him, stunning in a beautiful dress, smiling sweetly as she tells him that this suit fits the young man perfectly. A carriage rolls up to the young man and the girl, and both of them snap their attention toward it, then creep closer while Jonathan immediately whips around to Thor and Kaede, who are already right there. Jonathan shoots a look down and then he hears it. Someone spots the man and yells his name. Jonathan grins and says he's happy the guy and the girl finally made it. Then he whips around and orders Toru and Kaai to follow them. Jonathan, Toru, and Kaede huddle inside the carriage, and Jonathan stares straight ahead with a grim face, warning them that nobody is allowed to say a word about where they're going right now. The main character asks, "Is this a secret spot?" And the man sneers back, "No. This place isn't for common people." Jonathan whispers that it'll be a secret audience just between us. After a while, the carriage finally tore up to the massive castle, and then a voice boomed from the shadows, ordering everyone to come inside. A carriage pulled by horses idles before a towering gate, and a man strides out, pointing like he's directing a battlefield. Then a second man walks up to a door, swings it open, and smiles as he tells the young man and the girl to wait right here for him. Kayade and Toru are sprawled on a couch in this huge room, and the moment a voice starts talking, Toru whips around because it says it never even crossed his mind he'd end up meeting someone this influential. A bearded man rises and stares straight ahead. Then the moment he's in view, our guy recognizes King Armand instantly draped in gorgeous clothes. The king stands tall, flanked by two brute strong men who hold their ground behind him. But the king snaps, "This isn't an official audience, don't even bring it up." Then he turns right around and thanks you on the spot for understanding. The man who brought Toru and Ked into the room bowed his head and said he understood. And then the king stared ahead, making it clear he'd called everyone here for one reason. He needed to ask a favor. Toru keeps pressing the king. What favor is this really? The king just stares into the distance and snaps that the capital is in danger, so Toru shoots back. Then we'd better get to business right now. The king declares that Toru has to wipe out the ant queen, and Toru's jaw drops in shock because he points out that it was that queen who slaughtered several thousand troops, and then the king demands that Toru and the queen's target team up to finish her off. Kaed demands to know why the troops don't usually show up. King Armand drops his head and leans hard on his staff, saying the army is in a deplorable state right now. Toru fires back, asking if the king is actually serious because the king just snaps that the ants showed up out of nowhere near the lying villages and wrecked the trees in just a few hours. The king lunged to wipe them out right away, but it didn't work. Now, their message is sprinting toward the capital. The king drops the bombshell of this brutal, heartbreaking situation, then leans in and asks the young man, "Can you wipe out the ants?" And the young man snaps his head around and says, "Yes." Jonathan and the king are left staring in pure shock. The king blurts out that if the guy and girl can pull it off, he'll hand them lands. Then he springs to his feet and offers the young man the title of hero, but Thor shuts him down and refuses. The king drops back into his chair and promises he'll pay Thor. Then the young man blurts out, "So how much are you offering?" The king tilts his head to the Torah and declares, 300 million. The guy nods and answers, "That's plenty more than enough." And that's exactly what they settled on. He whips around and says they'll head out tomorrow, but he needs someone to take them closer to the nest, so the king immediately orders one of his commanders to handle it. The king leans in and asks if they're sure they don't need that hero title. Toru stands there with his hands in his pockets. No fancy title needed. He just wants to roam, take it easy, and live it up, while Cade lingers behind him, eyes fixed modestly on what's up ahead. After a while, a young man and a girl trail behind a man deep in the forest, and the young man blurts that this place is breathtaking. The king's messenger nods along and keeps moving before long. Toru spots a pile of dead soldiers here, and the man snaps that a nest is nearby, so they're almost at the end. Then Kaishi blurts out that she's scared of one terrifying thing. Karida blurted, "So what's the deadly answer to dangerous, manche?" And Toru and the man froze, shocked by the girl's question. Then the man snapped that even a child knows these monsters are lethal. Kyrie stammered, voice cracking, and begged for forgiveness. Kade can't wait. He raises his hand toward his face, all fired up, then freezes as he tries to figure out what happened to her before she became a servant. Because the moment she opens her eyes wide and lifts her eyebrows, Kade spots something up ahead. Monsters burst out of hiding and charge straight for the team. Then the ant-like swarm surged in, roaring and blaring loud enough to drown out everything. Kayade spun her gazer around so the young man would finally tell her if those were the monsters. Then he lunged for his sword and shouted, "They are," as the monsters closed in from all sides. The man who's with the young guy and the girl is already on his feet, clutching his sword, yelling in pure terror, shocked they made it into the ants' territory this fast. He whips around and locks eyes with Thora. There he is, staring straight ahead with a sword riding on his shoulder, and the man's face twists into rage like, what's going on inside the king's head? The man screamed that an attack was coming, and the entire team snapped into defense mode right away. Toru snapped into a fighting stance and slid his sword behind his back. Then with one brutal swing, he wiped the monsters out before they even closed in. Two fans materialized in Kylie's hands. She sat on a stump and shouted for the hammer of air, and with one brutal swing, every monster dropped dead and everything living got blasted backward by the shockwave. The guy and the girl's shadowy escort stared at the chaos in disbelief for a whole day, then demanded, "What was all that?" And when he finally looked back, there were no monsters left in front of the team because every single one had already been wiped out. Toru jams the sword between the knives and vows there are way more monsters waiting in the nest. Kade, still seated, suddenly blurts that she's always wanted to use air magic to blow a path through. Kairi spun around so fast she basically birthed a double tornado, and suddenly tornado after tornado erupted around her. Towering, brutal tornadoes roar through the forest, ripping everything apart as they charge ahead. Kaid tilts his head down and slips one of the fans behind his back, and the girl snaps that it's finally time for the ice cage. Where Kade's magic touched down, razor-sharp ice erupted and spread, cold enough to sting Toru cranes forward, and snaps that she's gone too far. The guy traveling with them freezes stunned as he stares at the chaos. Toru tells the man he's free to go, and Kade spots a hole in the ground. The man hurries off, and Toru and Kade move on right to a massive crater where they stare into the dark, and Toru demands to know if it's truly the way in or if it's about to ambush them. Then, like a light bulb snapping on, the guy realizes the reward isn't for free. He has to drag in the queen's head, which means no creature can be used as a stand-in. He flings his head back and insists it'd be better if they went down there themselves. Then the young man pauses and thinks hard because he can't forget that sign: Master Tamer, Imitator, Great Thief, and Domain Dungeon, level 3. Toru started scrolling the fresh sign that popped up, and that's when he realized his status had changed. Those dungeon possessions vanished and reappeared because the dude who moved through them was the one causing the swap. Toru snaps his gaze to the use sign that pops up again, then he notices the huge sword riding on the young man's back. "We've got to move now," Toru blurts, and the young man thrusts his hand forward as a blinding light pours straight out of the opening. Toru and Cade face a huge passage, and the guy can't wrap his head around it like, did it really all work out? Cade just smirks and says this place feels exactly like a dungeon from Luntada. The table suddenly popped back into view right in front of him, and he stared at it, then said, "The dungeon's owner can slip between floors at will." Katie's face lit up, and she blurted that this means they can rush straight to the queen. The guy and the girl stumble into this huge room, then thud, those massive closed doors slam shut behind them. Across the room, Aunt Queen sits with her monsters, already staring at Toru and Kaid's sudden arrival, then her rage erupts as she snarls, demanding to know what Toru and Cade did to her nest. Toru and Ked stare forward. Locked in, Toru blurts that the queen towers over the rest. Then the queen lifts her hands and screams for the monsters to crush Tora and Ked into meat, drag it straight back to her. Every monster that had been lurking in the room ready to tear Toru and Kayaid apart now lies sprawled on the floor, dead silent, with not a hint of life. Toru stands tall, flashes a grin, and the guy leans in to warn him that Kayaid is pure merciless. The queen looms over a heap of monster corpses, then demands how some guy and a girl could pull off something like this. The Aunt Queen snaps her hands toward her subordinates, yanking and gripping their body parts with brutal force. The main character leans in, eyes locked on the scene, wide-eyed and completely stunned. The Queen swears that every time she devours monster flesh, her power shoots up faster, and with that promise hanging in the air, she and the others start marching forward. Eyes locked on what's ahead, now she's sitting on 86 levels, and no hero dares scare her. Ta'aru lunges for his sword and shouts at Kade to back off because the kid wants to beat the queen with his own hands. Toru steps behind the queen and blurts that she's lightning quick, so we've got to take her down fast before she moves again. The queen snaps her gaze forward, folds her hands, and commands an ice trap. Toru strides along with his sword. Jaw set and face grim, and then ice blocks start exploding out on either side of the guy. The queen flashes a smile and tells him point blank that a high-ranking demon can wield magic. The Ant Queen boasts that she ended the girl's master, then leans in and demands what was his last word. The girl's smile finally blooms, and Toru shoves through the chunks of ice like just the way he figured. And yeah, the queen is seriously strong. The main character locks onto what's ahead and grins, then bares his teeth and tells everyone he's got to stay right here. The main character clenched his teeth so hard it hurt, and the young man still shoved himself forward. Now he's flying ahead while the queen of the ants stares at him in pure shock. The queen leans in and calls him strong for a human, then snaps, "Who are you?" Toru shoots a hand for his sword and says, "I'm just an ordinary warrior." The queen scoffs and claims that no regular warrior could possibly be that powerful. The queen slams down with everything she's got. Boom! Like she just triggered an earthquake. Toru rammed the sword into the wall, then swung up and hung there, staring at the queen like, "So what are we doing next?" Suddenly, a cold stream poured from the queen's mouth, like she's savoring the instant Toru finally loses his life. Taru drops to the floor, whips his eyes to where the liquid splashed, and he instantly realizes it's formic acid. The queen spits formic acid again, swearing it can melt any metal on contact, while the guy keeps his eyes locked on her every move. The queen glares up with pure dread, smugly thinking, now Thor has nowhere to run because I've unleashed a rain of formic acid. But Toru can't dodge that acid yet. It can't hurt him either, because the real nightmare hits, he realizes his clothes might vanish. Toru spun the sword like a blur over his head, whipping up a shield strong enough to blunt the formic acid. Kay flung her arms wide, death grip fans clenched in her palms, and a protective dome snapped into place over her head so the acid couldn't touch her. Toru shouted that it was his turn to strike, then the kid grinned and swore he'd take the queen ant's head with him. The queen stares ahead, totally stunned, unable to figure out what's wrong with Toru, and rage only keeps climbing in her chest as she grabs her target and starts attacking the guy standing right beside her again. Toru explodes upward with everything he's got, blasting far above the queen as the monster keeps its eyes on him. The queen shrieks at Toru to die and launches a furious attack straight at him with her deadly paws. The queen stares ahead, her mouth gaping in shock while the monster reeling in disbelief because Toru just dodged again, and this time he threw his whole body into it. The young man snarls, then in a single savage strike rips the queen's head clean off Toru, hits the ground and immediately sees it, her head and one paw launching through the air while her body lurches backward. The main character declares the job done, then slides the sword back into its scabbard and disappears with it. Karid grins and calls it an awesome job. Then the girl thrusts a towel into the guy's hands. The girl snaps. So what happened to the rest of the ants because the queen's already been wiped out? Toru boasts that because he's the master of this dungeon, he'll wipe out every last monster himself. Right in front of his Tora, tiny screens pop up, blasting images of monsters, and Toru stares at them with a shaky, awkward smile, then tells everyone those monsters are already taken care of, because others got defeated first. The queen's head snapped left and right as she screamed she'd get revenge on Thor. Toru is left stunned because she's still breathing. Kid drops beside the head, complains it's way too loud, and promises the girl will lock it away in a magical vault. After what felt like forever, the guy and the girl finally end up in the city, and Toru leans in, slides a small box into place, and tells them the queen's head is inside. Jonathan Rockbell freezes in front of the box, fingers hovering as he's about to crack it open. Then he whips his gaze sideways and smirks like, "Yeah, I knew it," because he never expected anything less. Toru stands with his arms crossed tight, and the guy blurts out that he never even saw the massive army of ants there, while Jonathan fires back that the royal army has been battling them for ages. Jonathan shot his head up and warned them the army's forces were getting wiped out fast right as Toru and Cade finally burst in, and he insisted they had to repay every soldier who fought in that battle. Toru can't help wondering if the Count is looking for an escape route, but the next second, the Count thanks the team for saving the capital, then snatches his words back like he never meant a thing. As the Count's final words land, Toru and Cade realize they've scorched an entire kingdom, and now an incredible prize is waiting for them. Toru's jaw drops when he learns the reward was already set up. A young man has ties with both the merchant and the king, and they've even gone ahead and prepared that prize just for Toru. Toru can't forget this Count's face, so he shoots the guy a silent question, how much of the blame is on him, and what the Count would do if this kid fails the job. Jonathan warns them the team is coming fast and their time to prepare is almost gone. Then the room door blasts open, and the Knight Center steps in. One of the knights leans in and asks if they're the same group of travelers, and Kaid peeks out from behind Toru to confirm it. Suddenly, a whole wave of hands rockets toward Toru. Every knight demands he shake them. And then a thunderous shout erupts from the ones begging for a long life for the kingdom's savior. After a while, everyone ends up inside a massive castle, packed with people in every corner, and one of the knights suddenly shouts that a band of travelers has arrived. Keita and Toru stroll into the room dressed like royalty, then a voice snaps, demanding silence. They freeze in front of a massive staircase, and up at the top, the king waits on his throne. Then someone steps forward for the king, declaring that the ruler of the kingdom of Monde stands right in front of everyone, and King Monde fixes them with a tense downward stare. Toru stared at the king like he was carved from pure majesty. Then the king's voice exploded, demanding that Keita Tamamo and Toru Iban step forward. Without hesitation, the young man and the girl surged ahead, dropped to one knee, and waited. The king declares that wiping out the Ant Queen is a truly heroic feat because even the royal army couldn't crush them that fast, and he insists the boy and the girl deserve even more. King Armin flashed a small smile and told them he was grateful, thanking the boy and the girl for everyone in the kingdom. A man wheels in a cart piled with gold bars, stacked like a slick mountain of treasure, and when he parks it by the king and his team, the king blurts out, "There are 700 million here." The king leans in and asks if the team will be satisfied with this reward, and Toru shuts his eyes and vows, yes, grateful to the core. The ruler finally has one more bomb to drop. The king flicks his gaze to the side and declares straight from him that these travelers are being awarded the title of heroes. The king keeps throwing the same question around: if two people, one guy and one girl, are strong like heroes, then why shouldn't they wear that title too? The king adds, if you don't want this title, you can cancel it any time, but then I'll expect you, young man and girl, to train your successor too, just like you'll be doing yourselves. Kate's cheeks burn as she says she and the master will go all in for the sake of the successor, and Toru just can't figure out what the heck that girl is talking about. The king of Armana booms to everyone, declaring that starting today, a band of travelers will rise as the heroes of the kingdom. Jonathan Rockbell guides Tora and Ked, and then he jabs a finger forward. We've come for what we're owed, he declares. After a while, Toru and Kaede step into the house to find Jonathan, and the whole crew instantly swivels around, staring, checking every corner of the room. Kayade stands by a tiny table and slides Thora a cup of coffee. Thora nods and agrees. Toru whips around to Jonathan and asks, "You want coffee?" Jonathan heads for the door, then snaps back that he has to get home, so he's definitely refusing. Jonathan asks if he'll do it himself, but he refuses. Then the guy snaps that before he forgets, he has to get something off his chest. Jonathan Rockbell spins toward Thor and starts rattling off what's written on that letter, because it was meant as a message to the ruler. The Count claims the letter only orders one thing: make the teen heroes and nothing more. The guy fidgets and scratches his head, suddenly uneasy because why would that old man ask him to be made a hero, and what is he planning? Toru whips his gaze to the Count, and the young man gifted that bracelet as proof of the hero asks, "So can I leave the country now?" Jonathan only tilts his head and tells him, "Go wherever you want." Toru says, "A lot's happened, so now you can finally breathe easy," and as Kaid steps up beside him, he drops to apologies for not helping the owner the way he should have. Toru hands Ked the housework as an apology, but Ked just shakes his head. There's nothing to do right now since the place is already spotless. Toru, all awkward energy, blurts out that Kade should go shopping. Then she stares forward and immediately suggests they hit the stores together. The young man strolls down the street, still baffled. Why did Kate send him out alone, saying she needed to prepare? And the worst part is, he can't even remember the last time he was truly alone. Toru spots Kaide a little off from the others, two guys standing right there calling her over, but Kaide quickly drops her gaze and tells them she's already got a meeting lined up for today. Toru strides up to the men and snaps, "Take your hands off Kaide," because she's right there with him. As the men closed in on the Torah, they demanded to know, was that girl a servant of the Torah? The young man answered, "Yes, she is." Two men kick off an assault on the Torah. Toru charges straight into it, shouting that their actions infuriate him. In seconds, two attackers crumple to the ground and the passers-by immediately rush over. Toru shoots a worried look toward Kade, and the guy immediately asks if this is the first time Kade's ever seen guys like them, while Kareed just grins and says the more Kade gets provoked, the stronger her urge to hurt everyone becomes. Two kids stroll through a roaring crowd, and Toru blurts that the way they walk reminds him of Livio, while Kade goes, "I was barely young back then." After a while, this guy and this girl settle into a giant boat, and someone blurts out that it's time to go. Then the boat pulls away from the pier and blasts out into open water. Toru says they finally started picking up speed for real, and the girl laughs that it's so much fun it steals your breath. Toru grins and begs Kayade to hold on to him because one slip and she'll go down. Then Kayade snuggles up to Thor. A man braces on the edge of the boat, gripping an oar in both hands. Then the moment the river's drop comes into view, he roars, "Hang on tight." And instead of crashing, the boat shoots straight over the waterfall like it's flying. The paddle-wielding man spins around, flashes a grin, and asks if everyone's alright, then says they're almost at the right spot and tells everyone to brace themselves to leave. Kareed bursts into a scream. Toru snaps his eyes to the girl, panicked, and asks if she's hurt. Kareed rips off her clothes and yells that every single new outfit is soaked through. The girl's face goes white with pure fear. The young man bursts into laughter, and water streamed down his face as Toru's leaned in, like, "Relax, this is all just part of the trip." Kareed and Toru stride down the street, and Toru blurts that they hit the town for a wild night. Kareed snaps back, "Yep, that's exactly what happened." Toru snaps back to a memory and calls Kade, telling her that ever since they first met, it's always been a blast. Kade beams with joy and tells us she had fun too. Then Toru grins and says, "Let's head home and cook dinner together." The guy sits there with three girls, and one of them leans in and says an adventurer told her about this dungeon. It's a tangled maze. Nobody's fully mapped yet. A short-haired girl spins around with a grin and tells him, "Yeah, you're gonna find some strong, super rare stuff in here." He didn't pull off Nulantada, but if he clears this dungeon, boom, he'll rocket straight into a brand new reputation and make a name for himself fast. After a while, the whole crew ends up in the forest, only it doesn't feel like a forest anymore because they've stumbled into a spot where trees once stood, and now it's nothing but a wasteland. The team slams through wave after wave of fresh adventurers who march into the dungeon, and they're all legit fighters. He scans the room, silently blurting the word assessment in his head, and a sly little smirk creeps across his face. Then he grins ominously and presses his hand to his mouth. After a while, the whole team freezes weapons up, shock written on every face, while one of the girls slumps unconscious in another girl's arms. A huge crowd of orcs stands shoulder to shoulder, staring straight ahead like nothing on earth has ever dared to look that terrifying before. The short-haired girl insists that orcs are usually level 20, but she's totally baffled by these ones. And the guy snaps in anger, saying he has no clue what's going on either. The guy stares at the girl slumped and unconscious, and Lisa scrambles to wake Sonara back up. Right on cue, an orc swings smack and the guy rockets into the wall, blasting a huge hole as he crumples, wheezing in pain. The orcs keep surging in. The guy yells for everyone to get out of the way, swearing he'll take the monsters on alone, while the short-haired girl shrieks that she got it. Another girl lunges to grab Sokara. Then the guy snaps his gaze forward, roars for chain lightning, and boom. Lightning crashes down on every single orc at once. He bursts into laughter and demands to know how the monsters are even reacting to this magic. The very next second, his eyes shot wide with shock while the orcs glance at each other and burst out laughing, because they knew that kind of magic would never touch them. The guy yells that he's out of mana and begs Lisa to do something right now, while the monsters keep marching forward and a few figures are swooping through the air between them. The guy yells at the girl to raise a wall right now because the monsters can't be allowed to get any closer. Lisa thrusts her staff forward and bam! A wall slams into place between the monsters and the team. The monsters smash through the wall and pour through the hole, and the guy bolts, yelling that Lisa is useless while Lisa clutches Sogara and insists she can't be left behind. Then a short-haired girl turns to Sakin and begs them, "Don't leave us alone." The team finally burst outside, and everyone's sucking in air like they just ran through hell, while the short-haired girl swears they didn't just survive, they still managed to break free from the monsters. Second strides up to Lisa, who's sitting on the ground, and then bam, he smashes her hard with a brutal hit. He yells at Lisa to crank up her magic, and when it lands, the girl clutches her cheek and begs for forgiveness. A short-haired girl stood right between them all, shouting for everyone to stop the fight, and as Samyara snapped back to herself, she begged for forgiveness. Second snaps to the fact that two people are posted nearby, staring at him. Then he finally clocks his awful habit. He always takes his mess out on girls in public. Three guys stride past, chatting like they own the place. Lisa suddenly yells, "Hey, ask them for help," but Sekien's rage is already boiling. Saren glares at the men, fury blazing on his face. So these are the guys at level 30. He can't wrap his head around how they can beat orcs with that level. Then one of them snaps, "I'm leaving." All the others immediately shout, "Then we're coming with you." He rips out his sword, no hero in him will beg for help, and he charges in to finish the job, wiping out the guy's life and taking every last piece of equipment. Sion slipped behind the shattered tree where the guys disappeared, then burst out with his sword raised high and screamed for them to give up, lose their lives. Celine halts mid-step, and when he looks up, surprise hits three men are squatting across from each other, staring straight at Celine as he arrives. Sagan realizes the men ditched the plan and decided to hit the toilet on the street, then something nasty blasts straight into his face out of nowhere. Next, Sei bursts out to the girls, and she's drenched in filth. The moment they see her, they explode into screams and shout that the negotiations have crashed. Then they bolt away, yelling at the guy to stay back because he reeks. In Algamon's capital, inside a lavish mansion, a waiter suddenly slides up to Thor and tells him a drink has been sent for him. Taru grips a glass of champagne and blurts that it looks insanely expensive. And Kaid fires back that this is the Marquis' house, everything in here has to be top tier quality. Cade whirls and faces the Torah, and the girl can't help but stare. Why would he pick that place all the way at the very end? Toru blurts out, "I don't know what to do here." So he decides to check the others first, then come back and do it all over again. Long ago, Toru was sprawled on the couch when a sudden knock shattered the silence. Keide opens the door and invites the unexpected guest in. A middle-aged man bursts into the room and announces he's heard a guy and a girl are living here now, so he came to pay them a visit. After a while, everyone settled around the table. Toru slides into place across from Count Royan and proudly declares that he's finally become a hero, exactly like the man wanted. The Count grins and tells him, "I just wanted to thank you for saving my daughter." Toru snaps to it. Count Roan's the one who sent it. Then the young man leans in hard and demands where Marianne is right now. The Count cradles a cup in his hands and declares that Marianne's still stuck at home. He wants to whisk her away, but she's locked in bride training. The Count shot up from the table and thanked Kaid for the coffee, and once he'd already started down the stairs, he spun back and said he'd heard that Fora was eyeing the auction. A man strides onto the stage, throws out a quick apology for the hype, and tells everyone the auction will kick off any minute. Then he leans into the mic and says, "The rules are dead simple. Whoever bids the highest wins the product." A cart loaded with the very first diamond lot was rolled up to the man, and from out behind the hall, voices started calling out how much they were willing to pay for a diamond. Toru lifted a hand to his face, and from the stage, a voice blared that the diamond got sold to the man at number 56. Next, the presenter hurls the next prize onto the stage. He swears it's even more valuable, a scroll packed with blocking skills, starting at a jaw-dropping 1 million. In the hall, after what they heard, they stared at each other in stunned silence. Then Thor shot up his hand and offered a cool 1 million. The presenter blurts out, "Who's willing to pay more?" But the room stays silent. No one dares to raise their hand. Then the man steps up and announces that the scroll sold for a whopping 1 million to number 31. Keide locks eyes with the guy and demands to know why he needs that scroll. Toru answers that it's an ancient civilization's relic left behind for someone to find. Kate is like, "It's incredible, but nobody can figure out why the aristocrats aren't even curious then." Toru drops the truth. Those guys never fight at all. The presenter smirks and pushes forward. Next up is the Sphere of Salvation. It can rip the owner back from death, but only one time. Then the voices start chiming in, throwing out insane money. The presenter promises their servants will push even farther, and the man snaps back that the first one will be the High Elf. Toru whips his gaze forward in pure shock, and you can tell he's absolutely thrilled by this twist. A tiny cage drops onto the scene, and there right inside sits a little creature watching in silence. The presenter grins and promises the next one is a rare, precious species that lives deep in the forest. Then he leans in and asks to meet the fairy, insisting he's not hyping it up, because today she's the main exhibit. Suddenly, Toru snaps to stillness. Someone just cried out for help. He whips around to Kame and demands to know if she sent anything, and Kame-de tells him she's been completely silent. A voice keeps pounding inside his head, begging for salvation, promising that he'll gladly become a servant if someone will just save him. Toru suddenly gets it, and his eyes snap forward. Then the guy goes, "Oh, must be a fairy's voice." Because inside that cage, the fairy is curled up tight, hugging herself. That voice keeps hammering inside his head, then Toru rockets up from his chair, staring straight ahead in stunned shock, eyes blown wide. Toru burst out, 600 million, and the whole hall froze, every eye locked on him in shock at the insane price he just offered. Toru dropped into his seat, folded his arms, and felt his stomach twist. There's no way he's bet this much. Then, from across the room, another table's voice shouted, 610 million. A middle-aged man glances aside, then drags his tongue across his teeth. Toru's rage snaps as he whips his eyes to the guy laughing. The main character decides to crank the stakes way higher. Then he locks eyes forward and declares a jaw-dropping bet of 800 million. A heated clash kicks off between the man and the Tora. Each one slams another 10 million onto the table. The Tora glares with pure fury and the man snaps back, calling him relentless. But deep down, he knows one thing. He'll have to go all in. The main character shoots out his hand and declares he's offering 1 billion. Then the man who is racing against Toru stares in shock, clearly not expecting someone to gamble that kind of money. Because nobody beats the price, the buyer is finally set at person number 31. Then the whole hall pops to its feet and erupts in applause for Thor. A tiny fairy slips up to the cage and snatches the bars with her hands, and her face tightens with worry. The presenter leans in and tells everyone there's still time, then fires off. So, who's got something to sell? The main character shoots his hand up and springs out of his seat, and the presenter immediately calls the guy and the girl onto the stage. Kamid hauls the goods onto the cart. Then the main character whips around to the presenter and declares, "This isn't a potion, it's an elixir." The presenter whips around to Thor and asks, "So, is he against you appreciating this product?" Then he snatches a sheet of paper, starts reading fast in some mysterious language, and the guy's eyes suddenly go wide with shock. The presenter screams, "I'm real," and demands Tora blurt the starting price the guy wants. Tora thinks for a second, then lands on 10 million. Soon, smiles spread like wildfire. People started chatting again, and the hall filled with wild numbers of how much they were willing to pay for that elixir. The host blurts out the product sold for a jaw-dropping 2,250 million, and Toru springs to his feet, eyes blazing straight ahead because it's way more than he ever imagined. After a while, Toru and Kaid are posted up in the room across from the presenter, watching him smile as he says he's thrilled with the auction, like the buyer's surprises are exactly what he needs. The presenter asks straight up whether he needs to grab the fairy money from the elixir sales, and the Tora shoots back with a clear yes. The presenter blurts out that the fairy costs a jaw-dropping 1,100 million. The elixir sells for 2,250 million, and the Tora leaves him sitting pretty with a clean profit of 1,150 million. The presenter shoves a tiny cage forward, and a fairy inside it bounces with every push. Toru stares at her, pure curiosity sparking in his eyes. A little girl sits there, hugging her knees like she's bracing for something, and Toru turns to Kaide with a grin, telling her that this fairy looks just like a girl. After a bit, everyone ended up back at home, and Toru, arms crossed, demanded if that fairy was actually coming. But the silence hit back and no one answered. Toru jabs at the fairy's weapon and asks if that hammer is hers, since it looks brutally strong. Kaid steps up to this guy and says she brought tea, and the guy thanks her, then asks the fairy to join him. The only problem, the fairy just goes silent. Toru asks Kaide if she bought cookies, and the moment she answers, the fairy explodes into a scream. Then, a little later, it lands on the table and devours every last cookie. Toru figures this fairy didn't fight back for long. Then Kaid snaps his gaze at him and demands to know why he paid a dime for her. Toru blurts that he heard a fairy's voice begging for help. Then the fairy stares at him in shock and demands, "Wait, did you really hear me?" Kaede shoots back and asks about the voice again. Toru admits he first thought he was just imagining it, until he finally realized the voice was coming from a fairy, and that's when he decided to buy it. Suddenly, the fairy burst out of the cage, bowed to Thor, and left everyone stunned. She couldn't believe the young man was her new master, and the girl rushed to apologize for what she'd done earlier. Toru stared at the fairy, speechless. Toru can't believe it and blurts, "Why am I the master of the little fairy now?" And the fairy floats up in the air, then tells the young man to describe what he looks like. Toru insists he's still human, but right now he's a full-on draconian, and the fairy throws her arms up, yelling that she finally tracked down the Tora. Kaid is utterly stunned. He can't even believe the guy is a draconian. Toru studies the girl with a strange look and straight up asks if she's getting bullied. Kaid raves that the draconians are an incredible race, so advanced they carved out a civilization beyond anyone's reach, and they even left behind tons of relics. Kaid stares at the guy, shocked, and demands, "That's all you've got." Toru exhales in exhaustion and admits, "I was human, but the moment the level went up, my status shifted and I turned draconian." A fairy drops down in front of Thor, thanks him for saving her, and tells him her name, Frau. The main character looks at his own tiny status, makes up his mind to end the contract, and Frau finally gets a chance to go back home, but then the girl refuses. She finally latched onto a master, and even her own family shut her out. Then Frau says the neighbor started pelting her with stones. Frau grips her hammer and shoots Thora a question. "Do you think I'm weak?" Then grins and hits back, "Sure, I'm cute, but I'm level 30 and I'm insanely strong. A creature bursts from Thor's hand and rockets through the air. Toru just stares, totally stunned. It swoops straight to Fru and lets out a strange sound, and Fru snaps, "What is that?" Toru insists the creature is a panda, but Frau flips out, "Panda? That's a weird name." And right after that, Panda rockets into the sky. Then the fairy shrugs and swears she was just kidding. The next morning, Toru jolts awake in his bed, and there, fast asleep right beside him, is Frau. Toru bursts down the stairs and greets Cade with a loud, "Good morning," right as she's just sliding breakfast onto the table. Then Cade snaps her head toward him and admits she hasn't seen Frau yet. And the girl immediately asks if Toru knows where that young man might have gone. Toru leans in and, with a frown, presses his hand against the antler. Then he snaps, saying Frau slid into him one night and actually slept with him. Toru and Kaid were digging into breakfast when Fraud finally jolted awake, scared out of her mind. She blurted, "Where am I?" Frau is up in the air, wearing a sour face. She glares straight ahead, then plants her hands on her hips and snaps that she's ashamed in front of the owner, asking if this way is truly better. Kaid slaps down another breakfast plate on the table and calls out to Frau, grinning while Kaid and Frau chat away like everything in the world feels perfect. The main character snatches a cup of something, raises it to his lips, then tells them to come visit him after the capital. As Frau hoists them into the air and beckons them toward a hidden fairy village, the forest of Gridget reveals her roots, her native village where flowers never stop blooming and the fairies have a whole pile of breathtaking spots they can't get enough of. The guy says it sounds interesting, and Toru's grin explodes across his face as he flashes his teeth. Then he announces their next stop is the fairy village. Fru shoves herself into a rush of breath, turns her head away, and says she has to warn them. Then Fru snaps that fairy hates people and can attack the fairy leans in and warns you not to underestimate fairies because the fighters in her village are several times stronger than even she is. After a while, Toru and Kade burst into this huge room, and the moment they do, the whole guild turns their heads toward the team. A bunch of guys clock them instantly. One's a warrior, the other's a fox, and before the team can even breathe, two girls stride up and ask straight up if they're with that group of travelers. A middle-aged man bursts into the meeting, introduces himself as the guildmaster, and Toru immediately snaps, "So what's going on here?" The guildmaster smiles and says they're a band of travelers, heroes of the kingdom. The guildmaster promises he'll do anything for them since they're an S-rank crew and all they have to do is ask. Kaida lit the air with a growing ball of light and Toru slid down beside the girl. Then, out of nowhere, the guy and the girl vanished. Kade and Toru are up on the building roof, laughing their heads off, and Toru says, "Forget it, we can't slip into the guild quietly anymore." Kade shoots back, "Yeah, I'm with you." Katie tells them to head back and whip up some sweets, and Toru jumps in, like, "Kade is an amazing cook, seriously, fairy, you've got to try the girl's food." Toru, Kayade, Panta, and Fro are standing in a place, and then the young man slams his magic into motion. Water explodes from his palm in a huge rushing stream. Toru whips his magic ahead toward the towering high cliffs, but the water smashes right into them, right on target, and Toru can't believe it, because his accuracy keeps getting sharper and sharper. Toru's about to use earth magic next, and Katie stands off to the side with his head bowed and eyes shut while the girl steps in and tells that guy to stop. Toru bursts into laughter, then the guy admits he loved magic and just had to try it again, and Katie quickly tells the owner, "Hold on, wait." Kyrie lifted her index finger, shut her eyes just a bit, and declared, "Sure, I'm a servant, but I'll speak up," then warned that the young man's magic is far too dangerous. Kaid says the whole reason Toru used her again doesn't matter, so you better be careful. Toru just stands across from her, all awkward, and swears that everything's under control. Cade sneers that Toru's accuracy is still pathetic and that he could level an entire city. Toru drops his head and vows, "Next time, I'll be careful." Toru rubs his head and claims he's tagging the 4 elements with magic, and he insists his mana won't run out, so now they've got to figure out how to turn it into something that helps people. Toru grips his brand new sword and blurts that he'd always dreamed of a blade this fiery. Then suddenly magic erupts from the main character's hands, scorching the air so close it almost clips Panudan Frau, and they both scramble away, flying off at full speed. Fru snarls from atop the panther, both of them furious. Then his face flashes with hope at whether the young man is about to take his life, and Toru finally blurts out an apology. Right in front of Toru's face, a message suddenly pops up. Your dungeon level just jumped from 3 to 5, and the guy freezes, staring at it in pure shock. Kaisid blurts, "What happened?" While Toru scrambles to his feet and scans the messages, then the guy fires back his dungeon level just shot up, and he has no idea why. Cade mulled it over, then leaned in and said, "They're whispering that a top-tier dungeon loaded with rare loot just showed up in the capital, and now every adventurer is scrambling to get in." Toru starts to realize his level jumped, and Kayad immediately snaps into grim understanding. This can only mean tons of adventurers got wiped out in that dungeon. Fru bursts into laughter, saying she never expected anything less from him. This is the kind of feat only a real demon lord could pull off. The young man clutches his head and shrieks, "What do I do now?" Toru asks Kade if she knows where my room is, and she shoots back that she has no idea. Then the whole team stares at that sign. Toru grins and says he can be transported there, and Kade pushes, "Do it right now." Right then, the whole team barges into a room they've never seen before, and everyone blurts out pure shock. They say this place is huge and wide open, but somehow it feels wrong, like something eerie is lurking in the air. Ahead, the whole team spots a massive crystal. It S the core, and that means they finally hit the ground floor. He insists it's nothing like the real thing, and Kaid snaps back. Yeah, they weren't just lost, they were trapped below the lowest floor. Toru throws his arms wide, scans everyone, and pitches the place as their warehouse since only they can get in. Kairi slips aside, spins around, and asks the guy if she can start equipping this place. Then Toru shrugs and tells her she can move everything here without even asking. Toru spots Frau and Panta swooping through the air, bickering mid-flight, and Frau snaps that this place won't be their home she saw at first. Toru bursts into laughter. Fru got wiped out way too easily. And honestly, it's no shock, because Panta isn't exactly built like a normal fairy. Fruk slams to a stop and instantly clocks it. Panta isn't hunting him to win, he's just trying to get in the way. Toru tilts his head, staring up like, wait, Fru and Panta actually became friends. The very next day, everything goes down inside the house they're renting for the time being. Kaid hangs her clothes up, beams a smile, and the sun blazes overhead, while the main character stands on a huge balcony with a steaming cup of coffee in hand. Kai Reed barks at the guy that they've got to talk about today's schedule. Toru drops his gaze and nods like, yeah, let's do it. Toru storms downstairs and blurts, what happened? Kade admits she wanted to wash Fruz's clothes, but she had no spare set to use. Kayade grins at the guy and says she wants to hit the store and grab some clothes, and Toru scratches the back of his head like, nah, we've got nothing urgent to do today. After a while, everybody rolls into the city and Kaid plops onto a chair, grinning as he swears it fits Thor perfectly. Toru grins awkwardly and says the chair's great, but it's way too loud for his room. Then the guy tells him he'd better haul out and buy some chests instead. Toru and the crew trek down a packed street when Kaede suddenly stops, points at a store, and offers to check something out, only for Frau to explode with outrage because it's a doll shop. Kaid drops his head, apologizes to Frau, and swears they won't get a better option right now, while Toru snaps back that they're out of time, so they'll take what's available first and only then figure out something made to order. The store's door swings open, and the whole team bursts into the room. Then they instantly start scanning everything like they're hunting answers. Toru spotted a lineup of dolls in one of the showcases and froze, staring hard. And then it hit him. Little Native and Swara, their childhood dolls looked just like these. The Cade sneaks up behind Thor and asks, "You alright?" Thor whirls around and snaps back that these aren't anything real, just brutal memories. Toru leans in and asks, "Did you find something that fits Fru?" Kade keeps his head bowed and doesn't say a word, while Fru drifts over the guy and the girl, stares at the dolls, and declares, "They're all huge." Trowel leans beside one of the dolls and points out that its body proportions don't match. A mysterious man shows up out of nowhere and swears the team's got major issues. Toru confirms it on the spot and snaps, asking if the owner has anything for that little frown of his. Fru darts even closer to the owner's face, and the man jolts in shock, blurting that he's never seen a fairy before, while the owner grins and says the team's lucky because he's got something stashed away. A tiny chest of clothes sitting on the table. Toru blurts out, "What are these?" And the store owner says, "They're fairy clothes, my late wife made them." Then the man's face tightens as he recalls her smile, admitting they fell in love and got married because they both adored fairies, and her dream was simple, that fairies would someday wear her creations. The man shoves the chest right to the edge and asks if the team will take it, then snaps, "I don't need money," Brow adds, "I hate people, but anyone who loves fairies gets my kindness." So Frau steps up and claims the owner's wife's final wish, taking those clothes for herself. Toru pops to his feet with an awkward smile, sweating as he wonders what the owner's wife will say. The Wild and the owner Giddy can't thank Frau enough. Toru and the shopkeeper step aside, and the guy proudly says every doll is crafted fast and packed with detail. Then he explains how he and his wife started by making clothes, but they opened the store so more people could finally see what they made. Fru creeps up behind Toru and tells the guy to look at her. She's wearing a fresh new outfit, and she wants to know what he thinks. Toru takes one look and says it looks pricey and way too strict. Cade leans in close to Thor and murmurs that Frau's been fussing over her outfit for ages and Thor better take a look. Now Toru flashes a thumbs up and declares that Frau absolutely slays in it. Frau beams, finally hearing the praise she's been waiting for. Froof climbed onto the table and jabbed at the package. Then the fairy snapped that she'd accept the old man's gift, and he thanked her with relief spilling from his face. The owner let out a breath and declared that his wife's dream had finally come true. The team crowds by the exit and tells Thor, "We might meet again soon." Then the man steps outside, bows low, and calls back, "Come in anytime." A man strides into the store, plops onto a chair, and the owner lifts a photo frame of his wife, then declares that her long-awaited dream is finally real. Across the table, a man spots a package and rips open the note, only to read that he's supposed to use the money to make dolls. There's a ton of cash spread on a tiny cloth, and he blurts out, "Who are you and just how much is here?" Taru, Kahid, and Frau head back home, and Toru tells Fro to handle everything from here, and the fairy nods along like, "Yep, I've got it." The room's door suddenly swings open, and Cade steps in, grinning as she greets him with a bright "good morning" and orders him to strip off his clothes. Toru flashes an awkward grin and asks the girl if she wants to sniff the guy's shirt, since he already reeks, and Cade blurts in panic that the guy totally misunderstood everything. Toru yanks off his shirt, credits the girl for convincing him, and shoves a t-shirt into her hands. Then Cade steps in and offers up a set of fresh clothes. Everyone's packed around the table, scarfing down breakfast, and then Toru drops a bomb. Bread and coffee are totally different. The girl shoots back, saying she didn't get it there, she grabbed it from another store. Kaisid asks, "So where are we going today?" Toru pauses and thinks because he's already hit the place he wanted to reach, and now he's completely clueless about where to go next. With a bright smile, the girl says she's itching to go shopping, and Kade snaps that they've totally run out of groceries, so Toru immediately jumps on board with her plan. After a while, the entire team headed into the city. Toru strode past a table where people were sitting, and a stranger immediately asked, "Do your friends know sandworms have started showing up all over the kingdom?" But then the guild started getting swamped with requests for worms, and everything would have been smooth sailing until the worms began regenerating. Toru and Cade stride across the bridge, and he blurts that it's time to get their journey moving again because they've already wasted too much time, and both the guy and the girl freeze, staring out into the distance like something's pulling them forward. Toru stares ahead with a heavy heart, and as street faces come into focus, he even wonders if he should stay because part of him can't shake what happened, and his whole trip is built to find peace of mind and finally bury the past. The whole team barges into a packed market, and Katie pushes forward, grinning that she's basically snagged everything she needs. Then boom, Toru snaps his head toward a blood-curdling scream calling for a girl named Kumin. Toru strides up to her and blurts out if she's looking for someone, and she fires back asking whether the young man spotted a girl about 5 years old, the one they lost when they split up at the market. Toru offers to help right away, then demands she describe the child. The woman couldn't contain her excitement as she gushed about her daughter's looks. Then Toru and Kade burst into the market, sprinting wild as they yelled her name at the top of their lungs. Toru slips past a shop wafting mouth-watering smells, then sprints up to Kade and snatches her hands, asking if a girl can track someone just by scent. With a stutter, Cade insists he can. Then Toru grins and blurts that they've got to run to their mom, like, right now? Because she must have something. The woman hands a handkerchief straight to Kumankaid, and she lifts it to her nose, inhaling deep like that scent holds the key. Kade drops his head, shuts his eyes, and sucks in a deep breath while the woman and Toru stare on, locked in. Kade bolts into action, shouting that the cumin is still here, and you can see the woman's panic grow. Then the guy demands, "Where exactly?" And Katie just knows the girl had to follow her. Carrie snaps her head around and catches the faintest human scent. Then everyone whips onto a narrow little stone street where everything's laid out like it's straight from the ground. Katie hears a frantic voice sprinting past it. It's a little girl bawling on top of some strange creature, begging for her mother, insisting they shouldn't slow down because they're going to find her. Toru and Kayaid skid to a stop when they spot Panta and Frau. Toru's totally baffled about why they're here. Then a woman bursts forward and shouts the girl's name. Kumin sat on the pont, snapped her head toward the sound of her mother's voice, and the moment she heard her, the woman sprinted up to her, firing questions as she demanded why Kumin had run off without even saying a word. Toru and Kiaed just stand there for a second, and the girl beams, saying she's relieved it all ended well. Then the young man nods right along. Suddenly, the whole world started trembling like an earthquake in real time. The guy snapped his head around, and the ground buckled under them. Right near the woman, someone screamed at her to run. The creature surges upward and unleashes a furious roar. Then Kuman bursts into hard, helpless sobs, screaming for his mother. Toru slams into Frau and Kuman. Then, with a woman clutched in his arms, he barely makes it through, leaving Frau stunned that a young man showed up here. Toru roars that Katie should draw the worm away, while he and Kuman take her mom on their side. Katie stands across from them and shouts, "Got it." Toru roars for Panta and Fru to grab the girl and her mother, and then Fru and Panta scramble to climb as high as they can. Toru's convinced there are way too many sandworms, and if the people at that table are right, then it all boils down to the boy's magic. Kairid keeps yanking the monster's attention away, darting after her through the houses as the girl springs up, leaping high into the air. Kayed glances back. She can keep sprinting, But in no time, they'll spill out of the alley into a crowded street, and she doesn't even see the monster closing in until some weird liquid splashes into her. Toru charges in from behind, clocks everything in a flash, and yells for Kaid. Then he snaps, swears at the monster, and with one savage kick, he slices the sandworm in two, tearing its front end right off. The monster's body starts sprouting a brand new front piece, and Toru whips his gaze forward, pure horror in his eyes because he's completely forgotten about regeneration. The young man sprints up to the girl and blurts out if she's safe. Toru spots it at once. Katie drops to the ground and shields herself, but the monster's spit melts through her clothes in seconds and she begs the guy, don't look. Cade tells the guy to handle the worm, and Toru nods along, so the guy and the girl jump back up on their feet while Cade keeps backing herself up and talking it through. And then Cade swears she can freeze it, only she realizes she left her fans at home. Kyrie snaps that she can't promise the spell will stay under control or hit with the right power and perfect accuracy. Toru and Cade get ripped apart when a worm strikes, and right after that, Toru hatches a brand new plan. The Tora just stands there, studying everything, and then it clicks. The monster's regeneration wipes out any brute force win, and the more they keep it pinned down, the more damage they're dealing to the capital. K8A roars from below that she can use her magic, she just needs a little more room. So Toru screams back at her, telling her to blast wind magic when he gives the signal. The worm squirms off, then chaos erupts as people sprint in terror. Toru chugs even harder, stabbing his fingers into the worm like it's nothing, and then he flings a massive creature way up into the sky. Kayade blasts out air magic, detonating a roaring explosion. Then Toru rockets upward, snatches the worm out of the air, and grips it tight as he hisses that, right here, he'll get his revenge the right way. After a while, the woman grabs her daughter's hand, thanks the team with a warm smile, and the girl waves hard as she shouts goodbye to the fairy. Fru seethes with rage. She can't believe they dare call her that. Toru blurts that it's getting late and they have to head home. Then Frau zooms up to the guy and asks him to pet her because she'd been guarding the mother and daughter. Kyrie stands off to the side, eyes heavy with sadness. Toru rushes up, shrugs off his jacket, and wraps it around her, insisting it'll keep her warm and close. Kyrie's expression softens as she smiles and clutches the jacket to her chest, then thanks him. After a while, Toru shoves the key into Jonathan's hand, then Jonathan snatches it and blurts, "So where are we headed?" Toru smirks and calls it a secret, but he swears that if he lands a job, he'll reach the count through the guild. Jonathan crumples to his knees, groaning through the pain, while Toru bolts off and begs for forgiveness. Then Kaid snaps around and apologizes too. The count peeks forward, a grin blazing on his face. He never saw it coming that their heroes were actually hooligans too. The whole team sprints along laughing, grins blazing. Toru yells that they're heading straight for the fairy village, and everyone erupts in pure joyful shouting. After a while, the team rolls into another city, one packed with giant houses, and Toru shoots up and grins, saying he slept like a rock. Cade barges into the guy's room and greets the owner with a bright "good morning," and Toru shoots back the same cheerful wish. Toru tells Cade he got up early, and Cade's like, "Nope, I'm not just waking up. I hit the grocery store and whipped up sandwiches for everyone." Toru shoots out of bed and asks if everyone's ready, and Kaid fires back that the young man himself promised they'd hit the fairy village in the morning. Then Toru snaps, "Yeah, that's exactly what Fru told me too." Kaid jabs a finger at the bed and says the Frau won't wake up. Then Toru shrugs, "Let the fairy sleep." Toru straps on his armor, then spots nasty holes and ripped spots all over it. Keita walks up to Thor and warns that his gear is about to break, and Toru nods right away because he's worn the thing every single day. Toru grins as he stares forward and admits he's gotten way too attached to this armor, but he knows it has to change, and Kayad has just cooked up something. Karid bursts into clapping and declares he already knows which armor will fit that young man perfectly. Then the guy shoots a look at the girl, and suddenly, Kairid's hype doesn't feel so charming anymore. After a bit, the whole crew stumbled into this breathtaking spot, and when Toru lifted his head, it hit him like a spark. He knew exactly where they were headed. The whole crew arrived at the temple of the sacred weapon, and right there, they stood on one of the giant tree roots stretching straight through the water. The team barrels up to the entrance, and Toru blurts out that Cade meant to hand him armor, not weapons, so Cade fires back, asking if that guy even remembers how he got the sword. Toru hauls Kayate to his feet and blurts, "Can this weapon turn into armor?" The girl nods, then explains that the sacred weapon has no fixed shape. Toru and Kaid stride along the edge, and the girl whispers that nothing is as simple as it looks. At first, because the weapon only fully forms the moment the new owner yanks it free. Toru locks eyes with the girl and demands to know if you can actually use multiple sacred weapons at once, because he's never even heard of that kind of thing before. Kairid claims every sacred weapon is unique, unbreakable, packed with its own special powers, and boosting its wielder in its own way, and long ago, the people who could master that kind of weapon were known as the ones destined to become kings. Keita explains that's why nobody can grab more than one. Then Toru snaps back, "I don't want the crown," and immediately asks, "But if I try for a second weapon, won't it get way harder?" Kaid grins and tells them the owners got everything under control, and Toru, awkward as hell, glances at the girl and blurts that he wants that same kind of confidence. The whole team rushed to the entrance, and Kaed's eyes snapped to something. Taru dropped to one knee and studied the prints left by 3 or 4 people, while Frawa immediately figured the weapon had already been snatched away. Toru hauled himself up, and the girl asked what they'd do next, so he told Thor they'd come in, because they'd already come all this way. His hand shoots to the door, swings it wide open, and he steps into a huge airy room like he's just unlocked the next level. The sacred weapon leans a bit out of place, and the whole team bursts into laughter because those guys just couldn't get their guns out. The whole team strides up to the pedestal with the sacred weapon, and they hoist the Torah onto a tiny staircase. Toru plants himself before the sword, eyes locked on it like it might answer back. Will I pull this off, or will my armor never happen? Then bam, light explodes in a bright flash. A couple days back in Almon's capital, Sagan and his crew crowd up to the counter and fire off. The question, have you heard of me, and can you really get me a decent job? Sek spots the people behind him staring and blurts, why are you looking at me like that? And the guy instantly panics, convinced he's been recognized. Same turns back to the girl and pleads for forgiveness. He didn't want to scare her. The girl snaps that they have to hit the bulletin board because that's what everyone does. Sion drops his head and hides his face behind his hand, begging, don't tell me she didn't recognize me. Saking starts screaming at the top of his lungs and pounding his chest, and the guy yells back that this is his crew and that they've got an S rank. The girl tips her head sideways and grins, then asks what's wrong, like she already knows something's up. Second snaps his gaze away. If this was happening back in his home kingdom, they would have thrown a full-blown fit by now. At the table, the men tell Second, if you want status and fame, you've got to build a reputation big enough to match a whole band of travelers. He strides up to the table where those guys are sitting, leans in, and demands, so what did you just say? All of a sudden, Selling slams one of the men. Wham! He's flying straight into the wall, and his friend is left staring like, what the hell is Selling doing? Sapin suddenly lunges at another man. He kicks him hard, and the guy rockets flying far to the side. One of the girls blurts his name, then screams 7 commands for everyone to shut up because they just disrespected the great hero. The man springs up and fires back. What part of you dares to act like that? As he instantly turns to a nasty move. The guild guys started bunching up fast, then someone shouted that Celine is a fake hero and they're going to kick him out by force. Seking's got enemies closing in from every side, and the guy stands there braced in a fighting stance, ready to throw down. Sapon slams one of the men, then swings again, smacking 2 guys with a single blow. The target stumbles upright, grabs another by the collar, and growls that they'd better know their place since the average level here is 30. Stana shouts at Samara, and Samara snaps that he should stop. People could die. Stana then glares at the girl, tells her to shut up and to stop messing with him. Saking heaves the man aside, and it hits him, so Kara was right. If this goes south, he could land in prison. He whips around to the girl and demands, so what other travelers are you talking about? The girl's eyes light up as she glares at him excitedly. She brags that this group crushed what even the National Army couldn't touch, how they wiped out the Queen of Ants using her own lair, then got crowned as heroes. She says this team's B rank on paper, but for the kingdom, they're treated like S rank, and then she hits on the next rule, sobriety. He can't wrap his head around how they ever beat the queen and her minions. And Second just scoffs because it's totally absurd that some adventurers were handed the title of hero. The girl snaps that Second is miserable for a reason nobody sees, and the guy fires back that we've traded the real hero for fake ones. He's never even heard of this band, so he assumes they're brand new, and since you took down the queen together, you've basically proven she's insanely powerful. He snarls and screams in pure rage, begging them not to tell him that Group 1 did it, because if they did, then that means he's dealing with a monster of an opponent. Saking strides up to the counter and asks where this group is headed, and the girl lights up, saying they ditched the capital and rode all the way to Grigit. He bolts for the exit and yells for the girls to follow him, while they insist they're not done with their treatment yet. He shrugs it off like it doesn't matter. Senheen's crew makes their home in Grigit, and right outside their base, a stranger strides past, then blurts out that a bunch of travelers are holed up at a hotel, pointing straight at the exact place. Just as Sei-in is about to smash his way to victory in the travelers game, he freezes because he spots the Holy Ball's bearer standing right there. He realizes he needs the exact same holy sword to wipe out those travelers. The Sequoian's group is standing inside Grigita's temple, and this guy steps up to the Holy Ball and blurts out that he finally tracked it down. The girls crowd behind him, grinning, and tell him they're genuinely thrilled. Then one of them chimes in, the guys have to be backed, because creating the right atmosphere makes all the difference. Same presses a hand to his forehead, grins, and finally knows, after everything he had to survive, he's about to claim what's always been his. Selin is convinced this is the final day he'll draw that sword and wipe out that group of travelers. Selin yanks the holy sword, yet it won't budge. The short-haired girl snaps that Selin's being too arrogant, and Selin fires back. So you think this is some kind of test? Like the sword's got its own question for her, whether she's really ready to pass? Sakin glares ahead with pure malice, muscles his way in to grab the sword with that same brutal strength, then he yanks it hard and screams. The girls band together and back the guy as hard as they can. One of them even jokes that his face is basically a tomato, while the other two snap back that Sen can be because he's a hero. His face muscles bulged as sweat poured down his skin, and he couldn't figure out why the sword still wasn't being pulled. Second hauled at that sword for a full day, but the temple wouldn't budge then. Every so often, his screams echoed through the halls. The very next day after his second trip to the temple, someone whispers that the holy sword came free way too easily. Creed grins and says it totally impresses her. Then Frau goes, "Is this normal?" While the guy just stands there clutching the ball, staring him down like, "So what are you gonna turn into?" Out of nowhere, the ball starts gushing water nonstop, and Kami's completely clueless. He just slaps his hands over his face like, "What is happening?" The girl spots his brand new armor and blurts out that it fits him perfectly. And just when Frousset expects it'll feel way heavier, she realizes this set isn't bad at all either. Taurus's new armor glints under the light. Kiaidi strides up and asks him how it feels, but the guy just smirks and tells her to give him a moment to think. Right after that, the guy starts going wild, testing the new armor with all kinds of moves. Toru scratched the back of his head and grinned, saying he really liked it because it looks like metal armor, but it's crazy light, so Coyote's over the moon. Toru asks the girl to test a sacred weapon, and she nods, then dives in and starts evaluating it right away. And Kari just scoffs like, "What's the point?" She claims she's still too low level to truly grasp the sacred weapon, and the girl's convinced that even if she levels up, she still won't be able to see a thing. When the guy crosses his arms and demands, "What does this mean?" Kaid fires back that the armor is packed with a high-level spell one that masks every last telltale trait. Toru just couldn't shake the feeling. This assessment wouldn't be his ticket, but he can't stop wondering what civilization forged this sacred weapon, because its spell obeys the owner's will, like it's made of pure power. He locks eyes with the girl and realizes his curiosity just got hooked on her past, so he chooses to park it for later. Everyone files out of the temple, and the guy grins now that they've gotten what they came for. They can finally race to the fairy village. The whole crew lights up with pure joy. After a while, everyone's packed into the forest knights, already fallen outside. In the middle of a huge clearing, their team crashes in a tent. Rain started hammering outside, and it jolted the guy awake. He stumbled outside, looked up at the tall trees, and thought, "Good thing this rain can't reach me." Toru tilts his head and spots the creature hovering above them, and then he turns and thanks it for keeping watch over their sleep. Toru starts to yawn, thinking, "At least the creature's guarding us, but even if it flipped into attack mode, the guy would still wake up anyway." Toru peeks into the tent and finds the tiny fairy and the magical creature passed out, like they can crash anywhere at all. Suddenly, messages start popping up right in front of the guy's eyes, and Toru's shocked, speechless, totally clueless about what's happening. Toru's telling everyone the point restoration is finally done, but when he thinks his glasses might snap, his mood instantly drops. He realizes this gift has been living in him since birth, and it still took him 25 long years to finally master it. He swears the next time that skill cracks, it'll only happen in 30 years because in his mind he's already leveled enough and he doesn't need more. And by the time he hits 30, he's convinced he'll be nothing but an old man. Behind the guys' backs, you can suddenly hear it, some girl snoring in deep sleep, and Toru just stares at her like he's locked in. Kairi is dead asleep, yet she still clings to the thought, begging the guy not to go, and the moment her eyes flutter, you can see pure worry on her face. His hand drops onto the girl's head, and Taru slides into the seat beside her, keeping that gentle hold as a faint smile flickers across his face. The guy flashes a tiny smile and tells her he's here to stay, not going anywhere, then tears start spilling down the girl's face as she begs, "Please, help me." Tora locks eyes with the girl and flashes back to that time she was in the servant's shop, or maybe it's some other piece of her past tugging at her memory, but the guy can't do a thing to help. Still, Tora leans in and tells the girl goodnight. That tiny fairy charges into the chaos and wipes out monster after monster, like it's nothing. Then, Frau glances at the team and asks how they're feeling, because she's small in size but absolutely terrifying in strength. He scratches his cheek and insists he's never once looked down on a fairy. Then the fairy claims that when you told her, because of your size, you can't fight, she heard it as rejection. Kaid snaps that she completely misunderstood the whole thing. But Proud floats over the team's heads and tells them Kied once said she was scared for the little fairy, so the girl and the guy hang their heads and beg the fairy for forgiveness. A sign pops up right in front of Frau, and she's left wondering if she finally leveled up. Then the little girl flashes a grin that says it all. Fru can't believe it, she's already level 35. Then the guy grins and says it's his skill, the one that makes the entire party rake in double points. That little girl snaps with rage and demands, "Is this even legal?" Toru freezes, awkwardly staring at her, and admits, "I don't know." Right out of nowhere, Frus breaks into a smile and the fairy rockets forward. They say she's trying to push things up by a couple more levels. A girl and a guy sprint right after her, and not once do they tell her to stop. But the tiny fairy doesn't even hear them and rockets way ahead. Then the guy and the girl stop dead, staring after her. He blurts out, totally awkward, "I don't even know where we're supposed to go." And she just shrugs, saying, "Yeah, but you still have to wait for the fairy." Toro and Kade settled on a fallen tree when the guy grinned and said that the idea of a break was straight up genius. Then the girl leaned in and offered the owner a cup of coffee. Suddenly, a blazing flash of light streaks straight into the guy. He snaps his arm up in the brand new armor and redirects it. Kyewi barrels up to the guy and demands to know if he's hurt, and the guy snaps back that he's fine. Then a tiny winged man perched on a nearby tree declares that his reaction speed was insanely good. The man claims the guy defended himself with his quickest move, and then he snaps back that it won't matter because they're still going to crush him. Tiny men pop up in the sky, hanging there like they're waiting to pounce, ready to attack a girl and a guy at any second. The girl and the guy got boxed in from every direction, and Cade snapped, "So what do we do now?" The guy just shook his head and said he can only dream of rest. Toru doesn't even look back. He tells the girl it's hopeless to attack because those guys might be Fruze's friends. She immediately gets it. The man screams for everyone to attack, and the guy and the girl start dodging every single strike. Nobody lands a hit. The fairies started getting furious because they can't wrap their heads around why they're not allowed to hit people. Then someone snaps, "Maybe they're monsters," and another voice panics, "I don't even know what to do." Finally, the bearded man cuts in. There's no choice left. This guy strides in and warns everyone he doesn't use magic here, and if they don't back off, he'll wipe this place out, with that same guy and girl standing right beside him. Toru wears a sour scowl and snaps that their fairy still hasn't shown up, and the girl shrugs back, saying it looks like someone got carried away leveling up. He dips his head and lets out a sharp breath. Then, out of nowhere, he explodes into shouting, barks that it's an order, and calls Frau to the... All the fairies scramble and clap their hands over their ears because this guy's voice is shaking the air. Then, out of nowhere, something fast comes tearing toward them, and in the empty field, there's already a figure walking right at them. Every fairy that storms the guy and girl snaps their heads toward the source of the sound, but they can't figure out what it even is. Then someone blurts, "It's ridiculously powerful." Toru and Kayaede stare in stunned disbelief as the guy blurts, "So the fairy really did come to you." Frau darts in closer to her team and fires off questions about everything they've already done while she was gone. With a stern stare, Frau snaps at everyone to listen up. Then the fairy blurts out that a representative from a great race is right there in front of them. The tiny fairy blurts out, "What are you all doing? This feels way too dirty for fairies." And just like that, the others start talking. Then someone spots him. Wait, that guy's aura isn't human at all. A bearded man shot out his hand and yelled her name, demanding to know if it was truly her, his worried expression screaming the stakes. Suddenly, Fro slams her hammer into the space between them, blasting that man away from you high up. Then the guy and the girl stare, shocked, like they just got hit by fate. After a bit, the guy and the girl push forward through the giant tree roots, and fairies swarm around them, fluttering through the air like sparks in the dark. One fairy snaps into action and calls the guy a representative of some great race, then promises they'll hit the village soon, so Toru turns right around and thanks her for leading the way. Fru is still seething because her relatives raised their hands against the master, and he insists it wouldn't have happened either. The guy wouldn't have done it, or the fairy wouldn't have vanished, while she snaps back that she could have ended up getting the gentleman killed. The lead fairy whips around to the team and declares, "We've arrived at the village." Then it grins and tells them to soak in their own little paradise. The whole team stands out in the middle of this giant wasteland with towering mountains looming everywhere, and the guy finally blurts, "So is this really a fairy village?" The fairy gives them a push go on because a barrier here chops out every unwanted guest the moment they try to show up. The team charges ahead, and the girl can't wait to see the fairies in the village while Fru goes, "It's unbelievably beautiful, like everyone's about to fall in love with the place." The team finally lands in the stunning wonderland, trees packed with tiny little houses and fairies zip-zapping through the air like they own the sky. The team watches the fairies at work. Some scrub the house, others just roam and play, and in a tiny house, a voice suddenly calls out, asking Sasha to bring the tea. The whole team huddles around a tiny table, and the guy glances around, asking if this is a huge home for fairies. Then the fairy grins and says it's built just for guests, while the girl cheers the team on. An old man is already waiting in front of the team, Fru's grandfather, too sitting as the part-time headman of Ferris, and when he finally speaks up, he bows his head and apologizes for the rudeness they showed in the forest. Suddenly, the headman lunges and starts kicking the guy who attacked the team in the forest, then demands, "Are you finally going to apologize or not?" The headman barks at him to stand up and apologize, then Toru cuts in. "Isn't that way too rude?" Stero shoots back, but the guy's strong. He snapped back to his senses, spun his head, and demanded, "Where am I?" Behind him, the headman loomed and said, "You're in the village." Out of nowhere, the man snaps his razor-sharp sword straight toward Thora, then Frau and her grandfather rush in and attack him. The man fires back at the headman, demanding why he protects their people. The headman calmly tells him to watch closely, then the truth will show up. He even points out that this guy is a part of a great race. The girl eyes the man and whispers that this family is tight-knit to the bone. The guy nods right along, agreeing with her. The forest attacker locks eyes on him and presses the question again, demanding to know everything about that legendary race. The man suddenly snapped into worship and apologized to the guy for not recognizing him sooner. Frau here, grandfather, lunges in and attacks the man, barking that a real man must think first before he moves, while Taru watches it unfold and can't help feeling bad for him. In the middle of nowhere, 3 fairies line up in a row, leader included. Then the head fairy finally leans forward and declares it's time to get down to business. Toru blurts out on the spot that they only came to the fairy village because Frau brought them. The headman snaps that the village is in real trouble, so everyone agrees to go begging for outside help. Toru blurts that the fairies hate humans, and the headman nods hard, telling Toru he'd already begged the elves for help. The headman straight up says, the elves were powerless too, and that's the kind of nightmare they've been surviving just to make it this far. That guy, finally caught on Frau, was hunting the one who could save their village, but he still can't figure out why they sent the girl in the first place. The headman says that even if she looks like a fairy, they still pray to her because she comes from a powerful bloodline and serves as a priestess. Then one of the team chimes in, but she doesn't look like a fairy priestess at all. Even in his old age, he insists the only soul who can truly hear those prayers is someone from the great race, and the guy brushes it off, saying it's the perfect lead to chase. A sharp frown snapped onto her face she'd been searching for over a year, dreams fading fast. Then, bam! They caught her right there and dragged her straight to the auction. Fruge claims the higher race sent someone to drag her here, and the headman shrugs and says maybe it's fate right then. The guy just nods along. Toru demands the headman explain what happened to them, and the headman grins, says it's the best thing to witness, then waves them along like, come on, let's go. After a while, the team storms back into the forest, and the headman jabs his finger straight at the creature that's been tearing at their village. The whole team freezes and stares at the bound golem, and the headman drops the bombshell. This thing wasn't made by humans at all, it was forged by the ancients. The headman smirks and says this column wasn't even nicked by the attack, its defenses are just too damn strong. Toru demands where this monster even came from, and the headman snaps back that it crawled out of ancient ruins. The golem snapped awake and tore straight into the crowd, attacking everyone within reach, while the headman shouted that they'd forced it into bindings with magic, even as he admitted he had no idea how long that spell would hold. Toru weighed it all in his head, this guy knows golems never strike first, and flipping their order is basically impossible. The main character strides forward, closing the distance fast. He's about to take a look, but the headman opens his mouth to speak, and then he runs out of time. The monster snaps its head up and locks eyes with the guy who just showed up, and Toru turns his gaze right back at it. A blazing light spilled from the monster's eyes and blasted straight at Thoro. Then Thoro just stood there, unmoving. The headman frets, wondering if Toru will be okay while Kei stays silent, just standing there with a calm little smile. Toru glances up with pure curiosity and blurts out that this column is busted, then notices a tiny pit right beside the guy who got hit in the monster attack. Kaelide blurts out, "So what now?" And Toru snaps back. The golem won't respond to commands anymore, so we just smash that monster. You hear the headman screaming about the magic vine, then the golem bursts free, and the vine rips apart everything in its path. The monster rockets upward, and the guy whips around to the girl and barks at her to stay right where she is. Kaid got it instantly. The monster looms over Thor's head, whips into a furious handspin, and Toru lunges for his sword. Toru mirrors every monster strike, and the headman yells that he'll deflect those deadly rays. Then Kaid snaps, "Get behind me," as she slams up a wall to protect him. A beam of light rockets into Thor's hand. This guy yelps and screams, then Thor snaps his arm up, and the strike drills straight into the monster's head. The guy spits. It hurts. The monster suddenly rockets upward and starts climbing the tree like it owns the place. And Toru just stares, completely baffled by what he's witnessing. Toru drops to the ground and swears the monster won't get away with him. Then the main character shoots up, and suddenly he's just as dangerous as the monster. The monster locks eyes on the guy, and before he can even think, the guy thrusts up his bare hands to smash the column like he's going to rip it apart. The golem bursts out of the tree and dives like a missile, smashing every branch it rips through. Then the monster hits the ground with a thunderous crash that shakes the whole area. Toru stared down and wondered if the golem was broken, then its head snapped into a wild spin and it started rattling out terrifying sounds. Toru sprang out of the tree. Weapons in hand, he was ready to land the final blow, because that guller was brutally strong. The golem shoves its fist straight through the monster's front. Thwack, sparks, and a nasty sound rip through the air, and then it locks eyes on the guy before the whole scene erupts in a massive explosion. Toru's trapped in a pit of rubble, surrounded by a golem's remains, and then he climbs up right as he does. Kayad rushes over and blurts that the guy was amazing, just like always. Toru trudges along with his sword resting on his shoulders, when boom, a massive explosion erupts behind him, and the guy suddenly blurts out, "I'm starving." The headman, Frau, and Kareed all stare straight ahead, and the headman's jaw drops at what a superior race can pull off. Kareed insists her master is just like that, and Frowo even swears her master can do anything. Toru rises with a grin and stares ahead, then asks the headman if he can get lunch right now. The headman nods and promises to send word at once to set the table. A bunch of fairies crowded around the table, lowered their heads in respect, and thanked Mr. Toru for saving their village. He fumbled with his hands and insisted, "Don't thank me, I just did something simple." But the fairy snapped back. "If we hadn't come here, that golem would have wiped our village clean off the map." Fruz's grandpa burst out, "As thanks, we're throwing a festive banquet for you tonight." Then he urged the guests to dig into their hospitality and enjoy every bite. Toru scratched the side of his face in pure awkwardness and nodded, and that fairy fluttered straight up to Thor to ask him once more to introduce her family. Proud Symbol started sliding from right to left, calling up the fairies in a chant you could feel in your chest. The village's leader was her grandfather, and Jujin was her grandmother, Banya was her dad, Papaka was her mother, Mamiri was her mom, and Outwood was her brother. And finally, she stepped forward and declared herself Fruz, the servant of the master, the one and only, and Thor instantly felt his cheeks burn. Because he couldn't wrap his head around being proud of servant status, then Fruz's family erupted in cheers, joy spilling over as they welcomed their guests like family. Grandma beamed as she wiped a tear from her cheek, saying she couldn't believe she'd lived to see these days. She never imagined she'd witness someone this incredible up close. And Papa Tao insisted that Fruz's success came straight from their training, a point Mama wholeheartedly agreed with. The fairy's brother stared at her and congratulated her since she'd stopped butting in now. Then the girl nodded, bragged that she was the greatest, and blurted out a question about exactly what he'd just said. That Frau shot up to Thor and asked how her family was doing, and Thor said they were pretty friendly, getting along just fine, so Coyote nodded along with a warm smile. The Frau family members all burst into laughter at once, scratching their heads like something was off. Toru watched it and felt a sick, murderous rage crawl up his spine. Then he couldn't shake the thought. Was this really Frau's family? The fairy snapped to attention and spun toward her mother, asking if it was finally time to start preparing for the feast. Mama nodded and said she'd go rally the whole village. Fraud snapped her attention back to Kaida and said there was still plenty of time before the holiday, so she asked if the guests would like a bath. Kaida immediately lit up. That would be great. Then Toru leaned in and asked, just teasing, if they actually had a bathtub big enough. The fairy nodded, telling her there's one just like this house, perfect for guests, then warned that they'd had to take in people of other races before, so she'd better spill everything to them. Toru stood outside a huge bathroom, towel clenched on his hips, staring at the forest spread out below, and said, with a grin, that it really wasn't so bad. He marched into the tub, tossing in special words so the whole place would smell amazing, then watched flower petals and fruits drift through the water like a dream. Beautiful Toru peered forward and even praised the forest view as stunning, because yeah, he loved it. He scratched his head, thinking he should wash his hair first, when someone behind him suddenly called him by name, the owner. Toru spun around in total shock, and there was Cade right behind him, still wearing only a towel, and the girl blurted out, "Can I wash the guys' backs?" The guy said, "She's only a servant, so don't make her do that," then added that he could wash himself. Cade shot back that she wanted to, and immediately asked if he'd still refuse her if she was dressed in a swimsuit. She shrugged off the towel and snapped, asking the guy if he truly didn't like her. Toru stared at her, cheeks burning, and admitted, in a blushing rush, that she was absolutely gorgeous. The water trickled into the tub, petals and fruits floating on top, and the girl kneeling close scrubbed her master's back like it was no big deal while Toru's gut sank, because all he could think about was their last time bathing together, and how Cammy was still just a kid back then. The guy stared at his servant and couldn't help himself anymore because, wow, she was gorgeous. Kairi was all fired up about scrubbing the gentleman, swearing she was going to bathe him right in front of her. The guy's face flashed with embarrassment, and then he noticed she was leaning hard against him like she was sinking into his arms. Toru couldn't believe it. She kept scrubbing the guy's chest, and when the young man felt his back, he realized something huge, soft, and springy was pressed there. Toru couldn't stop wondering if she was pressing her body all over him. Then she drawled, breath against his ear, his whole body jolted at the touch, panic flashing through his mind, and the moment her hand landed on his stomach, he screamed. The guy blurted that he'd bathe next, and that shocked the girl. Cade awkwardly hesitated and apologized to Jura, asking if the gentleman might not like it, but Tora shot back that he actually liked it a ton. Then he sank into the tub and let it all go sighing like pure heaven. He chatted on about how amazing it felt there, while Toru shot the girl a curious look and asked if she'd wash too. Kai just grinned and said she was only there to wash the master's back. He stared at the girl and asked if she was freezing, then told her to climb up to him so they could lie together. She said yes, hopped into the water thanks to Thor, and promised she'd join him at once. The two of them ended up side by side in the warm water, chatting like it was paradise because even the smell there is incredible and it feels totally, ridiculously relaxing. Suddenly, something brushed the guy in the water, and surprise snapped across his face. Then Toru shot his hand out and yanked whatever it was up, and before he could even figure it out, the girl's scream ripped through the air. He yanked back fast when he realized he'd grabbed a fox's tail, but he immediately apologized, only for the girl to wave it off and say, "It's okay," and even offer, "If you want, you can touch it." Kaid spun away from the guy, and he figured that for a beesman, those stories are super personal and nobody's trying to get hands on there. The guy in front shot back that he'd only touch a little, and the fox nodded along like, "Yeah, that's the way." Toru started poking at the girl's tail, all curious. "I swear, it's usually so fluffy, but the water makes me look all thin," he said, and the girl's cheeks heated up as she blushed from the touch. He dragged his hand up along his tail to the tip and gasped that it made him look even skinnier. Then Kaid erupted in a full-on scream. He let go of the girl's tail and thanked her for letting him touch it. And Kaid went wide-eyed because the guy could tell she was blushing hard and started wondering if she was okay. Then the moment he looked up, he saw something and froze. He shouted her name and ordered her to look, and beyond the trees in the forest, a clear slice of sky opened up while a huge swarm of stars streamed across it. Toru and Kaid locked eyes with the starfall, totally stunned, and they couldn't stop gushing about how breathtaking the view was from right there, because whatever they saw that night, they'd never forget it. While Sefin and his crew pushed forward, one of the girls finally snapped. "How much farther do we have to go?" Under the scorching sun, the whole team trudged forward, and she snapped that the heat was messing with her. Then Sang cut in, telling the girl to shut up because they'd already figured it out without her. Lisa went even further, saying that if that guy had found a holy sword in that temple, they never would have had to suffer this brutal heat. Second shot the girl an irritated look, cursing in his head because he had no clue how the guy even planned to track down that sword, while the guy believed that, based on the rumors back in his native kingdom, he was the absolute worst hero in its entire history. Sarian was locked in because everything depended on it. No time to waste. He needed that sword right now. While Neely pushed ahead, fending off the glare with her hand, she suddenly spotted something. The girl whipped around and shouted Sebron's name to her team, and Neely threw her arm toward the city, saying they could finally rest there. Sagan shot a glare back at the girls, huffed that they'd almost made it to the temple, then admitted they looked wiped out, and so did he. He snapped at the girls that he was against it, so they could head into the city, and the girls lit up with pure joy. She stepped forward with non-stop energy, but the guy's patience kept wearing thin, like she was starting to piss him off more and more. After what felt like forever, Sechin's crew finally barreled into the city, and it was buzzing non-stop. Lisa, Sochiara, and Sechin gawked at what sat ahead of them, faces twisted with pure disgust. The guy couldn't hold it back and demanded, "So what is this?" Plates of food sat right in front of them, crawling with larvae and insects, and the girl snapped, "I'm not eating this." So Makara blurted the words in total shock, because she never imagined the locals could eat like this. Lisa slapped her hand over her mouth and insisted she'd pass, and the guy even said it looked downright creepy. "Son." Then bam, Makara snatched a spoon and rammed it into her own mouth, muttering a wish for a pleasant appetite, as if that'd save her. And right after that, Sikane froze in complete shock. She looked totally stunned and blurted, "I know it looks creepy, but it's actually delicious." Then she kept munching without stopping, and the guy just froze because not only did she eat it, she even ended up loving it. He yanked his hand over his mouth, disgust flooding in, and swore to himself that he'd never lay a finger on her again. Then he snapped to action, deciding to get rid of her fast. Samara snapped the truth. She'd rather order bread for herself. Then Lisa nodded along, and Sapin swore it all felt perfectly normal. She asked the guy to eat before the food went cold, and he snatched up a spoon like, "Yeah, I'm starving," then shrugged and said, "If I don't dig in now, who knows when I'll get another chance to snack." He swore like it didn't matter because he was the hero and nothing could stop him. Then he dove right into his meal. After what felt like forever, they finally burst into the temple grounds, and Seihin's whole team was already lined up right at the entrance, waiting. She snapped her head to the guy and asked if he was sick. Then he bent over and shook like crazy, shouting that she'd better shut up. Sakin went rigid with tension, grit his teeth through a brutal stomachache, and just had to bolt to the toilet. He stared at the girl and wondered why he had to swallow the exact same food as her while he couldn't even get his head straight. She stayed unnervingly calm, and he was left screaming inside. Like, where was the justice? Selene was barely hanging on, gripping his stomach hard, and all he could think was, we're already here. He just had to grab the holy sword. They crashed up to a towering door, and the guy shoved it with all his might. Yet it wouldn't budge. Lisa snapped her eyes to him and asked if he was okay, because only then did she notice he was shaking uncontrollably. Solara stepped in fast and offered to leave this place. Second frowned hard, shot the girls a furious mental curse, and told them to shut up like they didn't have a clue how badly the guy needed to use the bathroom. Then the tall doors ahead of the team slid open, and the girls finally erupted in relief. They stormed into the temple to grab the holy sword, but the guy inside was still trembling, barely able to move, staring at the blade like it was miles away and praying that if he even relaxed for a second, he wouldn't start leaking all over himself. Second fought to drag himself toward the holy sword, clinging to the hope that he was almost there. His legs trembled with every step. Solara and Lisa stood behind him, cheering him on like it was their victory too. He just smiled and mentally told them to shut up. Sesson lunged in, yanked the sword in his grip, and braced for the moment it finally took hold. The girl hovered nearby, watching him with blazing determination, wrestle to yank the holy weapon free. Seiking shook all over, cursing himself as he poured every last ounce of strength into his grip. Then, if he strained just a bit more, his backside would finally give way. With that, the newly called out girl shouted to the guy and charged toward him, promising she'd help him yank the sword out. The girl sprinted up, snatched the handle, and Sen's eyes went wide. Then the guy snapped, cursed at her, and yelled for her to stop. The instant the sword finally shifted, he couldn't hold back his craving. The holy sword got yanked out of its place, blasting the guy and the girl backward, and when Lisa and Sokara finally snatched it, they squealed with joy and grinned at the girls. Sokara and Set in both finally got to breathe again, and Set in let out a long, relieved exhale. Moments later, the girls finally clocked what just happened. Then brutal screams tore through the temple. At the exact same time, Toru and Katie were in Faye's village, boxed in by a whole crowd of locals. Fairies were swaying and laughing, some gulping drinks and chatting nonstop, and right in the middle of all that chaos, Toru was straight up having the time of his life. He chugged the drink, then blurted out in pure delight what fairy meat was really all about. Toru glanced at Cade beside him, and the girl nodded along, praising the drink's smooth feel and deep flavor Aaron. Then Frau swooped up with a bottle, offered it to him, teased that he downed way too much, and the guy shot back that they were only tiny bottles. Proud shot her hand sideways and declared, "Right here are food." And the fairies swept in with towering platters, laying a lavish table before the guests. One guy grabbed his fork and knife, and everyone wished him a truly pleasant appetite. Toru and Kaid dove into their food like they couldn't get enough, while Fra hovered nearby. Then boom, someone rolled up and offered a drink. And it was Papa No, bottle in hand. Ferris's father pulled the guy aside and asked how things were going with her. Was she alright? The guy said she'd only just joined the team, so he had no idea what had happened before. Taru and Fru's father chatted with big smiles, and Papa Cow said he'd be happy if the guy kept taking care of Fru, to which he agreed, then pressed him, asking if he was satisfied with Fru as a servant. And the father's face tightened with a slight frown. Frau Milo blurted, "Wait, what even is he talking about? Because the fairies are servants of some higher race, and only their loyalty reveals their real status." So he just kept cheerfully saying he doesn't mind. Then Frau Milo told her father she was embarrassed, and Toru burst out laughing, thinking about how hilariously ridiculous fairies are. Suddenly, a bunch of people swooped up to the Ferris father and demanded they talk to Toru too. Outwood snapped that it was unfair only the father got to speak to Tofari. Toru stared as the Ferris guys argued back and forth. Then his frown hit hard, because that moment dragged him straight back to his childhood. The guy shot up from the table and blurted an apology, saying he had to slip out for a bit. Papa Fairy immediately asked if he wanted an escort, and the guy politely refused. Then Kai Cleed watched him leave with wild excitement. Night had swallowed the fairy village, and under the trees a massive feast blazed with laughter, while Toru perched up high, staring down like a hawk at how everyone was enjoying themselves, until someone suddenly came creeping up to him. Cade shouted for the owner, and the owner snapped back by calling the girl's name. Then the fox slid down beside the guy. She asked Toru if he wanted water, and he took the glass right away, thanking her like he meant it. Kaffy noticed the guy's silence and blurted, "Why do you look this wrecked?" He let out an awkward sigh, forced a weak smile, and admitted it. He couldn't hide his feelings. The girl just grinned and nodded, saying she'd been watching her master this whole time. Toru snapped around and told me that watching Fraus's family makes him feel like he's back with his mother. And I could tell something was bothering him. "Why does it hit you like that, Kade?" I asked, after a quick pause. "Hey, can you ask how she died?" He ripped open the past and started talking. He was 15 back then he bolted home and found her already bleeding, dead on the floor. They were the richest people in the village, so everyone screamed that someone had robbed them. Toru told her, "I've got nobody but you." He admitted he didn't know how to live on his own, then flashed that soft smile and confessed, "Lisa, only you keep me standing." And the way he said it made it clear he wasn't staying in this world for anything else. He staggered out, heartbroken, and asked if she truly left him for good. Then the guy nodded, confirming it was her choice, and that crushed him. Toru turned to Kaida and said the girl picked the hero, Serene, and honestly, that news hit him like a truck. The guy frowned and kept going on about how he didn't think he was good enough for her until Kaid shot him a sad look and pulled him in for a tight hug, soothing his heart. And that's how the night's story ended. The very next day, they marched straight to the temple ruins, where the guys stood shoulder to shoulder staring at the crumbled stone. At the reluctantly, Fru, he demanded answers about why there wasn't a golem here in the first place, and the fairy nodded in agreement. Then he spun toward Keita, grilling her about whether any artifacts were around, and asked her to check the score. Keita said she'd look into it right away. Fraud stared at the guy and asked what she was supposed to do. Toru paused for a beat, then the guy told her to go raise her love brow, and right after that, he vanished in a flash, leaving only one thing behind, that she'd do it with pleasure. Toru's squad started sweeping the space around them, and Toru leaned in, studying the golem's fallen bodies, while Kaid stared at something off to the side. Then the girl suddenly snapped, "Hey, over there!" Toru whipped toward her, charged closer, shoved the broken golem aside, and froze at what he found. Right ahead of them loomed the temple entrance. Kade turned to the guy and asked what they were going to do, and Tora shot back, "Naturally, we investigate." So they charged down the stairs into the cave, and the guy and the girl froze when they spotted the light. They closed in, and right under their feet, they spotted a massive magic seal carved into the ground. Kaisei leaned in, stared harder, and then blurted out that it was a teleportation circle, while Toru shot back, "How do you know? You haven't seen one like this before." They sat down by the circle, and the girl shook her head no. She told him she could somehow read him, and that this connection could take them all the way. Then the guy pressed, asking why the circle was still running, and Kaid answered with a confident grin. She believes the circle is powered by the mana that flows through these lands. Toru figured that if they stepped on it, they'd get yanked straight into another place, so he pressed the girl for the exact location. Kaid answered. Fast, she didn't know where, only that the circle was working right here, right now. That meant the other one was still live too, and then she added the real bombshell between circles. You can actually travel. Toru stared at the circle and felt his stomach drop. He didn't know where it went, so it screamed, "Danger." Still, some wild part of him wondered if it led to a mountain of treasures or something no one had ever seen before. Then Toru spun to Keita and asked if she truly didn't care what waited on the other side. She flashed him a smile and promised, "I'll go with you to the ends of the earth no matter what happens. I'm not leaving you." But the guy grinned at her and said their next departure point was already locked in. Then a furious cry of denial erupted. Toru and Keide got boxed in by fairies on every side, begging them to stay a little longer, maybe forever, while Rouse's father clung to Thora's shoulder and pleaded for at least another 30 years. Toru snapped, shook the fairies off, and said it dragged on for far too long. Suddenly, a shout cut through everything, "Be silent!" And the fairies ripped out of the guy's body and scattered like sparks. While a Grimfrau swooped beside Thor, he leaned in and demanded, "Did you forget your servant of a higher race?" She told them the gentleman loves this place too, so they'd better be ready for his next visit, and whatever they do, don't spend a second without dignity. The fairies bowed their heads and finally agreed Fru was right, and the guests could go free. The villagers let him walk out, and he thanked Fru on the spot. Fru shot back that she was totally embarrassed now, standing there in front of the fairies. And meanwhile, Panto just kept up with his usual nonsense noises. After a while, the Toru team finally geared up to leave, shouting farewells to the villagers. Frau insisted they'd be back for sure, and the villagers waved them off like they meant it. The guys pushed into the cave, then Toru snapped, "No clue what comes next." He warned they might even stumble into a swamp, so everyone had to stay glued together. Headkite and Frau nodded, grabbed the guy, and held on tight as Toru stared forward and declared, "We're getting out of here." They stepped into the circle like it was a gateway to brand new adventures, and Thor couldn't resist. Curiosity hijacked him because he had vanished somewhere even he couldn't name. Right now, Second clutched a sword in both hands, laughing like he'd finally struck gold. The sacred weapon was in his grasp, and it was downright beautiful. The truth is, he'd been aching to snag at least one sacred weapon for ages, and he came so close the first time he even pulled it off the second. But the third attempt, that's when the whole thing slipped, and embarrassment hit hard. She yelled at the guy, saying, "Since we've got the sword, we're finally going to move things forward." Selling snapped, "Shut up." Then Lisa blurted out what she'd heard, that demons were lurking in the city, and she demanded, "So when are we going to wipe them out?" Right away, they warned that the second they take that first step, they'll start moving, so Gara froze and asked if they could even do it with their current level, then wondered if they should just practice. But before the girl could go further, Neely snapped, "Stop," and shouted that demons were about to come for them while she was still thinking about training. Neely told everyone to head to the residence because they were all terrified, and the girl begged them to help now, so Care agreed, but snapped, If we die, then what help even exists? Neely pressed. So we really have to abandon the residence? And Seikin was totally stunned, like his mind hit a wall. He snapped curses in his head like, of course girls always end up like this, and then he told himself, we're smack in the middle of the human territories, so there's no way high-level demons are anywhere near y'all. Sakling convinced himself he didn't care about her anymore, so he planned to get rid of her soon. Even though Sokara was gorgeous and could heal him, the problem was she was way too predictable, always trying to help everyone. But in that moment, he realized there was only one person he could trust: Lisa. She always listens, and she's been right there with Toru the whole time. So he pushed the decision into action. Keep her close, no matter what. Second sized up the girls and realized every single one had reached level 40. Then he thought, if I'm going to beat the Demon Lord, I need to ditch the weaklings and recruit stronger allies. Right then, he snapped and shouted the order for the girls to stop, and the shock hit them like a punch. Suddenly, Lisa shot up and snapped, it's way too loud out there. I'm checking. Then she threw open the window, and there they were. People sprinting down the street, yelling and screaming as they ran. Lisa snapped around to her team and screamed that the people outside were fleeing for their lives like something was hunting them down. The guy blurted whether the demons had finally attacked. Sepple frowned, thinking they shouldn't even be showing up in these lands, so why were they here? The guy shrugged, sick of caring, and then he swung his sword, declaring they'd cut them down. The girls nodded with full confidence, and Sen-Wat figured everything was finally perfect, like they'd save the city from the demons, win the fame they craved, and, on top of that, put his sacred sword to the real test. A huge swarm of demons surged toward the city, tearing through everything and blasting the streets into flames, snarling with weapons, cutting down every man in sight, and dragging the women away while they looted food and anything worth taking. The demon leader strode them forward with a massive weapon blazing in his grip, and he roared to his brothers, "Enjoy this feast." Seguin's crew crouched on a tall building's roof, watching demons crawl below, and when they finally spotted their target, Seguin locked eyes with Lisa and said her job was simple: use magic to blast to the demons left and right. Then he warned her, when they're thrown off, the guy will strike in that confusion. Lisa nodded, already getting it, and nearly volunteered to wipe them out as fast as she could. Suddenly, Sena snapped, "Sangyara!" And Sangyara shot back that they needed to focus on getting the residents evacuated first, but the guy didn't care how many people died. In his eyes, fame was all that mattered, so he demanded Sena obey him. So Sun stared at this girl and demanded, "Do you understand?" Kara swallowed hard and nodded, saying the demons were raiding the city. Then they led the hunt to a spot stacked with food, told them to grab the women and leave, and right then, they spotted something. Flames suddenly blasted the demons, and they shrieked like they were being roasted alive. One of them wheeled on General Durham and snarled that magic was hammering them from every direction. They couldn't even pinpoint where the magician was hiding. Durham snapped back with a furious curse, demanding how they were supposed to strike back at all. General Durham snapped his eyes up and saw blazing fireballs streaking toward them, smashing into the demons like they were doomed. Right beside them, the general got ambushed. Sekanine swung in fast and cracked the demon on the head with his sword. The bastard figured a surprise strike was the move, and the demon fought back too, but he'd already decided if the demon didn't want to suffer, it was better to die right now. Suddenly, the guy realized the demon snapped his hand up and blocked his attack like it was nothing. Sequan froze, the general didn't even budge, and when Dharam hurled his fist forward, he demanded, "Who are you?" Then Dharam slammed a brutal, earth-shaking punch into the guy. Seike hurled forward and smashed into the wall, hard, cracking the guy up as he coughed violently. Then he slid off the wall and hit the ground, right as a demon closed in on him, weapon raised in its hands. He couldn't believe the guy was still alive. He was stunned. He demanded, "So are you a hero?" The guy tried to rise and fired back. "What if I really am?" General Durham answered coolly that it wasn't some big deal. The Lord only told them to treat him well when they saw him. But Selin stared up at the demon in front of him, shocked, because after Lisa's magic, not a single scratch marred him. Frozen in fear, Selin reeled, wondering what kind of monster his opponent was and why he was even here. Then, boom! A savage strike slammed into General Darlam, and Sekathin and the demon both jolted in shock as the attack proved someone was going after the demons for real. Turns out these adventurers weren't just messing around, they were battling the demon leader, and everyone around them shouted for Sekathin to jump in and help. Fast. The demon leader snapped his focus onto the crowd coming in, then roared at the adventurers. "Stop them first, fight." Demons surged forward, then the biggest brawl of all exploded, and everyone in sight threw themselves into it, including Cassine, who stared at the chaos with hope blazing in his chest, convinced they were strong. That's just how the city's adventurers rolled. Then out of nowhere, the guy spotted the girl in the hat and swore he'd seen her somewhere before. When Sajin spotted another adventurer, It hit him hard. This city didn't just have A rankers, it was crawling with S rank legends too. The crowd surged toward the demon leader, yelling that he wouldn't last, so the demon just laughed, declaring humans had zero chance and dared them to come closer. Then one adventurer ripped in with a sword tornado strike, and the other slammed the ground with earth spikes. The demon leader snapped aside from every strike so cleanly that not a single scratch landed on him, and the girl in the hat went wide-eyed. Then he barked that her magic couldn't touch him as he slipped past yet another blow. The demon boss snarled that their attacks were driving him insane, and the adventurer who came swinging again froze in shock before charging right back. Right when he swung for his next strike, a demon attack tore through his body, and the adventurer had zero time to react while the demon leader stood there, weapon in hand, staring at the others and calling them weaklings. Right then, another deadly strike tore through the air right at a tiny adventurer who stood his ground in front of a demon that barely even moved. The poor man stared up in stunned disbelief, and the demon leader answered with a brutal blow that slammed him straight to the floor. Now the leader was standing there, laughing his head off and calling out, "Who's next?" The monster stared at the girl in the hat. She still hadn't landed a strike. Then she slashed her weapon and blasted with that balloon attack again and again, but the demon just strolled forward like it was nothing, brushing off every hit. She crumpled to the ground, baffled, because her attack simply wouldn't land. Then the demon slid in close with a smug grin, asked what was wrong, and basically told her she probably couldn't hurt him at all. The adventurer shrieked in terror, and a puddle of liquid spread beneath her, while the demon cackled like it was having the best day of its life. Then the general spun around and snapped that adventurers were nothing but trouble, telling his men they could do whatever they wanted to the girl, since she was there now. Right away, the demon surged at the girl, and General Darm spun around, hunting for that hero. Then he spotted Sefin up at the wall, just getting his feet under him and heading somewhere, and the demon leader shot in fast to smash him with a brutal kick, slamming Sefin straight into the wall. The guy screamed his lungs out, and the demon snapped back, asking if he was really trying to escape. Then it grilled Sen, demanding to know if he was even a real hero, before the demon general sneered that he was pathetic and pressed him for his level. With the guy flat on the ground, he started mumbling, "I'm level 63. The demons roared with laughter as the general snapped, asking if this guy truly decided to kill him, and then mocked his pathetic 63rd level. He hit back by saying Sexton was just a fool, not a hero, and dared, "Is dementia your motto?" Before long, the demons nearby were shouting, "He's a joker." Second went berserk, convinced the demon would finally get revenge for humiliating him. Then a hard punch smashed into General Darm's head, thrown by Herker as he roared the guy's name. She spun toward him and screamed, "Get up!" Then Sokara barreled in too. Right away, he started healing the man while Lisa rushed in, trying to calm him down. The man was still yelling that the girls were late, and he demanded, "Where are they?" Sakin was already convinced these women were useless until a wild idea hit him. He snapped his hand toward the side and ordered Sora to take this demon, and when her face froze in shock and she demanded what he meant, he barked that everything was exactly as she'd heard, then shouted for them to detain the demon. He shot up, roared that objections were a no-go because he was the hero and that his life was all that mattered. Saran's outburst left the girls utterly dumbfounded, so they scrambled to figure out what they were supposed to do next. Right then, Neely blurted out that she'd think of a plan on the spot. Then Sane, with Solara and Lisa propping him up, shot up and yelled at her to stall them so they could escape. She nearly brought her foot down on General Dharma, but he snatched her up in an instant, smirking that it wasn't terrible, just nowhere near ideal, and those words jolted her. The demon leader yanked her down hard so she screamed, while Lisa lunged anxiously to her, but the voice ordered her not to turn around and to run faster. He shot a quick glance over his shoulder, then mentally bid her farewell because even with her body on the line, he was sick of hearing her objections every single time. While General Durham kept her pinned with his grip, surrounded by demons, the girl shouted the name, So Wind, like a lifeline, insisting the whole thing was probably a joke, right as her team dragged her away. At that exact moment, one passage got slammed shut with a pile of stones, then out of nowhere, beams blasted through the rubble, stones exploded everywhere, and a guy burst out from the other side. Kaid blurted in shock and demanded Taurui explain it, and Taurui smirked, saying it was just his brand new technique using the Dragoon's power to sneak out a bunch of hidden cuts, until the Frau finally snapped back, "Great, everything's dusty now." Thor snapped to Fru and ordered her to check the area, and the fairy shot back that it'd only take a couple minutes. Then the guy rubbed his forehead, grumbling that it was scorching, guessing they'd shifted farther south. Right then, Fru yelled that she could spot the light, and he demanded to know if that meant a city was out there. The fairy drew nearer and blurted that everything was engulfed in smoke, so the girl instantly figured something was burning there. Kuyod. Kuyod sniffed hard, then warned that she could smell burning, blood, and fresh flesh, and the guy's questions turned to panic fast. He yelled that they had to rush there immediately, and ordered Fru to take them. Taru's team sprinted at full speed to keep up with Fru. Then Toru called for Rosca, and the fairy shouted that the entrance was right there, so everyone surged toward it and burst into the city only to see a burning ruin laid out before their eyes. They stormed inside and scanned the chaos. Kahid hissed about how awful it all was. Fraud couldn't stop wondering who had done this. Then it hit them, everything was burning, buildings were wrecked, and the place had been looted. The Toru glared at what was unfolding, then bam, he spotted a charred body right at his feet, teeth grinding as he spat that it was demons, and just then, someone moved in on Thor, where the two started whispering about the fact that there was still someone alive here. Two demons gripped deadly weapons and declared they weren't human at all, just breathtaking animals. Then they spotted the fairy, and with chilling smiles, they promised to snatch her up and turn her into their toy. Toru stared at them and spotted the collars. Something about them hit him as familiar. Then it crashed in. People were right in front of him. The guy snapped, vowing he'd kill them, and the robbers shot back, asking if he was really sure he could. One thug stepped forward and taunted him, saying he'd find out what Toru could do. At the same instant, a brutal strike slammed into him. Cade had just landed his explosive incision attack, and the hit was so vicious it tore the enemy back, blasting them away at top speed. The second guy snapped to his brother in pure shock, whipped his head around, and tried to figure out what kind of magic this was because he didn't even see it happen yet. A brutal hit landed on the second opponent anyway. Fru smashed them with a slaughter hammer attack. The fairy tossed her weapon over her shoulder and mocked the defeated man's so-called weaklings. Kareed even nodded along. Then the fox turned to the owner and told him to calm down. First, she promised to help the survivors. And the guy agreed. Toru stared ahead, shell-shocked, then slapped his own cheek like a slap of truth. Because yeah, the girls were right, and the guy felt rage starting to take over. So he forced himself to cool down, refused to let anger win, and decided to steer things back to the demons, certain they were the ones who'd save the city. They chose to split up and launch a full-on rescue mission. Toru spun to Kaida and ordered her to head east, while he pointed west for Frau. Then he told Rosket to handle the demons and watch as the guy claimed the center. Together, they stormed out to save as many survivors as possible and swore to use their powers to protect the people. Demons ripped into the city, stalking the streets for anyone who hadn't bolted and was still hiding. Then one of them peered into a house, grinned wide, and breathed out the words that sealed it. I found them. Right outside the door, a girl sat there with a child. She shrieked the second she spotted the demon, then he yanked her by the hair and hauled her away, making her scream in agony while the demon dragged her across the ground and promised they'd have fun, and she begged over and over for him to stop. Right out of nowhere, the demon got blasted across the head by a brutal sword strike and erupted in a terrifying scream while Toru drove through with pure fury and the girl crashed to the ground, howling for help. Then the guy rushed up to her and demanded, "Are you okay?" He dropped into the seat in front of the girl and she insisted she was fine. Then Toru told her straight up, no demons haunt that road. If they head there, they'll find somewhere to hide. And with that, the girl turned to the kid and snapped that he mustn't cry because the uncle would handle the demons. Toru asked them straight up if they could walk or if he should go with them, and the girl shot back that they'd be fine. Then the guy popped to his feet, ruffled her hair, told her that was great, and bolted off in a flash. The whole city was thrown into chaos. Demons were trashing everything when, out of nowhere, they caught sight of something and a shout ripped through the streets. Someone was coming. They froze, clueless, scanning every corner like their lives depended on it. Toru sprinted across the street with his sword blazing, and every demon in his path got wiped out on the spot. He figured the closer he got to the city center, the more demons would be waiting, maybe even their commander, and then he spotted a fight unfolding to the side. The city guards were getting slammed by demons. Toru whipped his sword around, then hurled it straight at them. Crunch, it smashed one demon to the ground and buried itself in the wall, while the other barely ducked in time. That impact lit a fire under the rest of the demons, and Toru still tore through several of them in just a couple seconds. And just like that, one more beat, he slammed into the others, and in 4 seconds flat, he wiped out every last demon right in his way. In the next instant, the same bunch of enemies surged at him from every angle. Toru swung his blade. One heartbeat later, the attacker rained down a flurry of hits that landed on every single one. The city guard stared in total disbelief, because that guy wiped out every last demon in the blink of an eye. Toru straight up asked the knights if they were guards, and they nodded yes. Then the guy snapped back that they were travelers who dealt with demons, so everyone needed to evacuate. Without another second to waste, he bolted away, shouting that he was counting on the knights. He stared after the guy and told him he'd heard of a crew of travelers. Then another guy backed him up, saying they were the first ever to be crowned heroes in history, and that they saved the kingdom of Armand from deadly ants. Right then, a runner burst in with a report. One demon screamed to the general that they'd lost control of the east because everyone there was dead, and Dharam demanded what happened, while the second demon shouted that the west had already fallen too. The demon general replayed every moment in his head, so where was the real hero? And then, boom! The wall behind him cracked apart into chunks, smashing down the demon standing right beside it. General Durham whipped around to see a young guy gripping his sword, staring straight at him like he didn't know fear. Taru spoke those words like they were ringing from the heart of the city, snapped his head toward the demon, and demanded, "Are you the commander?" The demon nodded and fired back, asking who he was, so Taru crushed down harder on his sword. He confidently jabbed his blade at the demon and snapped back that he was just a simple warrior, while the general heaved the girl aside and demanded an explanation from him. And he only grinned, saying the guy he was talking about would be braver than that hero. At that exact moment, Toru's eyes snapped to the girl the demon had tossed aside. As she plummeted, the guy clocked her instantly. Then he exploded forward, racing to catch her before she hit the ground. The demon general barely got a breath in because the guy was already there, moving way too fast. Toru cradled a badly injured girl in his arms, shouting her name as her breathing came in ragged gasps, and the demon demanded to know who she was. He spit out that she was a friend of the hero, then dumped her to be torn apart so he could flee, and Toru roared at the demon to shut up. The guy snapped his head toward the demon and hissed a warning not to say another word because in the blink of an eye, he'd turned the demon into mincemeat. General Dharm only smirked to himself, silent as a shadow. Toru spiraled into memories of her. The time she walked up, noticed his sadness, and asked what was wrong. He spilled everything he was going through, the weight crushing them both, and it stunned her. Then Toru admitted, "We've already hit the 40th level, I'm still stuck at 20. And the thought that he was useless ate him alive." The guy dropped his head and muttered that he thought he should quit the band. Then she froze in shock. The girl snapped and swung a brutal kick into him, and he toppled straight into the water with a startled scream. Toru shot up and demanded to know why she had hidden him, and the girl snapped back that she did it because the guy was a pessimist and he needed to stop thinking that way. She thrust her hand toward him and shrugged. "Sure. The gap between our levels is solid, but who cares?" Then she smiled like it was obvious because they'd always be there to yank him up when he needed it. She basically declared that they'd all help. Toru grabbed her hand and called her by name. After that, the girl shot him a question. Did he truly think Lisa would miss him the way he imagined? Toru blurted out, mortified, "What does that have to do with anything?" She told him they've been hanging out forever and she's had eyes on them for ages, so don't pretend you don't know what's going on. Then she leaned in and asked Toru straight up if he likes Lisa. And if he does, he better step up at least for her, too. Toru shot back, yes, but then admitted he was terrified she'd totally shut him down. Nelly shot back that she didn't think that way and told Thor to man up and admit it. The guy blurted that she was a girl, so she should act like one. Nelly dropped her gaze, fell into a brief, crushing silence, and then admitted she never expected Toru to say something like that, letting out a soft, disappointed sigh. She didn't hesitate. She started kicking the guy right away and barked that it was time to stop talking and go train, but Toru blurted that she shouldn't jump him like that. So suddenly, the guy clenched his teeth, furious and confused, begging himself to understand what just happened. The demons closed in on him, peppering him with questions about what had gone wrong, and when someone muttered that he was only out of it, they decided to just eliminate him. Then the whole pack surged forward, weapons raised, yelling at him to shut up and vanish as they struck. Right then, Toru sprang off the ground and cleaved through every demon with one brutal swing of his sword. General Dharam leaned in and demanded to know if this guy was truly an ordinary warrior. Because his level screamed way past 100, the demon snapped back that he hadn't seen power like this in ages and then dared him to fight. Tairu clamped down on his sword's hilt and swore he wouldn't drag this out, because one worry burned in him like fire. He needed to win fast. General Dharm snapped at the guy, asking him a question, and that instantly set Toru off. The demon blurted out, did he really think he could beat him? Then he labeled the guy a joker. In the next heartbeat, the demon leader suddenly felt his weapon hand get severed. No warning, no chance to react. Then he shrieked about his mangled hand while the demon was left badly injured and someone ordered him to stop talking. General Dharm hurled his last arm into the air crunch, but Toru didn't even flinch. The demon got slammed by an ice wall and it locked up, frozen solid, and just like that, the next strike came raining in. The ice shattered into chunks and the demon got slammed into the wall. Flying from the impact, Kaid showed up right there, breathless and apologizing for being late. Beside her stood a frown-faced guard, telling her she was almost finished. There was only this last place left. He spun toward the roulette, thanking the girls, then whipped around to Keita and demanded he heal her, and the fox shot off at once to carry it out. Taru stared down the demon and swore he'd take care of it, while the general, right then, clutched his own head. The demon leader realized it wasn't facing one enemy anymore. It was staring down 3 opponents. And it felt like a perfect chance to deal crushing damage. So if it was really like that, he slammed the brakes off his restraint, no more holding back. He roared for the demonic armor to answer his call. At the exact same moment, The demon's weapon yanked free from behind Toru, shot through the air and flew straight back to its master, then fused into his hand like it was never separate. The demon ordered him to get ready, then promised to unleash the full power of the Demon Lord's army lady herself, so Taru tensed up and swore the demonic armor felt like the same kind of thing as a sacred weapon. So he decided right here, right now, that he'd tear the demon out before it swallowed him whole. Toru lunged and swung hard to end it, but the demon snapped his weapon up to block the hit. Toru stared in shock, and the demon snapped. Why are you so rattled? Like, sure, this is nothing, because the real shock is coming later. And the moment Demon General swung and struck moved in, Toru shot back with a divine strike to block them. The demon snapped forward with a fang strike, blasting him back until Thor slammed into a wall, pain and rage exploding out of him. Then the demon came in for another hit, but he dodged just in time. A brutal fight erupted, and they started darting around the building side to side at breakneck speed. Toru slowed, realizing the demon's reaction time had jumped too. He figured they weren't falling behind anymore now, they were finally matching him, skill for skill. The demon charged right at the guy and blurted out something wild about the magic axe, the Prado, and how it only works when you're armored in demonic gear. Plus, there are tons more weapons just like it. Then the demon warned him anyone who owns one is in serious danger, and Toru didn't even bother to respond. He figures the demon's taken enough damage to trigger a boost in its regeneration. Then the general hurls a massive stone at the Torah and roars that the weapon amps the user's power by 30. He slices through the rock hurtling at him, and right on cue, the demon unleashes its attack. He screamed that his power had climbed to the 195th spot, then blasted out a brutal attack that tore through the air while the girls scrambled, shielding themselves from the shockwave in pure disbelief. Frau snapped out to Kaid, warning that the enemy was brutal, then asked if they should rush in to help the owner, while the fox just grinned, totally at ease, and said, the fairy was brand new here, so she should sit back and watch. And it all came down to the fact that their owner was the strongest in the world. At that exact moment, Toru stood there, braced himself, and blocked the demon's attack, and General's eyes blew wide as he demanded, stunned, how this guy could stop it, then asked who Toru even was, while Toru clung on with raw, stubborn tenacity. He gripped his sword like it was his lifeline, then wham, he swung, and the demon got blasted backward. The general didn't move a muscle, but Toru started closing in, sure the demon had just backed off and was done. He stared in disbelief. Those demons moved with brutal speed, and their fighting skills were unreal, like they truly belonged on the battlefield. He understood why he was a general, and the demon right in front of him refused to back down for even a second. Yeah, this guy was absolutely a monster. Toru figured the opponents got quick regeneration too, so weak hits would do nothing, so he decided to unleash a brutal combo of his strongest punches, betting that the demon couldn't dodge it. Toru and the general locked eyes, staring each other down as demons surged then. In a flash, the guy was already there, sword thrusting straight through him. He was locked in. The general went pale when he saw that he was actually hurt. The general figured the man was playing within the speed limit, then tossed that thought aside because there was no sign of strain on him at all. The demon refused to give up and reached for demonic power, then pain flared as his arm was wrecked. The next instant, his breath died in his throat when Toru ripped out his heart and held it up with his own hand. Toru then spotted a crack in the general's demonic armor, and with moves so fast they barely made sense, the demon couldn't even figure out how he pulled off everything in a blink. The demon general crumpled to the ground with the guy standing there, clutching his heart in both hands just like that. The battle was over, and Toru had leveled up more than just skills, his basics had surged too. Then reality hit. Toru unlocked a handful of new professions, and now he was juggling two at once. Dragoon and a Great Thief. Dragoon used weakness detection to hunt down the magic core, while the Great Thief went full stealth and slipped across the distance without anyone seeing. The demon whirled on the guy and demanded he end him because it was already over for him. Toru nodded, then shot back. Do you have any last words? The general only answered with one question, what's your level? And Toru's brow furrowed in tight, quiet confusion. He stared straight at the demon and fired back. I'm level 300. And the opponent froze in shock. Then the general burst out laughing and said, the gap between us is massive, before the guy took control and won. That's the real power of level 300. When the fight finally ended, the sky dumped heavy rain, and Toru and Keide sat in silence on a bench inside the building. Then the door burst open so loud it snapped his focus. He shot up, grabbed the guy stepping out, and demanded to know how Keide was. The man said the potion Toru handed her did the trick, and that her condition was already way better. The girl will sleep for a bit. This potion mends her wounds and bones, but it takes time, and at least her injuries aren't as bad as they could have been. The man says he's finished and moves to leave, telling Taru to come find him if anything's needed. Taru thanks him. He burst into the room, hurried over, and stared at her passed out cold on the bed. Toru studied her with sharp focus, then dropped into the chair beside the mattress. He stared in shock as her broken arm healed right before his eyes. Then he realized those potions weren't useless at all, only he'd sold just a few, and he was secretly grateful. Toru said it was a relief the girl wasn't in danger, then Keide, right behind him, murmured that she was sleeping so peacefully it was unreal. The guy spun toward Keide and declared it was all because of her magic, and when he thanked her, Keide just froze with an awkward smile, saying it wasn't a big deal. She'd always been at her master's beck and call. Keide whirled to the guy and asked if she could use the assessment if he didn't mind. He nodded, and Keide snapped into action, firing off the assessment skill on the girl right in front of her. The moment it hit, Keide gasped and rubbed her eyes like she couldn't believe what she saw Toru shot. "What's wrong?" And the girl blurted, "Master, come out." They stormed out into the hallway to talk, and Casey didn't play it safe and spell out the brainwashing, so the guy went completely stunned. The girl snapped back that she really did have that status and it had to be magic, or some sneaky power forcing thoughts into her head. The guy staggered backward, eyes wide, and demanded again if she'd truly been brainwashed. Toru was totally stumped, trying to even imagine who could pull off something like that. Then a certain guy's face flashed through his mind. He couldn't wrap his head around it second place or not. There was no way this guy would betray a childhood friend like that. Kayaade crept closer and called out to her master, but he just stayed silent. Rua rushed in, apologized to the girl, and insisted he needed to be alone. The girl swallowed her feelings and looked away, accepting the command. She stormed out, and the guy got stuck alone in the hallway. Toru rose and couldn't stop thinking about the girl. "If only I'd seen how this would end," he muttered. Rage surged through him, and he swore that if it came to it, he would have killed again 2 steps further. You could see it in his eyes, pure anger, locked in with unshakable determination. Morning finally crawled in, and Kaide and Panta dozed on the chair by the door, while Toru sat in front of the bed. She cracked her eyes open just a little, mumbled something you could barely make out, and the guy shot out her name, asking how she was feeling. Kaide sprang up and demanded, "Are you awake?" The girl blinked and asked where she was, then pointed at the guy by name, so Toru burst out with pure joy, yelling that it was him. The girl just stared at the ceiling in dead silence. Then the guy stepped in and helped her sit down. Toru warned that her wounds could rip back open, so she couldn't make any sudden moves. She started to lower herself, almost sat down, and nodded. Then she asked straight up if he really got rid of it all, and Thorough was stunned. He asked if she was talking about Sahana, and she snapped back that the demons were way too strong, so Sahana ordered her to hold them down. Then she went on about how that guy stared at her while he walked away, like he'd just wiped her from his mind. Neely insisted she must have imagined the whole thing. The girl stared at Thora and shouted his name, and Neely jumped in, asking the guy what happened to his face. Then she demanded to know if it really wasn't okay to be useful for the hero group, White Fang, and she was relieved Toru was alive, because now they could team up again and travel together. Toru fell silent for a beat, then finally said the truth might crush her, but he couldn't stand it any longer, so he told the girl in front of him she'd been brainwashed. Almost too calm, she glanced away and accepted the answer, but the second it was over, she blurted out how much she loved Seng. In deep down, she could tell her thoughts were totally off, and the feeling scared her. With tears filling her eyes, she stared at Thora and finally said it. Her head was a total wreck, and she didn't understand a single thing anymore. Taru, Kayade, Frau, and even Pante went completely stunned by what was happening, and when Toru snapped back to himself, he went silent, then spoke the only words he could to end her suffering. Toru pushed the strongest curse-removing potion into the girl's hands, and the doctor swore it would work because once she drinks it, she'll finally feel better. He told him that if her actions under brainwashing don't match who she really was, her mind gets wrecked so badly that, in the worst case, she'll straight up snap and go crazy. He shoved the potion into her hands and told her he was giving her the choice, then stood up from his chair warning that if she didn't want it, she'd have to bring it back to Guy. With one more promise that he wouldn't pester her and that she could take all the time she needed, he watched everyone file out, leaving the girl alone in the quiet room, gripping the potion like it might decide her fate. The guys burst out of the room and ended up in the hallway, where Kairi had grilled the owner, "Why won't you rest too? You don't look well." Toru just shrugged it off, saying everything was fine, and then he added, "I'm not sleeping anyway." Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream tore through the room, yanking the guys' attention, so they sprinted inside at once. There, she thrashed on the floor, clutching her head and screaming like she couldn't breathe. Toru and Kayade froze, stunned by what they were seeing. Katie slid next to her and barked, "Hang on, I've got you." While Neely kept shrieking at the top of her lungs, Katie clamped her arms around the girl's head and blasted a healing wave to turn the pain around. Soon, her stormy emotions faded, and she finally snapped back to her senses. Toru stared at the empty vessel, realizing she'd drained it all, while Kayaid helped her steady her breathing. Then Toru sitting right beside her and calling her name, got hit with a sudden wave of shock. With tears spilling down her face, she slammed her eyes shut and let out a fierce scream, begging that guy not to look at her. Toru froze in shock. Then the girl blurted that she was now defiled, and the words tumbled out as she kept apologizing again and again, insisting she'd done something unforgivable. Toru didn't get shocked. She kept going, screaming that she'd betrayed her own heart and boyfriend, calling herself evil and saying she shouldn't even live anymore. Toru barked at her to shut up, yelling that it wasn't her fault since she'd been brainwashed and forced to act against her will. Then she snapped at the guy with cruel words. Toru leaned in and told you not to beat yourself up like that because in his eyes, she's still the same girl he's always known and she'll stay that way for him forever. Then he urged her to get some rest and said he'd step out, and he straight up asked Katie to take care of her. The guy stormed out of the building, then still heartbroken, turned around and kept walking in a city soaked by devastation. Repair crews finally got to work. Toru trudged down the street as people hurriedly cleaned up the ruins from the fire and the demon invasion, and as he passed by, he stopped to take it all in. Men hefted logs and checked who had enough wood, while the kids darted around, laughing and running. Then neighboring cities stepped up too, ready to pass along their supplies, and honestly, they should have shouted that news to everyone. He fought through his reluctance and realized just how strong people can be. So even after everything, they didn't crumble. They mapped out their future anyway. He begged her to hang on and keep living because if she couldn't, he swore he'd take care of her for the rest of her life. Deep in his thoughts, he was suddenly called out for the thing he'd done. He'd saved them. And right then, a girl holding a child stepped right up to him. But Toru felt this huge wave of relief. They were all okay. The girl turned to him and said she now owed him her life. So grateful, it practically burst out of her. And Toru just smirked back while the knight standing nearby also caught sight of the guy. The knights pressed him, asking if he truly led a band of travelers and was the hero of the kingdom of Armand. Lord Toru nodded, confirmed it, and realized he'd somehow already slipped the title from his mind. The knights bowed their thanks. They closed in on this guy and spilled the truth. You saved our city from demons, and every citizen burst into gratitude. The knights launched into praise, but Thor looked totally awkward and muttered, "It wasn't a big deal, I was just passing through." People in the city started spotting the hero who saved them right there, in front of them, and then someone backed it up saying, "I saw him with my own eyes." Soon the whole crowd closed in, and they erupted in thanks to Tora for pulling them through. Toru's thoughts spiraled toward giving up, especially since the guy clearly wasn't feeling right. Still, he pushed on and asked the residents if they needed help building the city. They agreed, but they flat out added that the hero couldn't be allowed to do those kinds of things. He snapped back, "Don't worry if I don't help. My conscience will chew me alive." The residents nodded along because once he insisted, there was no stopping it. Since they were short on workers, they begged Tora to lend a hand and move the wood in stones, and Toru happily agreed. A week slid by and she stared at the guy and blurted out that he was cute. Toru, midway through peeling an apple, turned to her and asked why she was saying stuff like that. He almost answered that it was just how things were. The girl snapped that the guy was trying to rescue her, but Toru's kindness was cutting her deep. Then the guy peeled the apples and handed them to her, telling her plainly that he finally got her perfectly. Toru admitted he was nothing but a burden to them, but Neely wouldn't let him go. She fretted over him and pushed him to stay, and her kindness hit the guy hard. Gally snapped back that he'd been acting blind before, then laughed, apologized, and admitted she'd just spent a moment realizing they're basically alike, something he immediately agreed with. Toru added that he never gave up, so she shouldn't either. Then the girl stayed quiet, set the bowl down, and told Thor she was only thinking about going back to the village. She couldn't help asking if the adventurers were calling it quits, and Toru just nodded yes, I'll go. The girl said her heart was already shattered. She was done with adventures, done with life, and exhausted from it all. She bowed her head and blurted out that all she wanted was to live with her parents. Then she whipped around to the guy, begging him to give her the best memories before it all ended. Toru froze, because the moment he heard her, he understood that girl wasn't trying to live, she was trying to die. He grabbed her hand and shoved her forward, shouting for her to go, then left her stunned, because they were moving right away. "Where are we going?" she blurted. He didn't even hesitate. "Outside," she protested, pointing out she was still in her pajamas, but he only shrugged like that was the least important thing in the world. After a while, Toru dragged the girl to the servant shop and told the man to draw up a contract between them, an order that absolutely stunned her. The girl demanded, "If you want me as your servant, don't you dare mistreat me." He waved it off and told her to relax, and the man said they followed strict rules first. He had to confirm whether she'd been brainwashed, and Toru nodded along with that. Neely yanked the guy up by his collar and demanded to know what he was doing. Then she shot back, asking if Toru was mocking her. Toru stared at the girl in front of him and dropped the exact words she'd been wishing for, watching her freeze dead in her tracks. He promised that if the girl didn't want it, he wouldn't force her, so she had to swear to live in return. Toru asked if he could swear to her, and he snapped back that he was waiting for her answer, then nearly bowed his head and went deadly silent. She blurted out words she didn't even know, shaking with pain, and then screamed, "I can't take this anymore." The girl was sobbing, saying she wanted to die, so Toru leaned in and promised her if it was because she couldn't see a future, then she could be his servant. She blurted out whether Toru was really a demon, and the guy smirked back that she could name it whatever she wanted. Then he warned her that if she ever regretted betraying him, that regret would be her own punishment, because as her master, he would command her to live. Toru said this was all he needed to stop his childhood friend from dying, because in his eyes the guy wasn't strong, and there was no other option. So he apologized to her like it was the only thing he could do. She smacked the guy on the shoulder with a brutal, "You're the worst." Then, after a while, declared Toru the worst of them all, walking around with a grin, laughing like it was all a joke, while a bold brand sat right on her chest. Toru said the girl looked genuinely happy, so she blurted out, shocked, "Wait, really?" The guy snapped back that she should remember she's only a servant in name. If something doesn't suit her, she doesn't have to do it. Then he warned her, straight up, don't go against what he doesn't want. She flashed a bright smile and said she was happy because she was finally connected to a guy, even if it was only a little. It still made her feel on top of the world. Toru stared at her and asked how that flush had messed with her head. Then he pushed, asking if he could take her to a doctor. She blurted out that the guy already knew she was totally fine, and just like that, a brand new comrade joined Toru's team. Kareed flashed a grin and asked if they might head out tomorrow, and the girl told him to let the others go, grab fresh clothes for themselves. Toru nodded right away. Since Nidia never leaves the house, she said. Nidia needed to loosen up, and with a shaky breath, she finally admitted she'd brought a change of clothes. The guy shot out an apology, snapped that the clothes were wrecked, and tossed them aside. Neely was getting ready to protest when Kahid cut in and said it was settled. Now Nipari shot back that Seguin had already grabbed her luggage and cash, so she had nothing left. Then Toru leaned in and told the girl, "Don't worry about a thing." Toru leaned in and said, "Yeah, I don't look like a rich guy, but I've got enough to cover everything you need, Alfie." Noak stared, baffled. Then Toru shot back, "Just don't get comfortable. I won't be with you forever because you're going to head back home later." Toru mulled it over, then told the girl, "Since you're my servant, it's totally fine for me to look after your subordinates." She burst into laughter at the guy's words, firing back with, "So what am I supposed to be the one who deserves your kindness?" Kaid laughed too, and she was ready to roast him a bit, but he kept acting offended. Then the girl leaned in and asked if Toru didn't want her to call him master. After a while, they rolled into the city and Toru's team strolled through the streets like it had bounced back overnight. Suddenly, someone shouted over to him with a cheerful greeting, saying they'd just gotten a fresh stash of vegetables and promising a discount if he came by. Kaida nodded and said he'd drop in on his way home. Then a bunch of little girls swarmed up to Kaida, begging to play hide and seek again. She agreed, just not this time. Only next. She grinned and told him he was more than welcome here, and she swore it was because the residents owed him their lives. Then Toru fumbled and muttered that he just didn't want to stand out. Proud burst up to the counter and bragged that she had to try the shop's buns, then swore they were insanely delicious, so Toru jumped in and offered to buy some. Then the guys pushed deeper down the street, and the heroes stood in this oddly calm, peaceful bubble, like nobody could feel a threat in the air. Toru spun around to Kaida and told her she looked good, and that he'd even managed to get her outside, so Kaida shot back, "If I stay home all the time, I'll never get better." Then added, almost daringly, "Same thing with you guys too." Kareed said it all started the moment she stopped trusting herself, because she still remembered that guy telling her, like, "Is it really that strange for the master to care about the subordinate?" Toru nodded, told the girl he was truly grateful no matter what, and Kaid shot back that it was her job to help him as they strode down the street. She even insisted the guy would take care of everything, because after all, he'd saved her and her too. Then Neili marched ahead with Fru and Ponte. Tora flashed them a smile and declared that Kaid was right. Then he prayed she'd be okay. And Kaid grinned and said, since Neili mattered so much to that guy, then she mattered to them too. Same weight, same importance Neili's. She promised she'd do everything she could to help her as well. Then they all stormed off for the clothing store together, pushing and egging each other on the whole way. After a bit, they finally reached the store and Kaid and Neili hurried outside to throw the guy a flurry of apologies for keeping him waiting. Kayade gripped her by the shoulder and fired a question at Thor. Did this outfit even suit her? Neili swallowed hard and admitted it felt like it didn't belong to her, not even a little. Toru shot back that it fits her perfectly, and Kaid stared at him so hard the guy flinched. Toru threw a thumbs up and blurted that she finally looked like a real girl despite the fact that he's known her his whole life. She thanked him in a clumsy rush and told him she was genuinely happy to hear it, and Toru backed it up, no lying. He even added that a girl like her rarely pulls off clothes that nice, but man, they fit her perfectly. Kairi stared at the guy with hope and asked if she could get praise too, and right there, a frown popped up, wanting praise of his own, and Toru just burst out, "You all look amazing." Troop asked the girls what was next, and Karid said she wanted to go somewhere if nobody minded. Of course, Taruz grinned and told her to take the lead. Kade happily grabbed her hand and pulled her forward, and then surprised the fox was way stronger than the girl had ever imagined. After a while, they finally reached the oasis pool packed with people splashing around, laughing, and soaking up the fun. Frau, perched on the pont, blurted that she'd be first, then the fairy dove straight into the water, and Toru snapped, "Don't jump." Neely watched, grinning, because the fairy was still buzzing with energy like always. Toru then fumbled out that, yeah, she wasn't some kid, she was actually 28, and older than all of them. Toru spun toward Kaeda and blurted out his thanks for grabbing his swim trunks because, yeah, they were gorgeous. She smirked and said nobody else understands her master like she does. Then Kaeda turned back to him and asked if she could fire off a question, and Toru nodded. Game. She grabbed the vessel and asked the guy to put sunscreen on her. Toru froze in shock because it was her asking, not him, and Kaeda admitted she couldn't do it herself, so she leaned in and asked if he'd help, and Toru answered, "I'd be happy to." The girl flopped down and begged for more support on her back because the space around them felt way too exposed. Toru nodded and promised he'd try, and while she stayed on the sidelines, Kade got all her backing. The guy squeezed a little sunscreen onto the girl's body, and Kaid muttered like he was smugly enjoying every second, saying it felt pleasant. Then Toru started rubbing the cream into her back. Toru stared at the girl, stunned by how unbelievably soft her skin felt. And he couldn't even keep his mind steady because the dealer's words about those prohibited goods just kept echoing in his head. Then Toru snapped back to what the servant said when he questioned how those contracts even worked, because the man told him it was basically the same as any contract you command them to do something, and they'll do it. But it never reaches inside their heads to mess with their own thoughts and minds. Toru rubbed the cream and couldn't shake the thought, Kay's always pulling stuff on purpose, and she wants something out of it. The guy stared right at the girl's buttocks and instantly thought, if I don't do something, they're probably going to burn. Then he shot out his hand like it was a noble for your own good move while silently apologizing to Kahid in his head. At the same instant, a scream tore through the air. "Don't touch her!" And the guy lunged forward nearly instantly and planted a brutal kick right into Thora's face. After that, they got up and faced her, and the guy blurted out his thanks because he'd almost snapped. Kanid said the words she didn't care anymore, then Neely stepped in and made it crystal clear no flirting while she's around. The guys decided it'd be smarter to crash Fru's little moment she was splashing around in the water with Pante and the other girls. Toru and the girls plunged into the water and started splashing like kids, and somehow they even got a full-on volleyball match going right there in the waves. Barely pushing out of the water, he shouted to Thora that she was worn out and needed to grab some rest. Then Toru turned to the girl and asked if she was really okay. She beamed and told him everything was fine, so Toru nodded along and didn't worry anymore. Kaid shot up to Thor and called his name, telling him she still felt sick as a dog and asking him if he could stay with the girl. Toru nodded and said, Karid was probably right, then turned back and promised the girl he wouldn't abandon her and the other two. And finally, Karid thanked him. Nali sat alone under an awning, her thoughts drifting, like a shea branch that had gone quiet and lost. When someone suddenly slid up and asked if she wanted a drink, True dropped into the nearby shay's shadow and teased her about how scorching it was, saying he knew it was warm here, just not this warm. Then he leaned back and declared that he figured he'd better take a rest too. She nodded along and blurted out what mattered most. She was just relieved everything was okay with Toru. The air went dead silent, then the girl broke it first, saying she finally had an idea. Mealy leaned in and told me Swara and Lisa were getting treated like trash, and that they had no idea what they were doing while everyone took their pleasure from it. Meanwhile, the guy just went silent, lost in his own thoughts, and Mealy rushed to apologize to Toru, insisting she never meant it. Toru slammed his drink down on the table and told her again that none of this was her fault because the guys kept insisting the girls weren't to blame for what they'd done. Then they pointed at Seo as the real culprit, and Toru finally exhaled in relief, seeing her alive and slowly coming back to herself. The guy said, with zero hesitation, "Leave the rest to me, I'll cover it all myself." Then Toru shot up and grabbed her hand like, "Forget everything?" before he urged them to just have fun. She glanced at Toru's hand, flashed a smile, and nodded along, then grabbed his hand and dashed back to the others. It's been a whole week, and the guys finally rolled back to Armand. Then Toru leaned in and asked, straight up, if it was really true they didn't have to go with the girl to the village. Nellie shot back that escorting her all the way to Armand was already enough, and that she'd even be given a carriage with guard. Then a knight barked that if she was Lord Toru's friend, they'd defend her with their lives, and the guy went on like he'd been counting on that. The girl leaned in and asked Toru how he and his band ended up as the heroes of this country, and Toru just shrugged it off like, it all worked out that way. Then he turned the tables and asked what she planned to do when she finally got to the village. She paused for a second, then smiled and said she'd help her parents with the housework. She told him that time would bury everything, and she would finally feel better at last. Then Toru practically lit up hearing it. The girl finally said it's time to say goodbye, and the guy nodded along, agreeing instantly, while behind him, Panta fought to hold back tears. Nearly turned pale with worry, then steadied himself. He and Pante gripped hands with the fairy, telling her that seeing her and even more, making friends with her would be unforgettable for her. The girl thanked them for cheering her on this whole time, and Frau sent her off with good luck while Pante only whined, sad as could be. Meili swung her attention to Keita, thanking her with all her heart for looking after her this whole time. Then she vowed she'd keep going by herself. Keita just smiled back, accepting every word. Right out of nowhere, Neely shot up to Keita and leaned in like he had a secret to spill, whispering straight into her ear. The fox tilted her head to catch every word. Neely told Keita to look after Toru, and Keita learned the truth. He can be a bit cruel and stubbornly silent, but deep down, he's actually a really nice guy. Kaid nodded, grinning, and told the girl not to worry. Neely whipped around toward Thor and shouted his name. Thor went quiet for a moment, then said he'd ask again. After that, he turned to the girl and asked if she wanted to join them, because they'd be thrilled to have her there. Nearly Thor with the, yeah, it's a solid offer, but nearly stopped short because she didn't think she deserved them at all. Then the girl snapped back that she'd already made up her mind a long time ago. With a faint smile, the guy shot the girl a shrug. Who knows, guess nothing can be done. Then Neely suddenly yanked him by the sleeve, tears blazing in her eyes, and shouted his name. Solara, please, she begged, because the girl was already starting to pester him. Neely just thought Saken would shove her away any moment. Toru hooked his hands onto the girl's shoulders and promised he'd help while the guy froze, asked about Lisa, then finally admitted this. Even if he could smash Selon's curse, the girl was terrified Lisa couldn't survive those memories. Toru knitted his brow and answered with what he figured out. Then she snapped the guy's name out loud and demanded to know if he still loved Lisa, who... Toru went quiet, and Kayadi leaned in, staring him down like she could pull the truth from his thoughts. He muttered the stuff he didn't even understand, swore he used to love it, then admitted he's lost the feeling and doesn't know why anymore. He almost answered, yeah, if that's the case, it's a good thing, because she was sure Thor would be absolutely wrecked in pain, and Toru frowned at the girl's words. Maybe she was right, but he still refused to stop and wanted to help the girls anyway. She met his eyes and told him straight up she was counting on him, because he was the only one who could save them. So when he answered that he knew, Toru stepped in as her best friend and their best friend and swore he'd help those girls just like he'd helped her. They bumped fists and she hopped into the cart and rode out, leaving the tourist team staring after their new friend as she disappeared. Nearly sat silent in the cart, then shot up out of nowhere, grinning as she waved at the guys behind her, yelling goodbye to Thor and the girls, Toru, Keide, Frau, and Pante. They all waved back with bright, wide smiles, shouting that they'd definitely see each other again. So the cart finally vanished over the horizon, and the guys were left alone on the road. Now Toru and the rest are back on the move, and the journey keeps roaring forward.